Davy is the eldest prince of a major kingdom. His own brother shoots an arrow into his back, causing a coma. The motive lies in Davy's birth to the king's first wife. Poison mysteriously kills her, and nobody ever identifies the guilty party. After the attack, Davy spends 6 years trapped in unconsciousness. During that time, his soul travels into the hero's afterlife. Only people who transform the world during their eras reach that place. At first, its residents marvel that such a young child qualifies. Their amazement fades once they discover Davy possesses nothing heroic. He is weak, talentless, deaf, and no hero from his era. Still, they refuse to tolerate someone so inadequate among legendary heroes. They train Davy for 1,000 years until he matches everyone there. After that millennium, Davy's waiting body finally awakens from its coma. Those same heroes treat him like trash throughout that entire millennium. Yet as Davy leaves, every one of them wishes him luck. Smiling, Davy walks forward and disappears into the waiting light. Since only heroes belong there, Davy expects no future reunion. He is no hero, and he never intends to become one. Opening his eyes, Davy cannot lift his powerless body. In truth, Davy is the eldest son of a small kingdom. His mother's killers also targeted him, and Davy promises their reckoning. He is no longer the weak, innocent child they once attacked. Day after day, only one devoted maid enters Davy's room. Her constant care is the sole reason Davy remains alive. Davy conceals his awakening instead of announcing his return. He moves only after the devoted maid exits, protecting his secret. Unsure how long he slept, Davy checks the room's calendar. The displayed date lands with all the pain of another betrayal. 6 years have passed since his treacherous brother fired that arrow. Now the brother who attacked Davy must finally pay. To seize control of his family, Davy first needs physical strength. He attempts the magic learned within the hero's realm. Nothing happens, and Davy cannot understand the spell's failure. Within that other world, a girl teaches him magic and sacred power. The saintess remains celebrated for centuries because God granted her abilities. That legendary saintess personally serves as Davy's instructor in magic. His failed spell makes a millennium of harsh training seem endangered. Davy fears everything he learned will vanish and remain useless here. After hours that would break ordinary people, the magic finally responds. His divine healing power truly begins working inside the room. Green radiance spreads across every corner as the healing takes effect. Moments earlier, Davy's miserable body feels 300 years old. Afterward, that same weakened body practically overflows with fresh energy. Gazing across his childhood kingdom, Davy stretches both arms joyfully. He raises his voice and shouts his gratitude toward the sun god. Unfortunately, Davy misses the devoted maid returning behind him. She bursts into emotional tears upon seeing her young master alive. Later, the castle doctor carefully examines Davy's restored condition. Davy's health is now astonishingly better than it was previously. The castle doctor calls his recovery an inexplicable miracle. During the examination, Linus enters Davy's room without warning. Linus poisoned Davy's mother, then replaced her as the king's new spouse. Two sons accompany Linus, second Prince Barris and third Prince Valentian. Barris attempted to eliminate Davy and believed the attack had succeeded. Linus asks whether Davy saw the archer's face 6 years earlier. Davy confirms that he clearly remembers the attacker's identity. He adds that attacking royalty carries the kingdom's greatest criminal penalty. Those words make Barris feel his blood turn bitterly cold. Beside Barris, Linus laughs sarcastically and declares the case long closed. The castle doctor immediately senses the poisonous tension filling the room. He promises Davy's full recovery within days, then quickly departs. Linus finally drops all pretense and says Davy should have died. Davy asks whether his survival truly causes Linus such distress. Barris says the kingdom is disgraced when attackers incapacitate a prince. He emphasizes that Davy remained comatose for many humiliating years. According to Barris, a pathetic prince can never become the future king. After speaking, Linus and both princes leave Davy's room together. Now alone, Davy notices nobody detected his magic during their visit. Davy concludes their different power levels kept his spellcasting hidden. Seeing wicked Linus and both sons reignites Davy's immediate vengeful rage. Despite that fury, Davy successfully forces himself to remain controlled. He credits his restraint to spending so long inside a temple. Even so, Davy's desire for vengeance remains fiercely alive. For now, Davy needs a calm plan instead of reckless retaliation. First, his empty stomach demands attention after 6 unconscious years. Davy wonders what his first meal since awakening will contain. 15 days after regaining sacred power and cutting his hair, Davy trains. All his daily training remains confined inside his private room. With little else available, Davy finds every day crawling painfully slowly. His mana control improves dramatically, making his recovery progress much faster. Continuous healing magic already allows Davy to mend injuries at remarkable speed. His necromancer knowledge gives him a precise understanding of human anatomy. Medical lessons from his former master further strengthen strengthen his treatment methods. Together, these skills make restoring his entire body perfectly manageable. Davy applies everything learned throughout those long years of isolation. Using magic makes nearly every part of rehabilitation far more convenient. One stubborn problem still disrupts Davy's otherwise smooth recovery routine. Amy follows the doctor's instructions and brings Davy soup every day. This liquid diet makes Davy feel like a toothless elderly patient. Amy regrets his dissatisfaction but insists the orders leave her powerless. Davy argues that one serving cannot possibly provide enough nourishment. He asks Amy to bring 5 additional portions of the same dish. The surprising demand leaves Amy staring at him in disbelief. Davy promises to finish everything if Amy simply delivers the food. Such an enormous meal would overwhelm the appetite of any ordinary person, yet restoration magic forces Davy's body to consume far more energy. A proper meal finally leaves Davy's weary soul feeling deeply satisfied. Unfortunately, eating that much also sends him frequently racing toward the bathroom. Later, Davy examines several documents and uncovers a troubling hidden reality. Amy apologizes immediately, but Davy assures her she bears no responsibility. His tremendous appetite has become a serious burden on the household finances. The documents also reveal Amy remains the castle's sole servant. Their worsening financial troubles have driven every other servant away. Managing such an enormous castle alone places an impossible workload upon Amy. Concerned about their survival, Davy asks about the castle's remaining assets. Amy reports that their available holdings total only 6,001. Davy believes careful budgeting should prevent further trouble with that amount. Amy explains their official monthly allowance should equal 501. In practice, the household receives fewer than 100 won each month. Davy immediately asks whether someone has been extorting their household. When Amy denies that possibility, Davy questions whether her wages caused it. By now, Davy suspects Amy rarely receives her salary on schedule. Unable to deceive him, Amy admits earning only 1/3 of her former pay. Davy considers Amy generous, yet accepting these conditions seems terribly foolish. Household maids are legally treated as possessions belonging to noble families. Amy originally becomes Davy's maid because her artist father faces poverty. For 6 years, she handles both Davy's care and the entire castle. Enduring that crushing responsibility alone must have exhausted Amy beyond measure. Worse still, Amy spends nearly everything she earns while caring for Davy. Davy orders Amy to recover every unpaid wage from his personal funds. Amy refuses because they lack enough food for even the following day. Under those circumstances, she cannot accept such a large payment. Davy tells Amy she no longer needs to address him formally. His improving condition also means Amy need not constantly watch over him. Being called Prince creates an uncomfortable distance between Davy and Amy. Davy dislikes that distance because Amy alone remained beside him faithfully. Later, a mustache counselor from the kingdom's finance department visits Davy. The mustache counselor claims Davy cannot access funds already entered into accounts. Davy struggles to focus on anything except the man's peculiar mustache. Nearby officials openly watch Davy with unmistakable contempt in their expressions. Even the mustache counselor notices how disdainfully the nearby officials behave. Davy refuses to bow his head beneath their hostile scrutiny. Instead, he warns the mustache counselor against interfering with his request. Davy says his household should receive roughly 500 won monthly. Since less than half arrives, Davy demands an explanation for the shortage. The mustache counselor blames deductions required for maintaining Davy's family castle. According to him, the household receives only whatever remains after those expenses. These evasive arguments steadily push Davy's patience toward its breaking point. The nearby officials share his skepticism and challenge the supposed maintenance costs. Cracks spread across the castle floors while weeds overrun its neglected garden. A property in such condition cannot reasonably demand enormous upkeep expenses. Davy openly agrees with the nearby officials' assessment of the castle. He also knows royals rarely oversee their own household finances personally. The mustache counselor says his department never supervises maintenance fund spending. He insists this office manages budgets rather than granting financial loans. Davy sees that nobody intends to accept responsibility for the missing money. With no useful answers forthcoming, Davy turns and prepares to leave. The mustache counselor asks whether Davy plans to visit the maintenance department. Davy replies that visiting them would produce no meaningful answers either. He knows the same kind of officials hold authority everywhere. Such officials always dodge questions, invent excuses, and shift responsibility elsewhere. Leaving, Davy tells the counselor to enjoy whatever remains in his pockets. Walking through the palace, Davy understands why every servant except Amy left. Low wages and noble abuse force the entire workload onto Amy. Davy then surprises Amy by asking her to bring him a sword. Amy recoils at the abrupt and deeply unsettling request. He assures her the blade will not harm anyone or anything. Reassured for now, Amy leaves to retrieve a sword for Davy. Alone, Davy decides he certainly will not be cutting any people. After all, his intended targets hardly qualify as human in his eyes. His position remains unstable, making careful preparation essential before removing anyone. Davy is already an outcast, and discovery would worsen everything. Even so, Davy refuses to sink toward the noble's contemptible level. Later, Davy and Amy stand beside a dead wild boar. Davy casually claims the animal was already dead when he found it. In truth, Davy hunted it himself and now prepares the meat. Amy becomes distressed when she sees him handling the carcass. She insists a prince must never dirty his hands with dead animals. Amy also pleads with Davy to avoid injuring himself again. Davy answers that everything remains fine if nobody witnesses him. Even requesting the king's presence would only get Davy turned away. Regarding everyone else, Davy knows his available options remain equally limited. He also understands the queen is using every means to hurt him. Yet Harris trained Davy well enough to survive without anyone's assistance. Davy declares the wild boar will become his dinner tonight. He calmly assures Amy that the dead animal cannot endanger him. Inside her chambers, the queen privately discusses Davy's awakening with Shirley. The more she considers him, the more unlike his former self he seems. Shirley reports that doctors believe Davy can barely walk. They estimate his full recovery will require more than 1 year. Still suspicious, the queen asks whether their medical assessment could be wrong. She reminds Shirley that her standing changes sharply inside these chambers. Shirley ranks as a Class A informant within Seoul's assassin guild. In the queen's presence, though, Shirley remains merely a Class 100 maid. Despite trusting Shirley, the queen cannot relax while Davy remains awake. Even the king abandoned Davy, who remains weak after his coma. Still, only removing Davy entirely will put the queen at ease. Shirley warns that her comrades operate independently, regardless of assigned class. Continued insults could therefore bring serious trouble upon the queen. Startled by Shirley's response, the queen claims she merely voiced her concerns. She demands that Shirley disrupt Davy's plans whenever necessary. Failure to do so, the queen warns, will make Shirley pay. Having delivered that threat, the queen orders Shirley to leave. Once alone, she plans to dispose of her disobedient dogs first. Only afterward will the queen proceed with her next intended move. The thought of that purge already fills her with eager anticipation. A past lesson compares controlling mana to threading hundreds of tiny needles. Such delicate work must always proceed with patience and extreme care. Davy's master identifies the brain's veins as the hardest areas to reach. Ignoring that warning, Davy learns could permanently cost him his sight. His master therefore orders him never to forget those vital instructions. Yet Davy's impressions of his other masters are far less reverent. Raltis seems like a drunken holy master, capable of dividing oceans verbally. The necromancer behaves far more devoutly than Raltis ever does. Despite her magical greatness, she mostly flaunts an absurdly enormous staff. Daphne then promises to give everything toward completing their dangerous experiment. She explains that people seek her teachings, not merely her presence. Daphne therefore urges Davy to put considerably more effort into learning. Trusting his masters more, she claims, could advance Davy's abilities further. The instant Davy complies, they subject him to a horrifying experiment. That experience ensures Davy never wants to endure anything similar again. Back outside the palace, Amy finds Davy wandering through the grounds. She asks why he has begun exploring the gardens yet again. Davy simply remarks that today's weather feels exceptionally pleasant. Even the nearby forest garden now appears unusually elegant to him. He tells Amy to resume her duties and leave him there. She should return only if someone specifically comes looking for Davy. Davy thinks Amy would usually panic if he attempted anything remotely dangerous, but Amy now seems surprisingly accustomed to Davy's routine. She still won't share a single meal at his table. Davy wonders whether his efforts to get closer are finally working. A secluded spot in the garden gives Davy the calm he needs. He begins meditating, concentrating on drawing in the surrounding mana. Davy believes pure air nourishes his lungs with oxygen and nature's mana. Tradition credits this ancient method to a god and generations of other gods. Despite its power, every body has a limit for storing mana. Expanding that capacity requires disciplined training and careful management. This method gathers in days what ordinary practice needs months to collect. Davy considers it miraculous enough to revolutionize the entire country if revealed. He refuses to share knowledge that requires such an unusual ability. During meditation, Davy senses somebody watching him nearby. The hidden observer notices discovery and immediately runs away. Davy has not been watched so closely in quite some time. Investigating would invite trouble, so Davy lets the matter rest. He needs everyone to see a frail, useless prince training undisturbed. Another obstacle remains. Davy must solve the problem of his mana circle. Priests cannot cast magic, while mages cannot wield sacred power. Neither group can use necromancy either. Davy is different, wielding priestly, magical, and necromantic abilities. His reckless temple masters and 2 eccentric researchers make that possible. Remembering their training still leaves Davy feeling miserable. Mages usually form a mana circle inside the heart. That arrangement cannot withstand necromancy colliding with sacred power. Attempting it would likely destroy Davy's heart. Davy considers an artery circle instead, joining arteries throughout his body. Together, those arteries create a sealed circle resistant to mana. Davy uses his entire body, heart included, for the structure. This prevents the powers from clashing and produces an unexpected benefit. Yet this near-body modification leaves no room for mistakes. One error during formation would kill Davy. That danger explains why Davy avoided this method. The Temple Masters made his previous success possible. Alone now, Davy cannot predict whether the process will work. His thoughts briefly conjure images of those masters before him. Even failure seems preferable to another 1,000 years inside the temple. Davy decides to attempt the method sometime later. Dinner time passes, and Amy notices Davy has not appeared. His absence feels strange because he is never late for meals. Amy is forbidden from disturbing Davy except during extreme emergencies. Still, she worries about his safety and possible consequences. If anything happens to Davy, Amy could bear responsibility. Davy appears soon afterward and apologizes for keeping her waiting. He tells Amy that her resilience impresses him. Davy then collapses against her without warning. Embarrassed, Amy interprets the contact as an affectionate gesture. Davy is merely leaning on her because exhaustion weakens his legs. His strength fails again, dropping Davy onto the ground. Amy becomes genuinely alarmed by Davy's physical condition. Later, Davy wakes in bed and remembers fainting upon finding Amy. Amy lies beside him, and Davy notices her presence immediately. He understands that his condition has troubled Amy once again. The artery circle has formed successfully. 3 powers now move through Davy's veins without conflict. The strange circle also grants Davy another remarkable effect. Mana feels denser around him than it did previously. Greater strength allows Davy to draw more mana from the air. With a finger movement, Davy can cast basic spells, restoration included. 5 months pass, and daily life looks different. Amy helps Davy gather several ingredients. Davy thinks his current food supply should be sufficient. Since the artery circle stabilized his life, meat and vegetables appear at the castle. At first, Davy suspects the queen arranged this secret assistance. Yet she could not execute it flawlessly every time without motive. Davy believes someone is deliberately trying to help him. He still has no idea who that benefactor is. Davy senses a presence around the castle. Though somebody lingers nearby, Davy spreads his mana throughout. Davy searches the castle for this person, but still receives no answers. Even so, the search sharpens Davy's sense of people approaching or retreating. Amy announces that their food supply should remain secure for quite some time. Davy senses visitors nearing and wonders whether the queen sent informants. Inside his quarters, Davy receives a priest and the priest's attendants. The priest examines Davy's body and asks whether recovery should happen soon. Because Davy has lain bedridden so long, the priest refuses dangerous healing. He claims using holy power now could threaten Davy's fragile condition. Davy recognizes the excuse, since Barris has used no proper healing spell. Barris clearly has no genuine interest in helping Davy recover. Davy knows Barris represents God and the nation, making his obedience disgraceful. Following another person's orders has reduced Barris's sacred duty to empty theater. Davy decides Barris should stop talking, since aid was never intended. Contrary to common belief, Davy's injuries are already nearly healed. Davy says the silver weapon given to Barris should handle such minor wounds. Barris dismisses Davy as a layman who understands nothing about sacred power. He insists priests alone receive both its knowledge and its proper use. Barris also accuses Davy of selfishness, comparing him to another prince. Amy rebukes Barris for speaking so insolently to Davy. Barris resents correction from a mere maid and strikes Amy across the face. Davy's attention snaps toward Amy, but his disguise prevents immediate intervention. Barris excuses the blow as discipline required to protect Davy's authority. He calls it unfortunate, then remarks that Amy has a beautiful smile. Davy nearly rises to confront Barris, anger tightening every muscle. Barris announces his departure and orders Amy to escort him outside. He promises another examination in 15 days before leaving the room. Davy tells Amy to accompany Barris, though she hates obeying him. Outside, Barris orders Amy to meet him alone after nightfall. He claims Davy's life rests in Amy's hands, demanding her obedience. Barris privately intends to use Amy, then throw her away afterward. He feels no concern for either a powerless maid or an ill prince. Alone again, Davy burns with fury at what just happened. Davy stands, refusing to let Temple Forge dignity leave him passive. Daphne once warned that uncontrolled anger would turn Davy into an animal. Davy now believes anger can serve a purpose instead of destroying him. The terrified attendants stare as Davy walks toward them on his own. Davy considers disciplined rage a living force that can direct his purpose. If laziness fuels progress, Davy thinks anger must power his strength. Barris's attendants become the first victims of Davy's sword. Barris tries blackmailing Amy, boasting that the queen ordered his actions. He says neither a weak prince nor his maid matters to him. Barris insists the entire kingdom shares his contempt for Davy. With the queen's protection guaranteed, he expects no punishment for anything. Davy laughs, grateful that Barris has finally supplied his justification. He raises his sword toward Barris and questions Amy about royal blasphemy. Barris stares in shock, demanding to know how Davy can stand. Davy says Barris remained low-ranking because his sacred magic was unnecessary. Davy reminds Amy to answer every question without forcing repetition. Amy replies that royal blasphemy carries immediate execution. Davy executes Barris at once, enforcing the sentence himself. With his final breath, Barris warns that the queen will retaliate. Davy thanks the false priest for the warning, then condemns his supporters. Anyone who stood beside Barris will receive the same punishment. Davy locates the queen soon after the execution. The queen calls Davy insane for killing a disciple of the Holy Order. Davy explains that Barris threatened his life, so the law determined his punishment. Furious, the queen prepares to attack Davy. Davy says the kingdom's laws were not this brutal before his coma. Davy adds that the king remains silent while everything unfolds. He sees no reason to suffer punishment for defending royal dignity. After all, Barris openly blasphemed against a member of royalty, unless royalty somehow fell beneath low-ranking disciples during Davy's coma. Those pointed taunts infuriate the queen, yet she finally backs down. She argues Davy possesses no evidence supporting his accusations. Even if true, challenging the Holy Order so recklessly remains foolish. The queen sneers that Davy inherited his mother's stupidity. She continues, hurling insults at both Davy and his late mother. Davy calmly notes that insulting another person's parents is deeply improper. Such cruelty is especially disgraceful when that parent has already died. He draws his sword and openly threatens the queen. Her armed attendants instantly surround her, prepared to defend her. Davy understands her boldness comes from always having protection nearby. Continuing their clash might be entertaining, but Davy postpones it. Every careless word he warns helps seal a person's grave. Attempting to murder another royal, Davy adds, carries the same consequence. The queen understands Davy knows her son Raltus ordered his attempted murder. Davy never intends to hide his strongest card indefinitely. Keeping an advantage buried too long simply clashes with his nature. He recalls her slapping him while he lay comatose. That act alone proved the queen had little consideration for him. Davy advises her to behave with a lady's proper dignity. Her wrecked chambers, he observes, possess nothing resembling elegance. The queen personally frightened away everyone assigned to serve there. Now she must clean the entire mess herself, and quickly. Otherwise, Davy warns, an especially vicious rumor may begin circulating. He urges the queen to choose every future move carefully. Davy will no longer tolerate schemes carried out behind his back. After Davy leaves, the queen vents her fury upon her attendants. Her screams fill the chambers as she nearly demolishes everything inside. Understanding Davy's intentions only strengthens her determination to eliminate him. Yet she wants Davy to suffer terribly before he dies. Rumors soon spread throughout the palace concerning Barris's death. Some believe Davy went mad after awakening and eliminated the priest. Those distorted whispers are actually part of Davy's plan. Once the queen learns what happened, the story reaches others. None of them receive the complete truth behind the incident. They hear only that Davy personally eliminated the priest. Half the palace staff supports the queen, worsening Davy's reputation considerably. Still, the unfolding news does not bring only misfortune. Amy visits Davy and reports that more supplies were delivered. Davy had already said he required no additional medicinal herbs. Amy suggests someone recognizes his kindness and wishes to reward him. Davy asks whether Amy truly considers him a good person. Without hesitation, Amy answers that she certainly does. She witnessed Davy eliminate someone, yet her judgment remains unchanged. Davy privately marvels at what an extraordinary person Amy is. Their conversation ends when Dwayne, chief chamberlain for royal affiliates, arrives. Following the queen's command, Dwayne says he brought the sinners. He explains they stole palace funds while several attempted escape. Those who fled were caught and brought back with the others. Davy asks what punishment their crimes would normally warrant. Dwayne says execution usually awaits both the offenders and their families. This time, Davy alone holds authority over their ultimate fate. Davy mentions the recent rumors portraying him as bloodthirsty. He wonders aloud whether he should behave exactly as rumored. Terrified, the prisoners beg desperately for Davy to spare their lives. Davy orders the established punishment carried out against every sinner. First, they must spend 9 days imprisoned without food or water. Although the queen ordered this, Davy deeply dislikes the arrangement. Even so, he intends to twist it toward his own advantage. Later, Davy orders the hiring of an entirely new servant staff. Amy must remain his personal assistant and receive a higher salary. Davy also asks whether his father will grant him an audience. Dwayne refuses, prompting Davy to question who denied the request. Was the refusal his father's decision, or the queen's as his wife? Dwayne cannot answer and insists he serves only as a messenger. He asks Davy for patience, promising the request will eventually succeed. Davy replies that he will remember Dwayne's assurance. With their business concluded, Dwayne prepares to depart. Davy stops him, mentioning that he finished all the delivered food. He adds that finishing everything means he no longer needs anything. Davy asks whether Dwayne ordered the chamberlain to send additional medicinal herbs. Dwayne claims ignorance and suggests Davy's gentle nature somehow earned those blessings. He then mentions a visitor waiting outside and excuses himself. Despite Dwayne's denial, Davy remains certain he provided everything. The food and medicinal herbs could hardly come from anyone else. Dwayne oversees the king's entire staff and has known Davy forever. Until now, Davy believed only Amy supported him inside the palace. For now, Davy turns his attention toward the waiting visitors. Amy soon announces that the 4th prince and 2nd princess have arrived. Winley immediately bursts into Davy's room, overflowing with joy. She leaps onto Davy and sends them both crashing down. Amy anxiously checks Davy after seeing him sprawled across the floor. Barris enters next and warns Winley to behave more carefully. As Winley's twin and 4th prince, Barris warmly welcomes Davy's recovery. The king has children with the queen and 2 royal mistresses. The supportive mistress faithfully strengthens the queen's position. By contrast, the neutral mistress avoids taking sides and becomes isolated. Barris and Winley are her children, making them Davy's half-siblings. Barris maintains formal courtesy, whereas Winley behaves with reckless familiarity. Winley tells Barris to stop acting so stiff around Davy. She reminds Barris that he whined endlessly about visiting Davy. While Barris and Winley argue, Amy keeps examining Davy's condition. Davy recalls rumors connecting Barris and Winley with a band of thieves. Their thoroughly unroyal behavior makes those rumors suddenly seem believable. Still, Barris and Winley remain family and follow everything Davy says. Given Davy's current circumstances, that loyalty could prove extremely valuable. Once everyone sits, they note 6 years have passed since meeting. Barris and Winley were exiled to a remote region after Davy's coma. Only 8 years old then, they could merely obey their orders. Their mother also sent her eldest daughter into a foreign realm. That separation happened entirely because of the queen's political schemes. The neutral mistress ultimately failed to protect her remaining 2 children. Unknown to others, the queen supervises everything both royal mistresses do. Returning to their conversation, Barris and Winley mention seeing the king. Davy asks them about the king's health and general condition. Barris says their exhausted father remains healthy despite his heavy burdens. Winley then discovers Davy has not even met the king yet. The revelation shocks Winley, who cannot understand such neglect. Barris also mentions noticing the palace's unacceptable condition while arriving. Davy explains that certain people had been stealing his allocated money. He has already handled them and conditions should improve very soon. Even with that reassurance, Barris considers the entire situation intolerable. People shamelessly robbed Davy while he remained trapped in a coma. Barris intends to ask the king for immediate punishment. Davy stops him, insisting the entire matter has already been resolved. He plans to manage everything without troubling the king over minor concerns. More supporters keep appearing, leaving Davy questioning whether this is real. He briefly wonders if his hopeful mind merely invented their kindness. Setting those doubts aside, Davy expresses surprise at Winley's magical talent. He also asks whether Barris and Winley truly joined a performing troupe. Winley claims Barris would constantly get injured without her protection. According to Winley, Barris charges everywhere wildly without coordination. She declares someone that clumsy cannot qualify for any fencing competition. The insult genuinely irritates Barris, reigniting their noisy argument. Barris and Winley bicker openly again while Davy watches. After calming down, Winley gives Davy an important letter. She explains that the fencing competition held every 5 years approaches. This year's tournament will take place within the realm of Raltus. Reading carefully, Davy recognizes how serious and prestigious this competition is. Barris suggests Davy use this opportunity to finally travel abroad. Davy has spent his entire life confined within his home realm. Barris adds that he already discussed Davy's journey with the king. Winley quickly corrects him, claiming she personally made that request. The king has granted Davy direct authorization to attend the tournament. Winley describes Raltus as the city of water, promising breathtaking scenery. She declares that she will accompany Davy and refuses every objection. Faced with their enthusiasm, Davy cannot reject Barris and Winley's request. He agrees to travel together with Barris and Winley. Davy reflects that he has never visited any foreign realm. Enjoying such an event for once sounds surprisingly appealing. A little recreation might help him, and excitement steadily overtakes Davy. Inside the royal hall, Dwayne begins offering his observations. Dwayne notes that Barris will soon turn 14, practically entering adulthood. Dwayne says the princes are likely discussing the fencing tournament already. Dwayne reassures the king that Davy has matured considerably. Dwayne praises Davy's remarkable composure and sharp powers of observation. Dwayne openly marvels at how dramatically Davy has grown. The king says Dwayne's awareness alone confirms the painful situation. Davy gazes admiringly at a portrait of his mother. His delight also comes from his newly organized room. The place no longer resembles an abandoned, ghost-infested ruin. The new staff, guided by Dwayne, finishes everything remarkably quickly. The palace finally carries the dignified appearance it always deserved. Amy joins Davy in admiring the transformed decorations. She feels relieved that everything is finally returning to normal. Davy cannot remain and enjoy the room because travel awaits. Amy confirms she has packed every item Davy requested. Davy entrusts Amy with a bottle, then joins the twins. Together, Davy, Barris, and Winley depart for the Raltus Kingdom. The Continental Fencing Tournament has long commanded attention and immense influence. Alongside Barris, Davy receives permission to accompany the traveling party. Davy hopes Barris wins and thereby weakens Valentian's standing. For unknown reasons, the Queen has approved Barris's tournament participation. Perhaps she doubts his chances or secretly prepares something sinister. Davy resolves to watch closely for whatever scheme she attempts. At departure, the king appears publicly and blesses their journey. The gathered crowd erupts into cheers upon seeing their beloved king. Davy only sees the king, who is supposedly his father. This is Davy's first sight of him since awakening from the coma. For 6 months, the king has deliberately avoided his own son. The king asks Barris whether he feels confident. Barris answers yes, promising achievements worthy of representing their kingdom. The king wishes Barris a safe journey home. Without addressing anyone else, the king simply turns away. Before leaving, the king says he is glad to see Davy healthy. Winley quietly asks Davy whether he is alright. Inside, Davy answers yes and refuses to spend emotions on the king. A royal messenger proclaims the great importance of Barris's tournament entry. Because Barris's entry matters greatly, no curfew applies during the event. Davy finds the king strikingly different from how he remembers him. None of the king's former heroism or confidence remains visible. The king resembles an unkempt old man, drained by everyone and everything. The main party finally begins its journey toward the tournament. During the ride, Barris notices Davy's boredom and checks his comfort. Davy denies any problem, explaining that long journeys remain unfamiliar. Winley grabs the wine Davy prepared, hoping to enliven the trip. She praises its remarkable fragrance and asks where he found it. Davy explains that his mother left the wine behind for him. Her reason for doing so still remains a mystery. Barris wonders whether they should drink something so precious. Davy insists this celebration offers the perfect occasion. Winley remarks that Davy has changed considerably. She remembers how fiercely he protected everything his mother left. Davy says wine exists for drinking, not endless storage. He raises a toast and drinks to their happiness. Later, the party establishes camp beside the road. Barris says they will resume traveling the following morning. Their destination still lies roughly another day away. Barris has somehow calmed Winley down for the moment. Her excessive drinking has certainly made that task easier. Barris recalls Davy's old wish to experience camping someday. He points out that Davy is finally doing exactly that. Barris also shortened the departure procession for Davy's comfort. He expected a longer ceremony would exhaust his recovering brother. Davy thinks horses could carry them there much faster. The crawling pace steadily grinds against Davy's patience. He considers everything that changed and wonders what else shifted. Barris eventually withdraws and settles down to sleep. Amy approaches Davy and asks whether he wants some rest. Davy replies that the moon appears lovelier than usual tonight. He also senses stronger magic and intends to exploit it. Under the night sky, a moonlit stranger explains the moon's names. The moonlit stranger says the red moon bears the name Cyrus. The moonlit stranger identifies the blue moon as Krios. Cyrus carries the title, the one who brightens beginnings. Kreese is called the one who illuminates the end. Davy remarks that the moonlit stranger knows an impressive amount. The moonlit stranger dismisses it as knowledge even bigger children possess. He adds that he would rather discuss it with a woman. A second guard approaches and asks whom the moonlit stranger addresses. Startled, the moonlit stranger says he assumed the second guard stood beside him. He wonders whether he has actually been conversing with a ghost. Davy laughs silently, recognizing himself as the supposed ghost. His abilities make him invisible while he secretly observes the guards. Davy identifies 4 of the guards as elite, expert swordsmen. He figures they can probably handle any serious trouble for now. Even 20 attackers striking overnight should remain within their capabilities. From afar, Davy spots ninjas waiting for everyone to sleep. He suspects the queen arranged this carefully timed ambush. It could remove Davy and his entire group in one stroke. Staying hidden matters, since exposure would immediately invite suspicion. Still, Davy cannot simply stand aside and ignore the threat. Witnesses to Davy's true strength rarely survive long enough to speak. Despite lacking a proper weapon, Davy calmly prepares for battle. An old master's lesson resurfaces. Anything nearby can become a weapon. To Davy, battle has no rules governing what fighters may use. A weapon merely extends the body and rewards imagination. With sufficient creativity, even ordinary cloth can serve as a strange sword. Carrying only a stick, Davy springs directly into action. He mocks the ninjas, judging their professional skills embarrassingly poor. Curious, Davy asks whether the queen sent them. None of the attackers offers him any answer. Davy says they may leave if they refuse to respond. Yet he knows the queen's hounds will never surrender willingly. Davy attacks once more, forcing them into another frantic exchange. During combat, he questions what the queen gains from this slaughter. Killing 3 royals would shake the foundations of the whole kingdom. Even Linus would suffer serious complications from such an outcome. Perhaps Davy considers the queen is pursuing some different objective. His stick drops several enemies in rapid succession. Davy asks whether the remaining ninjas intend to flee. He generously offers them one opportunity to escape alive. They must tell the queen Prince Davy will ruin everything for amusement. Faced with his overwhelming strength, the surviving enemies choose to retreat. Davy refuses to let their withdrawal become quite so easy. He chases the fleeing ninjas and taunts their sluggish pace. Catching them, Davy eliminates each one within moments. He warns that slipping free from his grasp is never simple. Afterward, Davy again ridicules their miserable performance. Patience, he notes, should be a ninja's greatest virtue. Every ninja should recognize that famously repeated teaching. More ninjas suddenly emerge from their concealed positions. Davy declares that their hidden ambushes are useless against him. His senses detect one ninja escaping while the others delay pursuit. Davy dispatches the stragglers who remain behind to stall him. He calls them too useless to justify the effort spent. In truth, Davy prepares everything ahead of their arrival. Unless one reaches the continent's far side, no ninja escapes his reach. Davy unleashes an attack toward the ninja who escaped. The magical technique strikes the distant target with perfect accuracy. It possesses no shape, scent, or visible color. Upon contact, the technique instantly erases its victim's soul. Even Davy finds that method somewhat brutal. His masters taught him to finish every undertaking properly. They also demanded no mercy toward anyone threatening his life. Thus, flawless elimination seems the most fitting conclusion for these enemies. Better still, nobody witnesses Davy displaying his power. Nothing from the massacre can consequently be connected to him. Later, Shirley reports the failed attack directly to the queen. Every candle Shirley lit for her students' lives has gone dark. The queen understands that the entire group has been annihilated. She immediately asks what became of their intended targets. Shirley answers that they likely just reached the kingdom of Raltus. Fury erupts as the queen demands an explanation for Shirley's failure. Their targets were merely 3 children accompanied by 5 knights. She scorns the guild's supposedly formidable reputation. Its operatives failed their mission and lost 20 members. Shirley says they are still investigating exactly what happened. Every available clue suggests Prince Davy received help from an accomplice. The queen scoffs, asking who would ever help that brat. She orders Shirley to uncover the mysterious helper's identity. The queen wants that person taught what daring against her brings. The queen warns Shirley that no operative may cross her path. She reminds Shirley that the guild earned her trust by never failing. If another mistake occurs, the queen will cancel their contract. Using her authority, she will dismantle Shirley's guild entirely. Winley spots the Water Kingdom and quickly alerts Davy. Davy feels pleased because they have finally reached their destination. He knows the Water Kingdom is merely a small city-state. Its ancient buildings and ruins rank among the continent's most beautiful sights. Davy takes in the scenery as soon as they arrive. Barris notices Davy's expression and understands that he feels delighted. Davy confirms it since sword-fighting competitions are held here. A massive stadium serves as an arena for brutal battles. Fighters and monsters regularly struggle there to survive. Winley explains that 8 contestants represent their respective countries this time. Davy quickly sees the contest as a display of national pride. Every competitor must be younger than 20 years old. That age limit makes this a newcomers contest, not veterans territory. Winley adds that one kingdom sent an idiot as its representative. Barris asks whether she should encourage him instead of insulting him. Davy judges Barris to possess intermediate-level swordsmanship. His ability sits just beneath a master swordsman's rank. For someone his age, that achievement impresses Davy. Winley then reveals another kingdom's representative is the famous Sword Princess. Davy never knew this and sees how much changed during his coma. He knows the Sword Princess is that kingdom's only princess. 9 other royal children are princes, while she alone is female. The crown prince favors her above everyone else. Barris says her reputation comes from more than swordsmanship. The Sword Princess also wields a sacred blade. Winley explains that the weapon is the sword god's favorite. It is a masterpiece that requires 1,000 days of forging. Davy realizes he has not heard that sword's name for years. Harris, the sword god, once teaches Davy at the temple. Though lazy, Harris possesses remarkable ability and constantly praises his sword. Harris often leaves his personal mark wherever he travels. Even so, the memory gives Davy an unsettling feeling. A young woman walks past Davy, suddenly catching his attention. When asked about stopping, the young woman dismisses it as unimportant. Later, Davy discusses the sacred sword with his siblings. He recalls that its spirit supposedly comes from the creator's love. That divine origin makes the sword's title entirely fitting. Davy wonders why it chooses the Sword Princess after centuries. Barris mentions one more reason behind the Sword Princess's fame. He claims she ranks among the continent's 5 most extraordinary beauties. Davy still doubts beauty, explains why the sword selects her. After dinner, Davy wears the formal outfit Amy prepares. He asks whether Amy has something less elaborate available. Amy replies that this is the simplest clothing she can find. Even outside the competition, Davy remains a prince with duties. His appearance must reflect his position at all times. The festival night arrives, and the twins finish preparing. Davy compliments Winley's appearance as they get ready. Barris tells him to stop, or Winley might believe him. Davy receives a sharp stomp against his foot for that remark. Winley then pulls Davy toward the dance floor. She invites Davy to join her for a dance. Another princess receives a dance invitation during the same ball. The noise makes the princess feel increasingly uncomfortable. Her companion says the gathering helps the younger generation meet. He encourages the princess to relax and enjoy the occasion. The companion asks how her earlier village visit went. She answers that the barbaric place was not entirely terrible. The nobles receive a banquet and ball before the competition begins. These events give them opportunities to socialize with one another. Davy cares only about the competition and studies the gathered guests. Most attendees are young because contestants must remain under 20. Chaperones still attend the event, just as Davy does. Barris attracts more attention than anyone else in the room. Several girls surround Barris even though he makes no effort. Davy suspects Barris's swordsmanship explains much of that popularity. Still, Davy finds it unusual seeing Barris mingle so freely. Winley also draws plenty of attention from the surrounding guests. Davy keeps his distance while evaluating possible opponents. Barris eventually seeks help escaping the crowd around him. When Barris looks toward his siblings, they have disappeared. Davy and Winley have gone dancing, leaving Barris alone. Davy hopes Barris enjoys his youth without ruining the experience. Winley admits she never expected to dance with Davy someday. She says Davy has entered the social hierarchy without noticing. That achievement still leaves Winley somewhat dissatisfied. Winley feels dissatisfied, despite Davy having just entered the social hierarchy. She says Davy could compete too if his circumstances were different. After all, Winley believes Davy possesses considerable talent with swords. Davy dismisses her praise, insisting skill alone cannot reach an expert's level. Winley argues talent means nothing when someone refuses to work hard. Davy remains uninterested, preferring a quiet life over public attention. Hearing that, Winley says Davy sounds like a grumpy old man. Their conversation ends when an unfamiliar man approaches and addresses Winley. He claims this gathering is the perfect place to reunite with Princess Winley. Davy studies the stranger, immediately wondering how he knows Winley. Winley looks visibly uncomfortable with the man's sudden arrival. The stranger shoves Davy aside and requests Winley's private company. Winley identifies him as Prince Valentian and refuses his request. She explains that her conversation with Davy deserves her attention first. Though displeased, Valentian formally introduces himself as the 7th prince. He belongs to a powerful kingdom ruled by his royal family. Davy introduces himself as Davy Alrone in return. Valentian begins speaking, but Davy says he only accompanies his siblings. Valentian politely wishes Davy an enjoyable stay and turns back. He tells Winley he wants victory to honor her extraordinary beauty. Valentian then asks Winley to watch him during his arena matches. Winley calls his confidence insulting toward every other competitor. She says Valentian claims victory before even entering the competition. Valentian replies that speaking the truth cannot possibly be rude. Annoyed, Winley mentions her twin brother will also compete. She says Valentian's boasting reveals how badly he underestimates opponents. Winley leaves the prince behind and withdraws alongside Davy. Davy recognizes that Winley can defend herself without his protection. Still, Davy expects the arrogant prince to continue causing trouble. Valentian rises and reaches for Winley's arm as they leave. Davy decides his patience has lasted long enough. He unbalances Valentian and strips away the prince's weapon instantly. Valentian stands frozen, unable to react to the sudden defeat. Davy warns Valentian never to grab his sister that way. He adds that Valentian is fortunate no bones were broken. That mercy leaves Valentian healthy enough to enter the tournament. Instead of calming down, Valentian becomes even more enraged. He removes a glove and hurls it straight at Davy's face. The gesture challenges Davy to settle their dispute through a duel. Winley objects, saying Valentian has exceeded every reasonable boundary. Valentian insists the challenge protects his honor as a knight. Ileana interrupts, criticizing the commotion from someone claiming honor. She says she has watched Valentian's conduct from the beginning. Ileana asks whether Valentian can reclaim something he never possessed. Davy recognizes Ileana immediately and finds her presence strangely familiar. Harris, the sword god, was an ancient hero and empire founder. In time that empire rose to stand among the continent Big Three. Everyone knows Harris first wielded the legendary Holy Sword. Harris also created a claymore technique that later became lost. Stories claim its masters could unleash tsunamis with one sword stroke. Davy considers that claim excessive even for Harris. Looking at Ileana, Davy notices her striking resemblance to Harris. Ileana is the Emperor's treasured princess from that powerful empire. Davy still cannot dismiss how closely she mirrors the sword hero. Harris was undeniably handsome, but he was always a man. Davy decides Harris could never have altered himself into a woman. Ileana approaches and asks Davy what he just said. Davy apologizes, explaining that he spoke while thinking aloud. He admits his assumption was mistaken and asks Ileana to overlook it. Ileana turns her attention toward Valentian and reprimands him. Davy privately considers Ileana's appearance exceptionally beautiful. Valentian receives no such praise from Davy. Davy considers the prince unattractive, arrogant, and lacking any charm. Ileana says an honorable knight should apologize to everyone he offended. Valentian's expression makes clear that no apology is coming. Davy thinks someone so proud would never surrender easily. Davy then accepts the duel Valentian originally demanded. Ileana asks whether Davy truly intends to fight him. She calls the confrontation pointless and says Davy need not accept. Davy answers that the choice belongs to him. If Valentian still wants the duel, Davy accepts it immediately. Davy picks up a wooden sword, remembering his last use. Barris warns that Valentian competes in tournaments despite Davy's strength. Davy knows this, then reassures his visibly troubled siblings. Valentian mocks Davy's amateurish swordplay and the worry troubling his siblings. He demands surrender, promising mercy if Davy begs on his knees. Barris angrily defends Davy, but Davy stops him mid-argument. Davy says deeds carry more weight than spoken boasts. Valentian insists he cannot lose this match. He predicts Davy will kneel and admit Valentian's superiority. Davy accepts, warning Valentian not to retreat after losing. Davy considers how to fight without exposing his actual ability. Everyone sees Davy as a weak prince recently recovered from coma. He refuses to reveal his true strength during this skirmish. The duel begins, and Valentian waits for Davy's opening move. Valentian mistakes Davy's stillness for fear of attacking first. Davy hears that assumption and suddenly finds an amusing answer. He rushes forward with enough force to startle Valentian. Davy deliberately smashes the ground and releases the wooden sword. The falling weapon then catches Valentian squarely across the face. Valentian absorbs the heavy impact as Davy feigns careless fingers. The supposed accident follows Davy's plan from the beginning. Davy drops Valentian without displaying his real strength. Valentian feels disgraced because the winning blow appears accidental. Onlookers share that judgment and ridicule his embarrassing defeat. Enraged, Valentian rises and vows to finish Davy permanently. Davy says better training comes first, mocking Valentian's feeble technique. Valentian attacks with every ounce of effort he possesses. None of Valentian's strikes connects, while Davy remains effortlessly composed. Sensing defeat near, Valentian despairs over his crushing disadvantage. His frustrated attack ends with Davy striking him down again. The crowd watches Valentian collapse at his opponent's feet. Humiliation follows defeat as Davy and witnesses taunt him repeatedly. Valentian orders everyone silent, unable to endure their nonsense. Davy sees more than a defeated rival before the gathered crowd. The supposedly weak prince has publicly humiliated Valentian. Davy credits his superior fencing to the drunken stance. This style deceives opponents by imitating someone who cannot fight properly. Its creator was the Pantheon's greatest drunk among heroic legends. Another creator, the Wicked Swordsman, sought the most vile fencing style. Davy learns its history after meeting the drunken master at the temple. The drunken master proudly claims the invention while admitting its malice. The master knows exactly how malicious the technique can become. Davy has heard it should target only someone deserving. Even its creators consider the technique taboo from the start. Its taboo comes from manipulation and deception, not sharpness or strength. This style exists neither for defense nor ordinary offense. Instead, it humiliates an opponent completely before a watching audience. It targets openings during attacks and delivers fatal blows. That purpose makes the technique exceptionally effective against aggressive opponents. Its victim becomes like a mouse trapped inside a maze. More spectators worsen the torment suffered by the technique's target. Valentian now experiences exactly that public punishment. After prolonged teasing, Davy wonders whether luck or incompetence explains everything. He also finds the style deeply entertaining and perfectly suited. Davy considers it ideal for anyone seeking enjoyment during combat. Valentian, unlike Davy, finds nothing entertaining about the exchange. Furious, Valentian unleashes his powers to erase Davy from existence. The match supervisor calls it friendly training and questions Valentian's sanity. With no alternative, Davy knows escaping this attack cannot be blamed on luck. He also understands that everyone has watched him closely since the duel began. Valentian seizes his opening and rushes toward Davy with savage force. His strike misses again when Davy slips away at the last instant. Davy catches Valentian off balance and sends him crashing onto the ground. The arrogant prince finally recognizes Davy's overwhelming superiority in the duel. Davy immediately downplays everything, pretending luck caused Valentian's disarmament. He even acts as though an accidental stumble created the opening. The crowd turns against Valentian, sealing Davy's victory despite the act. Spectators question whether Valentian has always been this pathetic in public. They also wonder whether Davy is truly the prince recently awakened from coma. Davy claims he can barely grip his sword, leaving him unsteady. According to Davy, fortune simply happened to favor him during combat. Winley jokes that her brother must have spent all his luck today. Ileana sees no entertainment in the spectacle and considers the whole thing foolish. She turns away from the arena and leaves without giving Davy another glance. Davy watches her go and decides Ileana possesses an exceptionally cold personality. Davy's brothers later reprimand him for acting irresponsibly and causing public chaos. Davy answers that everything ended safely, making further worry pointless. His elder brother warns that Valentian's explosive temper could have caused a death. The twins had previously faced Valentian and personally witnessed his swordsmanship. Valentian later pursued Winley, though he likely will not approach her again. Davy's younger brother warns him never to repeat such reckless behavior. Luck cannot be trusted to protect Davy every time, he insists. Davy grips his younger brother's hand and squeezes it firmly. After displaying his strength, Davy tells him to stop treating him like an invalid. Davy promises to follow the warning and avoid unnecessary trouble. He privately expects his brothers to discover his true strength eventually. Because of that, Davy decides hiding his abilities from them makes little sense. Winley feels relieved, knowing Davy can defend himself without assistance. She also notes that Valentian was distracted while struggling with his sword's weight. Even Davy finds Valentian's humiliating defeat more severe than expected. Valentian remains enraged and smashes objects throughout his private chambers. His servants scramble around him, desperately trying to calm his temper. Valentian declares himself the dynasty's next prince and rejects public humiliation. He wants the nobles to see him as radiant and exceptionally gifted. Few things remain beyond Valentian's reach, since nearly everything seems accessible. That confidence led Valentian to fall in love with Winley. He selected Winley as his future wife because of her beauty. Her brother's medium-level swordsmanship also promised Valentian a useful subordinate. The marriage would bring that swordsman directly under Valentian's command. Valentian had already arranged the matter with the queen. He had mapped out the entire plan, leaving success seemingly guaranteed. Davy's arrival becomes the obstacle that wrecks Valentian's carefully built credibility. His frustration intensifies as every broken object fails to satisfy his anger. Valentian develops an immense desire to eliminate Davy for shaming him. A woman's voice suddenly asks whether elimination is truly his wish. Startled by the unseen speaker, Valentian demands to know her identity. A feminine presence appears and offers to fulfill Valentian's desire. Still confused, Valentian again asks whom he is addressing. The woman introduces herself as Sherio and orders him to remember it. Sherio steps closer and asks Valentian to place his trust in her. Only that trust, she claims, will allow him to obtain his wish. The tournament day eventually arrives, bringing the next major match. Amy informs Davy that his brother is preparing to enter the arena. Davy appears excited, though the upcoming fight is not his focus. He admits that he still has a long road ahead. Amy asks what Davy means by that troubling remark. Davy says he was merely thinking aloud and declares himself ready. Other concerns can wait, so Davy prepares to leave. His brother is already positioned inside the arena for combat. Winley watches from the stands as the entire arena anticipates the match. Valentian stands opposite Davy's brother, determined not to lose again. Davy enters the arena and feels the crowd's extraordinary energy. The crowd's energy inside the arena feels incredible. Davy feels grateful that Barris's match takes place that afternoon. He neither wants the morning fights nor feels healthy enough. After rejoining Davy, Winley asks whether he feels any better. Davy prefers keeping the details of his condition to himself. He formed a mana circle while still remarkably young. That achievement lets Davy overpower opponents far stronger than himself. Yet his body's transformation remains unfinished despite his immense strength. Overusing his abilities sometimes leaves Davy suffering from severe indigestion. At this rate, sacred power may become his stomach medicine. Barris soon enters the arena beneath thunderous cheers. Davy finally notices just how popular Barris has become. Until then, Davy has no idea whom Barris will face. Valentian's entrance immediately strikes Davy as deeply ironic. The same rival now confronts two important figures from their kingdom. Davy never expected this particular duel to happen so soon. The judge explains that both contestants carry deliberately blunted swords. Using mana to injure or threaten someone remains strictly forbidden. Watching Barris, Davy admits the crowd's judgment carries serious weight. Winley fears Barris might get hurt by becoming overly excited. Davy assures her that Barris is hardly an inexperienced fighter. He sees no reason to fear for Barris's immediate safety. Nothing terrible should happen during such a controlled match. The judge calls both fighters forward into their starting positions. Several mages then raise a magical barrier around the arena. Valentian stays silent, keeping his full attention on Barris. Barris likewise approaches the coming battle with absolute seriousness. Once authorized, both fighters charge directly toward each other. Their earlier duel taught Davy that Valentian's swordplay remains unpredictable. Barris instead relies upon strength and crushingly powerful strikes. Comparing their styles, Davy gives Barris the stronger winning chance. Valentian seemingly cannot endure many of Barris's punishing attacks. The first collision immediately proves Davy's prediction wrong. Rather than evading, Valentian directly blocks Barris's tremendous blow. His choice defies everything the spectators expected from him. Some spectators decide the duel may become surprisingly entertaining. Davy remembers Valentian behaving nothing like this during their fight. Nobody can gain such physical mastery within a single night. Even exceptional talent still requires time to develop those abilities. Davy expects Valentian's limits to emerge under Barris's continued assault. Eventually, exhaustion should overwhelm Valentian and break his defense. Despite analyzing everything calmly, Davy senses something deeply wrong. Winley also says Barris has never moved this quickly before. Seeing Barris's growth makes Winley resolve to train even harder. Davy recognizes the same remarkable improvement in Barris's movements. Since childhood, Barris has always dreamed of becoming a knight. 6 years later, Davy can finally witness Barris's tremendous progress. That evolution comes from Barris dedicating himself fully to training. Valentian's abilities, by contrast, remain largely unknown to Davy. His radically different fighting style resembles another person entirely. Davy has experienced this unsettling sensation once before. It feels like an unseen danger is rapidly approaching. Noticing Davy's discomfort, Winley asks whether something is wrong. Inside the barrier, Barris carefully studies Valentian's strange behavior. He never expected Valentian to counter his longsword so effectively. Barris respects Valentian's persistence despite those peculiar movements. That respect does not allow Barris to lower his guard. Instead of waiting, Barris decides to finish everything immediately. He gathers his strength and prepares his most powerful strike. As Barris attacks, Valentian deliberately remains rooted in place. Valentian simply watches the blade rush dangerously near his face. Barris cannot understand why Valentian would invite such an attack. At the final instant, Barris forces his sword away. Injuring Valentian would bring punishment from the competition's organizers. Barris attempts another strike designed to avoid causing injury. Yet his restraint fits perfectly into Valentian's hidden strategy. Valentian suddenly channels mana through his sword ahead of Barris's attack. Though expressly forbidden, that mana places Barris's life in danger. The previous night, Barris trains relentlessly to avoid losing. Davy eventually approaches, claiming Barris's practice is keeping him awake. He mentions Winley already sleeps and questions Barris's continued wakefulness. Barris admits sleep eludes him, prompting this late practice session. He also confesses uncertainty about the approaching match. Despite those doubts, Barris still firmly believes he will win. Davy encourages Barris, promising that defeat will not happen. According to Davy, Barris has absolutely no reason for concern. Studying Barris's organized mana flow reveals something unusually gentle. The energy circulates through Barris with remarkable smoothness. Davy briefly considers strengthening Barris with an outside boost. Discovery would cause a scandal, but Davy accepts that risk. He asks Barris to pause, pointing out his visible tension. Davy then offers to loosen Barris's shoulders with a massage. Barris accepts, and Davy begins the offered shoulder massage. Davy massages Barris's shoulders, then channels some of his own mana into him. He warns Barris that the transfer will cause some pain. Barris instantly feels as though his entire body has been struck by lightning. Davy suspects staying awake all night rather than sleeping caused that reaction. He advises Barris to rest more, then studies the technique's effect. The method awakens the recipient's mana, triggering a chain reaction throughout their body. That reaction forces a much greater mana flow through every part of them. Despite its simple appearance, the technique demands an experienced practitioner. Most places forbid using it, making Davy's knowledge especially dangerous. Davy recalls hearing about one place where the technique remains legal. That same place supposedly provides exceptionally good massages as well. When the treatment ends, Davy speaks a mysterious magical word. Barris asks which language he used, but Davy continues without explaining. The sudden mana surge overwhelms Barris, leaving him collapsed tossed on the floor. Davy knows this will not directly improve Barris's coming battle. Still, the treatment should help Barris evolve much faster. Davy cannot leave Barris sleeping on the floor, regardless of its security. Barris complains that Davy should treat him more kindly. He insists Davy would carry Winley on his back if she were involved. Davy denies that claim, then orders Barris to sleep immediately. He threatens an even harsher massage if Barris refuses. Barris wastes no time, rushing to his room with complete satisfaction. His brother is now safer, so Davy also retires for the night. During the match, Valentian's magic strikes Barris without warning. The protective shield Davy gave Barris activates and shields him. It violently knocks Valentian's sword away, ending the attempted attack. The spectators notice that Valentian's weapon is far from ordinary. They also spot the mana shield surrounding Barris. Winley celebrates from the VIP box as Barris survives his opponent. When she looks beside herself, Davy's seat is empty. Inside the arena, Barris remains injured despite the shield's protection. The mages immediately stop the match and remove Valentian. Valentian is disqualified for breaking the rules and receives punishment. The organizers warn that his actions could ignite war between nations. They promptly send an official notification to Rultis. The anxious servant begs Valentian to speak and stop the proceedings. Valentian grabs the servant's neck instead of answering. With grotesque strength, he bursts the servant's head before everyone. The horrified spectators stare in disbelief at the public execution. No one expected a prince to kill his own servant openly. They decide Valentian has lost his mind, and they are not mistaken. Since encountering the enemy, Valentian has never acted normally again. The arena erupts into madness, sending frightened spectators toward the exits. Valentian is deranged and nearing a total mental collapse. The organizers know containment is necessary, yet controlling him seems impossible. Several mages attack the mad prince, but their spells accomplish nothing. Valentian's mind and body have visibly changed beyond recognitions. His overwhelming strength surpasses anything the mages can manage. They begin evacuating the spectators while the arena's magical barrier holds. Davy steps toward his younger brother and announces that the match has ended. He praises Barris for fighting exceptionally well. Barris proudly mentions creating a mana barrier during the attack. Davy smiles, knowing such barriers are advanced defensive mana abilities. A barrier protects its creator from harm, making Barris's achievement remarkable. Davy placed the shield as insurance, but Barris's growth saved him. At 14, Barris has achieved something worthy of anyone's pride. His immaturity remains obvious, yet his potential is unmistakable. Davy expected tears and complaints about the pain, but Barris surprises him. He tells Barris he has done enough and should rest now. Barris leaves the arena carried on a stretcher. Across the arena, Valentian's rampage continues to spread dangerous chaos. Davy knows he must resolve the crisis himself. The mages struggle to restrain Valentian, even with repeated magical attacks. They evacuate more people while the protective barrier remains intact. Davy suddenly appears inside the arena, startling the mages already gathered. They warn Davy not to approach because Valentian is too powerful. Winley also grows anxious after seeing Davy standing inside the arena. She never even saw him move into position. Davy nevertheless intends to end the disturbance. He detects an infection inside Valentian and studies its influence. The enemy has evidently taken firm control of Valentian's body. Davy begins considering the most effective way to deal with him. Valentian's fury intensifies the instant he notices Davy. He charges toward Davy as the mages attempt to stop him. Yet the mages cannot contain their frenzied opponent. Valentian gains an unobstructed path straight toward Davy. Suddenly, Winley enters the arena, visibly worried about her brother. Her unexpected arrival catches Davy entirely off guard. Winley's involvement had never been part of Davy's plan. Above all, Davy wanted his younger sister kept safely away. Winley is not the only unexpected arrival, though. Ileana rushes in next and shoves Davy away from Valentian. This intervention surprises Davy just as much as Winley's appearance. Until now, nobody had even spotted Ileana inside the arena. She seems to have emerged from absolutely nowhere. Her determined expression also reveals an intention to eliminate Valentian. Valentian has lost rational thought and follows only violent instincts. Ileana, unlike Valentian, remains fully aware of her actions. She unleashes the Great Mountain Divider directly against Valentian. The powerful impact launches Valentian hurtling through the arena. Davy watches in genuine amazement at Ileana's strength. This is Davy's first time witnessing Ileana fight seriously. After landing that blow, Ileana assumes the danger has passed. Instead, Valentian shocks her by remaining firmly on his feet. Her unusually powerful strike has barely inflicted any serious damage. Worse still, Valentian now appears even more desperate for blood. Ileana immediately attacks again, striking Valentian from multiple directions. Her relentless barrage aims to incapacitate Valentian permanently. She continuously alternates precise blade work with brutal close combat. Since Valentian withstands each blow, Ileana pours everything into attacking. Her astonishing intensity leaves several watching spectators utterly speechless. Eventually, Ileana believes her relentless assault has finally succeeded. Valentian lies motionless, apparently unconscious after enduring during her barrage. Ileana orders the guards to arrest Valentian for his actions. Winley tugs Davy away, urging him to leave everything to Ileana. Davy privately admires Ileana's tremendous energy and exceptional swordsmanship. Her abilities clearly surpass those of most other swordsmen. Ileana then notices an important detail everyone else overlooked. She suddenly identifies Valentian as a vampire and approaches him. Davy cannot understand what led Ileana toward that conclusion. Despite being chained, Valentian remains mobile and deliberately injures himself. Watching from afar, Davy still perceives exactly what Valentian is doing. Ileana attempts to intervene, but cannot reach Valentian quickly enough. Using his spilled blood, Valentian conjures the terrifying blood tide. Everyone nearest the spreading attack collapses before anybody else. Inside the bloody mist, Davy desperately shields Winley. Winley feels sick, yet worries about Davy instead of herself. Davy reassures his concerned sister that everything will be fine. Rising from the ground, Davy asks Winley to rest briefly. He promises everything will resemble a nightmare once she awakens. Davy then places Winley into a magically induced sleep. With Winley unconscious, Davy decides he must finally take action. Otherwise, the necromantic mana filling the air could rapidly worsen everything. Only Davy properly understands the strange phenomenon unfolding around them. He believes connected mana eventually develops an individual personality. Davy possesses 3 distinct powers, each behaving entirely differently. Necromantic mana behaves like a psychopath, making it brutally effective. Regular mana acts hostile and contrary, while hiding a cooperative nature. Though difficult initially, it follows the user's will after developing trust. Holy Power remains the most stubborn of Davy's 3 abilities. It refuses everyone's commands and also possesses an extremely lazy temperament. Without a major disturbance, Holy Power simply refuses to manifest. The current disaster finally creates enough commotion to awaken it. Davy receives Radiant Blessing, a 4th level form of holy magic. With Winley temporarily protected, Davy gains room to think carefully. He concludes Valentian activated Blood Tide across the entire surrounding area. Blood Tide drains life essence from every nearby living being. Unfortunately, Davy lacks enough power to rescue everyone inside the arena. Still, he feels relieved that Barris had already departed earlier. Believing nobody remains watching, Davy can reveal his abilities without concern. He can now handle the crisis calmly instead of concealing himself. To Davy's surprise, Ileana remains awake and manages to rise. A proud warrior like Ileana would never surrender so easily. Davy considers her continued consciousness the worst possible development. He never imagined anyone else could withstand Blood Tide while remaining conscious. Seeing Ileana standing explains why she owns the Divine Sword. Even exhausted, Ileana looks strikingly beautiful in Davy's eyes. Davy approaches Ileana and gently places his hands upon her shoulders. Ileana flinches slightly the instant Davy touches her. Concerned, Davy asks Ileana whether she is feeling alright. Despite their dangerous circumstances, Ileana keeps Davy at arm's length. Valentian remains loose, while Davy only wants to help her. Noticing her resistance, Davy suggests leaving if she feels capable. Instead, Ileana grabs Davy's arm and questions his unaffected condition. Her direct question leaves Davy feeling thoroughly cornered. Davy had anticipated that Ileana might eventually become suspicious. Yet he never expects Ileana to confront him about it this quickly. Cornered, Davy feigns ignorance and claims the mist inexplicably spared him. Ileana's face makes her disbelief in that flimsy excuse painfully obvious. Privately, Davy thinks she should simply thank him for surviving. Taking command, Ileana orders Davy outside and claims the remaining fight. She insists this danger exceeds him, since his previous victory was luck. That same luck, she warns, cannot rescue him against Valentian. To Ileana, Davy remains a helpless prince, while she stands apart. She possesses both power and knowledge beyond anything she credits him with. Ancient records call these creatures blood demons, but Ileana knows they are vampires. She assumes Davy has heard of them and again dismisses luck. Anyone unable to sense or control mana would be shredded within seconds. Davy notes Valentian will never allow anyone to simply leave. Undeterred, Ileana promises to cover Davy's escape herself. Her confidence radiates strongly, yet Davy notices an unfamiliar emotional edge. Unlike their duel, she acts like Valentian is her greatest enemy. Years earlier, young Ileana awakens one night and searches for her mother. She finds her mother drinking blood directly from another person's body. Despite her youth, Ileana immediately understands that her mother is a vampire. The horrifying sight remains carved into Ileana's memory forever afterward. Facing Valentian now, Ileana vows every surviving vampire must die. She will pursue that purpose for as long as she lives. As Ileana prepares to strike, Davy yanks her backward by the hair. He apologizes, then bluntly orders her to stay out of his business. Davy still cannot explain why vampires inspire such obsession within Ilyana, yet protecting his disguise no longer matters, so Davy readies himself. Ilyana's judgment is wrong, because Davy possesses extensive knowledge about vampires. His training taught him enough that he likely understands them better than Ilyana. Multiple previous encounters also gave Davy considerable practical experience fighting them. Confronting one more vampire now feels almost boring to him. While evading Valentian's attacks, Davy remarks he seems stupider than during their duel. Defense and evasions are not Davy's only intentions in this confrontation. He also plans to strike back and eliminate Valentian. Davy drives a crushing blow straight into Valentian's heart. The technique applies celestial demonic arts through a demonic blood explosion. The strike's impact tears through Valentian and hurls him across the arena. Ilyana stares, amazed that someone she considered weak unleashed such power. Watching the aftermath, she cannot understand what kind of attack Davy used. The sheer display makes Ilyana question whether such strength is humanly possible. Until now, she considered Davy ordinary and entirely unable to perceive mana. Yet she personally watched him smash a statue while attacking Valentian. Even trained knights and mages would struggle to reproduce that destruction. Ilyana knows she could never match it, even with her sword. Doubt creeps in about Davy being merely a prince recently awakened from a coma. Davy offers Ilyana his hand, but she recoils from him fearfully. Despite her reaction, Davy keeps his hand extended and silently insists. Assuming he means to help her rise, Ilyana accepts his apparent kindness. Just as their hands near, Davy asks to borrow Ilyana's sword. Mortified, Ilyana discovers his gesture carried no chivalrous intention whatsoever. She explains her sword broke during her first attempt to strike Valentian. Davy clarifies that he means the sword hanging from her necklace. Facing Valentian, he says, requires a weapon of exceptional durability. Davy then tries persuading the divine sword to grant him its power. He knows the celestial blacksmith spent an entire lifetime forging countless weapons. Those creations include the legendary blade once responsible for saving the world. Even shattered weapons became priceless treasures after passing through the blacksmith's hands. Unsurprisingly, the celestial blacksmith's fame eventually spread throughout the whole continent. 12 notorious swords especially lie scattered across the lands as national treasures. Among those 12, the White Guardian sword remains the celestial blacksmith's favorite. Although belonging to the 12, the White Guardian sword stands above its siblings. The celestial blacksmith forged it specifically for his close friend Harris. Known as the god of swordsmanship, Harris poured his life force inside. That sacrifice gave the weapon an ego and the power to choose consciously. Its capacity for independent judgment fascinates many who hear about the weapon. Davy knows the sword's true nature because he once met Harris. Knowing Harris's personality, Davy expects the weapon to resist any wielder. The sword immediately demands to know who Davy thinks he is. Its indignant reaction confirms every suspicion Davy already held. Seeing its shrunken state, Davy asks whether screaming madly is its only talent. He adds that cooperation would make their partnership far more pleasant. Ilyana approaches Davy and firmly asks him to return her sword. Davy warns that Ilyana will suffer unless the sword fights beside him. Even without its power, Ilyana remains steady within the surrounding fog. Her resilience impresses Davy and reveals just how strong she truly is. Still, Davy judges the hidden foe far beyond Ilyana's capabilities. She needs to acknowledge those limits instead of attempting something reckless. Despite Ilyana's condition, the stubborn sword still refuses to assist. Davy decides that only the difficult method remains available. He forcibly invokes the weapon's power, restoring its magnificent true form. Davy remarks that the revealed blade matches every rumor surrounding it. Astonished, the sword demands an explanation for Davy's impossible feat. Davy requests its strength during battle and promises to handle everything else. Davy merges his abilities with the divine blade and summons lightning downward. He challenges the hidden foe to stop cowering out of sight. A rift appears ahead and Davy orders the hidden foe to emerge. Only a tiny bat flies toward him, leaving Davy openly unimpressed. He expected far more from a vampire belonging to an advanced species. The bat transforms into Shirley, now displaying her female vampiric form. Davy greets her as Miss Maid and says he already knows her. He confidently identifies Shirley as the queen's servant. Shirley thought someone supported the prince after her subordinates fell. Seeing Davy alone, she understands he defeated them without assistance. Davy sarcastically praises his own brilliance and invites Shirley closer. He says constant upward staring has become unbearably tiresome. Davy warns that lingering overhead might expose more than Shirley intends. These provocative remarks make Shirley seethe in her vampiric form. That rising anger is precisely the reaction Davy intends to provoke. Davy follows his taunts by launching an attack with the divine sword. Shirley warns warns that the queen accepts no responsibility if Davy causes catastrophe. Relations with the Raltus kingdom could collapse, igniting wars between kingdoms. Her revealed form tells Davy that Shirley feels certain of victory. Davy flatly declares that Shirley's scheme will never succeed. His brazen confidence grates on Shirley even more. Finally losing restraint, Shirley launches herself against Davy. She unleashes spreading vampiric magic that annihilates everything it touches. Davy evades the destruction and casually tells Shirley to calm down. His advice produces exactly the opposite response from her. Shirley retaliates by hurling a storm of spikes toward Davy. Davy leaps away from his pillar but finds spikes already there. The nearest projectiles miss him by only a narrow margin. Falling rapidly, Davy twists past as many spikes as possible. Once grounded, Davy handles his blade with a master swordsman's precision. Davy then deflects the remaining assault cleanly with the sword. Shirley admits Davy surpasses her expectations, but calls him merely human. Davy advises Shirley against hating humans quite so fiercely. After all, the very person Shirley serves is human. Relentless needling finally exhausts every scrap of Shirley's patience. Davy considers such irritability a defining quality among vampire lords. Those lords are every bit as aggravating as they are powerful. Vampires also rank among the mightiest species in existence. They enter life with immense strength and become leaders after awakening. Without the great elf, their natural enemy, vampires would be unbeatable. A memory shows Harris describing his habit of provoking vampires before striking. That tactic unsettles his opponents and makes them easier to manage. Harris also explains that vampires possess extraordinary pride. The loftier their rank, the easier their egos are to wound. In the present, Davy muses over the Empire's immense faith in Harris. He wonders how its people would react upon learning Harris's true nature. Davy refocuses and slips past several more attacks from Shirley. He answers with a sharp sword strike of his own. Shirley blocks the counterattack by raising a magical shield. This barrier is no ordinary defensive spell. Instead, Shirley has formed a shield entirely from blood. The sword identifies Shirley as a probable countess, despite her modest rank. Her pureblood heritage still lets her challenge even a lord. Hearing this, Davy declares they must defeat Shirley immediately. The sword doubts whether Davy can fulfill such a bold declaration. Davy answers yes and asks whether the sword itself feels afraid. An attack cuts off any reply from the sword. Shirley warns that people feigning calm under pressure always share one fate. She notes the girl entrusted with the divine sword was powerful, yet fainted. Shirley plans to defeat Davy while leaving him barely intact. His body must prove that she performed her assignment efficiently. She attacks again, expecting to overwhelm Davy without much resistance. Davy has no intention of granting his enemy an effortless victory. Instead of waiting for impact, he charges directly toward Shirley. Seeing this charge, Shirley calls it utter stupidity and strikes again. Davy slips around the attack and swiftly appears behind Shirley. Once behind her, Davy mocks Shirley's profound ignorance of swordsmanship. In his view, true swordsmanship reaches far beyond repeated swings. Drawing upon all his training, Davy channels the sword's own technique. Despair seizes Shirley when she understands that evasion is impossible. The blow lands squarely, launching her downward like a blazing celestial fragment. She smashes into the ground with terrifying speed and overwhelming force. The impact transforms the scenery so drastically that even Davy marvels. The sword starts discussing its past, but Davy immediately interrupts. Thousands of years have passed since the sword was first created. Davy refuses to sit through its entire ancient history. He would rather stop talking and bring this battle to an end. Davy doubts the sword would accept him as its first owner's disciple. The sword then senses that Shirley has chosen to escape. Davy says pursuing her right now would be a poor decision. Even the sword finds the surrounding tide of blood deeply nauseating. Fortunately, the mist cannot spread after the explosion destroyed its source. Several bloodstones still remain scattered throughout the surrounding area. People touched by the bloody tide usually die or become infected. Unless eliminated, those infected victims will transmit the corruption to others. For now, the dangerous mist remains trapped inside the arena. Without full containment, it could escape and trigger widespread panic outside. The sword calls Davy fortunate for avoiding such a corrosive attack. It also acknowledges his remarkable skill despite his apparent youth. Davy concedes that assessment is true, at least in one sense. He still needs time before awakening the blade's aura. His strength developed through methods unlike those used by ordinary people. Wisdom, proficiency, and sufficient skill together elevate someone into a master. Davy already stands among those rare individuals deserving that title. The sword gradually recognizes this after sensing a fraction of his boundless power. It also detects both dark mana and sacred power within Davy. Surprised, the sword admits it has never encountered anyone remotely similar. Davy says breaking accepted rules is simply what he normally does. The sword calls him insane for producing such an impossible result. Davy explains that centuries of research actually created this strange achievement. He ends the discussion because several unresolved matters still demand attention. Since Davy cannot handle everything alone, he permits the sword to assist. Davy dislikes sacrificing himself merely for the benefit of strangers, yet recovering his powers could make that sacrifice worthwhile. Despite opposing his usual style, the potential results persuade him. Davy begins praying to the goddess for everyone struck by the bloody tide. He asks her to intervene because he cannot resolve this alone. The sword questions whether anyone should request divine assistance that way. It also notices that Davy seems unaccustomed to offering prayers. Exposure to Daphne's sanctity has already reshaped Davy's understanding of faith. His power rests not upon worship-sustaining gods, but comprehension of faith. More precisely, divine curiosity matters more than receiving divine affection. Since several victims remain wounded, Davy intends to save them using the sword. He only asks the goddess for permission to perform that rescue. Indignant, the sword insists no deity would answer such a careless prayer. Davy counters that the sword understands virtually nothing about the gods. Divine love does not reward people merely proclaiming themselves devout. Instead, it reaches those whose actions awaken curiosity among the gods. Earlier, the sword claimed nothing could restore the life force stolen from people. The only remaining solution is flooding the crystal with even greater power. Davy means the supreme sacred spell, reserved solely for divine blessing. Saint Daphne created it and wielded history's mightiest sacred magic. He claims gods favor mad souls, especially people unlike anyone else. Sacred power immediately pours down from the heavens. It slams into both Davy and the divine sword. The divine sword reels, recognizing the force as rank 9. Convinced it cannot withstand that might, it accuses Davy of destruction. Davy's true intention is precisely the opposite. Unable to contain everything himself, Davy turns the divine sword into a vessel. He then channels this magic to heal the inner arena. People far beyond the arena see an intense shimmering light. Its radiance burns even brighter than the sun. Celestial wings embrace Davy, while every wound closes instantly. The dark magic crystal breaks, and evil vanishes along with it. Davy says the explosion leaves him feeling crushed beneath a landslide. Davy playfully notes the divine sword survived, but must be utterly drained. Davy struggles to maintain control when pain suddenly sears his back. Strength leaves him, and Davy collapses as something appears ahead. Somehow, Davy sees personal attributes arranged like a system window. Several entries have changed, including a new nickname, Crazy Person. Davy wonders whether the goddess has exaggerated that description. Above him, the being Davy takes for the goddess smiles gently. In her own way, she has found something interesting in Davy. Later, Davy struggles to remember everything that happened. He wonders when he last enjoyed sleep this deep. For 6 months, every attempt at sleep carried some worry. Somehow, this long rest leaves his thoughts slightly clearer. Davy awakens and finds Winley directly before him. Winley says Davy was carried to lodgings inside the duchy. She immediately asks how he feels after waking. Sitting up, Davy asks how long he slept. Winley says he remained unconscious for 2 entire days. She feared desperately that Davy might never awaken. Davy recognizes how deeply Winley truly worried about him. Given his previous collapse, such fear is hardly surprising. Winley then describes a strange dream filled with red mist. Within that dream, Davy appears and rescues her. Still doubtful, Winley asks what truly happened that day. While examining Davy, Winley also discovered a mark on his back. She identifies it as a stigma spanning roughly 3 handspans. Its enormous size makes the mark impossible to dismiss. Although startled, Davy connects it with earlier pain in his back. That agony came from the stigma being carved into him. Nothing like this has ever happened to Davy before. Davy knows the goddess caused it and questions why it must be huge. Winley clarifies that the healer priest treating Davy actually discovered the stigma. Worse, the entire duchy knows now, and chaos rages outside. When Davy was found, the red mist had already vanished. All surrounding sacred energy was concentrated entirely upon Davy. Davy understands a stigma signifies that a deity grants someone love. Fortunately, only that detail about Davy has reached public ears. Yet Winley still wants a clearer explanation from Davy. Davy hesitates over revealing his secret because he knows the consequences. Any major upheaval now would make his journey much harder. Choosing silence, Davy says he fainted before witnessing anything. Having seen nothing, Davy claims he cannot explain the events. The excuse sounds weak, yet Winley chooses to trust him. Even so, Winley asks whether Davy feels any pain. After considering, Davy decides he feels better than ever. Davy invoked 9th rank sacred magic upon the divine sword. His own sacred power also rose during the process. The outcome could hardly have been any better. His mana capacity has increased by a considerable amount. All 3 of Davy's powers have improved through the ordeal. Davy can now form an aura blade befitting a true master swordsman. Sacred magic has advanced most dramatically among the 3 powers. By extension, the other 2 also rose, seemingly through the stigma's influence. Davy laments that growth always demands extreme ordeals like this. Winley says he cannot cannot imagine the madness unfolding during his sleep. His maid Amy was especially frantic after learning what happened. Winley adds that Amy was not the only person worried about Davy. Princess Ileana also comes searching for Davy amid the uproar. She offers to take him to her kingdom for better treatment. Davy thanks Winley for her concern and devoted care. He says Winley looks exhausted, so they should both get some rest. Before departing, Winley assures Davy that Barris is no longer endangered. Barris left the arena immediately after the tournament was cancelled. Despite the surrounding chaos, Winley hopes Davy recovers soon. As soon as Winley leaves, Davy examines the status window again. It has reappeared alongside the mysterious mark on his body. The display resembles a game interface, though its nature remains unclear. Davy concludes that only the goddess could be responsible. He cannot tell whether prayer or divine magic triggered its appearance. That mystery hardly matters under the present circumstances. A hidden voice says Davy may pretend to shield the window. It knows he is already accustomed to viewing other people's statuses. Startled, Davy demands to know where the voice originated. He calls its stealthy approach an audacious attempt to fool his senses. Davy vows to uncover whoever is hiding behind this intrusion. The speaker suddenly materializes and orders Davy to look downward. Persilk admits that someone breaking her seal is humiliating to contemplate. Still, she refuses to oppose an outcome ordained by divine will. A memory returns of Davy discovering Harris's unexpected artistic talent. Davy wonders whose face Harris is capturing in the portrait. Horns and crimson pupils identify the painted figure as a demon. Her imposing appearance also suggests terrifying strength. The meticulous detail tells Davy that Harris knew her intimately. Only deep familiarity could preserve so many precise features from memory. Harris calls the demon beautiful beyond every woman in paradise. He identifies her as Persilk, now surviving only within Harris's memories. While still human, Harris adopted Persilk as his daughter. Harris raised Persilk personally and trained her in swordsmanship. Fate forced Harris to eliminate his own daughter and seal her away. Harris did so to bring a devastating war to its end. This tragedy earns Persilk the title of Abyssal Demon Queen. Back in the present, Davy instantly recognizes the manifested Persilk. Persilk notices and remarks that Davy's eyes have never disappointed her. Seeing Davy's shock, Persilk asks what occupies his thoughts. Davy bluntly says Persilk is much smaller than he imagined. Sometime later, Davy has Persilk tightly bound. Persilk condemns the greeting as exceptionally rude and demeaning. She adds that such human interests hold no appeal for her. Davy sternly warns Persilk that this is not a joke. Since they just met, Persilk cannot understand Davy's hostility. She sees no justification for Davy treating her like an enemy. Persilk also wonders how symbiosis could bind her to someone so rude. Confused, Davy asks what kind of bond Persilk means. Persilk points toward the mark spread across Davy's back. The mark serves as a vessel intended to receive Persilk's soul. Davy finally understands why the mark covers such a vast area. Everything fits once Davy recognizes the symbol as a demonic prison seal. It was constructed specifically to confine a demon monarch. After explaining, Persilk asks Davy to untie her. She repeats that this posture feels uncomfortable, degrading, and deeply unwelcome. Davy releases Persilk, then asks what she wants with him. He emphasizes that Persilk was supposedly sealed inside the sword. Davy demands a direct answer convincing enough to satisfy him. Persilk formally introduces herself as the Abyss's queen, watching from emptiness. She claims the void returns every gaze because Persilk is watching. Persilk also claims primary responsibility for the great human-demon war. Until now, Davy knew only the sword's famous wartime role. Harris had driven it through the Demon King, ending the war. Now Davy learns Persilk's soul also remained sealed within that blade. Harris had imprisoned Persilk there long ago. Persilk also seems unlike every other demon monarch Davy knows. Davy believed his mysterious power came from the goddess, not demons. Persilk corrects him, calling the Blade Spirit merely a friendly soul. The Blade Spirit had occupied the same sword beside Persilk. If Persilk had foreseen this ending, she would have properly said goodbye. Yet Persilk knew the Blade Spirit had never been especially sentimental. Persilk finally gets straight to the point and invokes divine will. That divine will transfers Persilk from the sword directly into Davy. Davy says he cannot understand why this strange transfer occurred. Persilk confesses she has no answer either, which deeply frustrates her. Still, Davy's sacred magic through the sword caused everything that followed. Persilk says this makes him responsible for the resulting situation. She also admits that Davy interests her on a personal level. After all, he is the second person to unleash the divine sword's full potential. Persilk then asks whether Davy has ever met Harris. He confirms it, remembering Harris always promised that Persilk could return. Persilk is delighted her father mentioned her instead of hiding everything. Davy comments that people should learn to conceal certain truths from each other. He also questions why anybody would ever deceive a demon king. Persilk then corrects Davy's understanding of her role in recent events. She insists she was not the entity watching from the void. Instead, she merely borrowed the will belonging to a far greater being. Persilk identifies the status window as what humans call the Great great divinity. Davy cannot believe someone so powerful communicates in such a childish manner. He wonders what a sacred power divinity expects from someone like him. Persulk proposes a walk, letting Davy showcase the fascinating outside world. Davy bluntly asks what benefit he would receive from doing that. Persulk says he already profited by receiving access to her powers. With the system window, she claims he can acquire even more abilities. Davy recognizes that she knows far more about him than expected. He cannot simply ignore that deeply unsettling fact. Persulk calls their arrangement an exceptionally favorable trade for Davy. She eagerly waits to see how Davy intends to repay her. Her powers tempt Davy far too much for him to surrender them. Giving those powers back never even crosses his mind. Davy agrees to follow Persulk's wishes. He has also accidentally found someone who can safely hear his secrets. The duchy's grand event begins as a tournament devoted to fencing. A sudden attack transforms the entire occasion into a celebration instead. Rumors surrounding Davy's stigma place him squarely at everyone's center of attention. Because of them, Davy barely manages to leave his own quarters. Persulk points out that Davy saved every person gathered there. She asks whether revealing the truth would be better than continuing to hide. One glance at his stigma would reveal physical proof of divine love. Davy knows only 3 saints have appeared during the past 400 years. A stigma is even rarer, making any public revelation unthinkable. He visits the twins and orders them to start packing immediately. Davy would rather leave for home than remain and explain himself. Winley agrees, noting they committed no crime and owe nobody explanations. She adds that this place is not even recognized as sacred territory. Privately, Davy suspects it truly became sacred territory for a brief period. That temporary sanctity may have covered half the city as well. Regardless, escaping whenever complications arise remains the smartest available plan. During their escape home, Persulk questions whether simply leaving is wise. She predicts that answer seekers may follow Davy all the way home. Davy says everything will be fine if something bigger captures public attention. Later, Ilyana receives the news that Davy has escaped. Ilyana fumes that Davy left her an enormous mess to resolve. Worse, he leaves confusion behind and escapes with his siblings. Davy tells everyone he defeated the enemy after awakening the sacred sword. He claims the stigma emerged from powers concealed inside the blade. Ilyana angrily insists that his entire explanation is one enormous lie. Watching her rage, the chamber attendant recalls serving Ilyana for 10 years. She wonders what discovering Ilyana's true personality would do to everyone. Behind the cold, powerful facade hides a rebellious and aggressive young woman. Ilyana orders the chamber attendant to have the knights prepare immediately. On the journey home, Davy sees his siblings sleeping side by side. He thinks they appear surprisingly harmonious while resting together like this. Seeing them avoid fighting feels pleasant even if sleep makes it possible. Persulk asks whether Davy regrets what happened with the divine sword. She says only its current owner and Davy understand its true nature. Then Persulk concedes that Davy might actually be the sole person. She believes that Davy should become the divine sword's rightful master. Davy sincerely wishes that he could. Yet he cannot wield such sacred power until recovering his original strength. Though the prospect tempts him, Davy is not someone who steals. For that reason, he refuses even to make an attempt, nor does he intend to strip the blade from its present owner. Such a massive, weighty weapon hardly suits Davy's temperament or preferences. Another particular sword has already captured his interest instead. Reading Davy's face, Persulk concludes he is planning something. Persulk admits that her knowledge of him still has limits. Even her deepest scrutiny cannot reach every hidden part of Davy. Setting that mystery aside, she asks about his homecoming plans. The stigma now prevents Davy's enemies from acting with complete freedom. Persulk urges him to eliminate them while this advantage lasts. Davy refuses to act until every necessary preparation is finished. The Grand Duke's nobles command far greater influence than the Queen. That political strength keeps the royal family from punishing them recklessly. Removing every opponent separately would consume far too much time. Their protection has only made the Queen increasingly arrogant. Davy already has an answer prepared for this political deadlock. Once home, the entire group receives a summons from the king. Barris apologizes to him for everything that occurred during their journey. The king assures Barris that none of it was his fault. Instead, he blames Raltis for resisting the Union of Nations. He is simply relieved that Barris has returned unharmed. News of Davy's stigma has also reached the king. Davy humbly says divine curiosity somehow granted his unworthy self the mark. Unlike the king, the queen finds this revelation deeply unwelcome. Despite considerable strain, she carefully preserves her outward composure. She even declares herself pleased by Davy's remarkable achievement. The king warns everyone that this development demands serious attention. He orders another union request delivered by letter to Raltis. After their exhausting travels, the king dismisses the twins to rest. Davy, though, is asked to remain behind a little longer. Davy notes that nearly 6 months have passed since their last talk. More precisely, they have not properly met since Davy awakened. The king asks whether Davy resents him for that distance. Davy no longer feels any need to hide behind lies. Still, voicing every buried feeling now would also seem inappropriate. He acknowledges his father's indirect care through the chief chamberlain. The king believes every father notices such dramatic changes in his child. Though judging himself poorly, he has clearly observed Davy's transformation. That awareness finally brings him to this long-delayed conversation. Their previous meeting returns through Davy's painful childhood memory. Young Davy desperately begs his father to rescue his mother. He asks whether nobody reported the truth about her condition. Davy insists poison, rather than illness, is destroying her. His father dismisses the warning and commands guards to remove him. Davy still refuses to depart without receiving a direct answer. Yet the powerless child cannot change anything in that hall. Only 4 years later does Davy uncover his mother's poisoning. Even after learning the truth, the king maintains his silence. Facing him now, Davy demands an answer about that abandonment. Davy asks whether betraying his mother for the kingdom ever felt justified. The king says his present wife bears none of the blame. Instead, the king accepts full responsibility for his own choices. Davy has no desire to hear explanations about misplaced blame. He only wants to know whether his father feels remorse. His mother kept calling for the king during her final moments. No effort can simply erase a wound carved that deeply. Davy personally watched his mother die with tears filling her eyes. The king admits that he has never been a worthy father, yet kingship rarely permits someone to follow personal wishes freely. Most days force a king through matters beyond his understanding. He asks Davy to remain quiet while strengthening himself each day. With enough strength, nobody could obstruct Davy's path or future rule. The king ultimately wants his son to inherit the crown. Davy sees that his father has apparently forgotten his mother entirely. People commonly say sons should walk along their father's paths. Davy firmly declares that he will never follow this example. Any throne demanding his family's sacrifice holds no appeal for him. Countless others may crave the crown, but Davy does not. He tells the king to hand that crown to somebody else. Even force could never make Davy accept the royal title. Outside the royal hall, Persilk remarks upon Davy's deliberate rudeness. Davy answers that such harshness was necessary in this situation. That necessity remains regardless of how deeply Persilk can examine Davy. Some things about Davy still refuse to change. Besides, Davy finally understands what he truly desires. Back in his quarters, Davy gives Amy strict instructions. Nobody may disturb him for the remainder of the day. Davy approaches his window and prepares for a covert mission. He declares that tonight he enters the hidden rabbit hole. Inside the kingdom's assassin guild, Shirley's disappearance becomes alarming news. The guild chief reports several subordinates also vanished days earlier. Their assigned mission was eliminating princes from their own kingdom. Despite their elite intelligence ranking, they apparently failed that mission. A boastful killer mocks headquarters for calling them top-class agents. The guild chief warns him to guard his tongue carefully. Ignoring the threat, the boastful killer questions Shirley's true capabilities. He refuses to believe mere children caused this much trouble. As a genuine guild assassin, he promises to pursue everyone involved. His targets include both the boys and the missing Shirley. Only a proper assassin can handle such dangerous work, he claims. The quiet aide questions whether letting him leave is wise. His arrogance will destroy him, so the guild chief permits it. Despite Shirley's official ranking, her true strength greatly surpasses it. Most guild members remain unaware of how dangerous Shirley really is. Her failure against defenseless children makes absolutely no sense. Even stranger, Shirley disappeared immediately following that failed assassination. The guild chief decides he must leave the premises, yet nobody answers his repeated calls for assistance. Sensing danger, the guild chief hurriedly attempts to respond. A blade instantly settles against the guild chief's exposed neck. The masked intruder calmly warns him against making another movement. Only then does the guild chief notice his quiet aide's death. The masked intruder killed the quiet aide without making any noise. Next, the masked intruder forces the guild chief against his desk. Inspection confirms the guild chief is human rather than a vampire. Furious, the guild chief wonders why his people never intervened. Unknown to him, the masked intruder already eliminated everyone outside. The masked intruder finished them all before entering this room. No amount of screaming will bring the guild chief help. Continuing this confrontation means the guild chief will die next. Desperate negotiation becomes the guild chief's only remaining option. He asks which competing assassin guild hired the masked intruder. Rather than answering, the masked intruder presents a simple ultimatum. Providing the requested intelligence is the guild chief's only escape. Terrified, the guild chief offers everything in exchange for survival. The masked intruder finally releases his grip on the man. His demand, he explains, is actually quite limited. First, he wants every noble serving the Duke's powerful household. Second, he demands records documenting every crime committed by the Duke. That Duke currently wields tremendous influence throughout the entire kingdom. Davy already knows the Duke keeps leverage against every useful person. Those compromising reports are supposedly hidden within this guild. The guild chief suddenly attempts to escape from his captor. One raised finger makes the masked intruder's deadly intentions unmistakable. This warning, the masked intruder says, will be his only one. The guild chief concludes that his attacker is a master assassin. The masked intruder claims exceptional skill at detecting spoken lies. Any attempted deception would consequently be a very foolish decision. He then asks what choice the guild chief will make. Later, the masked intruder emerges carrying every document he requested. The intruder is actually Davy, operating beneath a convincing disguise. Reviewing the list, Davy finds an enormous amount of intelligence. Still, he suspects some entries may contain deliberate falsehoods. Several other assassin guilds remain available for Davy to investigate. Collecting every report could let him corner the implicated nobles. Persilk predicts that considerable bloodshed will soon consume the kingdom. Davy does not consider that possibility entirely undesirable. Even so, he knows every move requires careful planning. Prestigious nobles inevitably accumulate dangerous political enemies. His late mother's retainer, Petrisse, offers a perfect example. Petrus ranks among the kingdom's 3 recognized swordmasters. A newly received letter plunges Patricia into immediate despair. He urgently searches for his steward after discovering something horrifying. Through this revelation, the Duke effectively destroys his own support network. Davy describes tonight's operation as an unexpected nighttime visit. Persilk asks Davy what his true objective actually is. Davy responds that Persilk already knows the answer. He simply wants to keep his family protected. Davy also desires reliable food and somewhere secure to live. Avoiding unnecessary hardships remains another part of his modest ambition. Above everything, Davy wants a long and healthy life. Persilk finds such ordinary wishes strange coming from a prince. Those wishes already describe how Davy currently lives, she observes. Davy says Persilk must understand one important fact. He will soon depart the kingdom for his assigned territory. That small territory came with his position within the royal family. Davy intends to construct his future there from the ground up. His new territory also lies within the continent's most advanced region. Davy's destination is a city on the continent. Revenge remains part of his journey, but it is not his central purpose. He refuses to let such a minor matter destroy his life. Persilk says becoming king would let Davy fulfill that desire sooner. She adds that ruling a kingdom resembles managing a territory. Davy argues that controlling one territory is easier than governing an entire country. His own ambition is simpler. He wants somewhere he can call home. In the royal hall, the queen praises Davy as the kingdom's pride. She credits his possession of a stigma for earning that distinction. Then she questions why the king has not rewarded him. Since Davy has recovered and received territory, she suggests sending him there. Some courtiers wonder why the queen suddenly speaks so warmly about Davy. Privately, the queen admits she would never praise him under ordinary conditions. The failed prince elimination attempt and Shirley's escape have made matters far more difficult. That same night, the intelligence guild suffers attacks at 7 separate locations. The attacks deeply alarm the queen because the guild stores Patrice's intelligence. The guild leader reports an enemy impossible to defeat or even find. He identifies the attacker as a monster, intensifying the queen's growing fear. If her hidden information reaches the wrong hands, rebellion charges could follow. The documents themselves provide evidence that she plotted against the crown. The queen also begins losing trust in Patrice. She suspects Petrus may be helping Davy oppose her. If that suspicion is true, removing Patricia appears to be the obvious answer. Yet Shirley is gone, leaving the queen without an effective assistant. As queen, she can only work to remove Davy from the palace. She proposes distancing Davy, never expecting the king to accept so quickly. The king instead declares that an adult uncrowned prince should leave. He considers continued palace residence improper for someone of Davy's age. The king summons the chief chamberlain to arrange Davy's departure. The queen is caught off guard and wonders what the king intends. Later, the king summons Davy for a private conversation. Davy feels no surprise because removal was inevitable once the kingdom saw him. The king orders Davy to develop his territory and prove his value. Persilk says the king probably fears Davy might eventually rebel. She believes that fear explains why the king sends his son away. The king does not know Davy planned the same departure already. Davy assumes both rulers have private schemes of their own. He sees no reason to remain there, with other matters demanding attention. Persilk says Davy's recent actions may place numerous lives in danger. Even so, she shows little concern about the complicated situation. She believes the kingdom needs a total restructuring before its next king rises. Davy cannot hand this existing reality over to Barris. Facing his enemy during that process would also be a welcome reward. Outside the meeting, Davy is unexpectedly confronted by the twins. The twins urgently ask why he must leave and whether they can help. Davy explains that leaving is already his own wish. Though he may seem weaker than others, his stigma now protects him. He asks the twins to place their trust in him. Winley promises assistance whenever Davy needs it, even for tiny problems. She says she will do everything within her power to support him. Davy admits Hein's territory is far from the finest place available. Still, many many people live there and depend on that territory. He promises to invite the twins once he makes it pleasant. Davy then asks Amy to visit the Ministry of Finance. He also sends her to the Department of Territory Administration. Amy must collect every available record concerning Hein's territory. Davy says officials probably will not refuse once she mentions his title. Persilk remarks that Davy acts as though nothing can defeat him. She finds his confidence and circumstances especially intriguing. Persilk adds that her mother has always enjoyed unusual things. Despite immense abilities, Davy has not become unbearable or conceited. Davy asks whether Persilk is beginning to feel sympathy for him. Persilk answers that Davy is much more passive than her mother. Because of that difference, she may genuinely be empathizing with him. She tells Davy to feel honored, because the Demon Queen is now his fan. Davy concedes that earning such admiration is an honor. Later, Amy appears before Davy. Amy brings the few documents she managed to uncover. From their sparse details, Davy identifies his territory as a remote village. On reflection, that isolation might grant him greater freedom to develop it. Davy eagerly anticipates pioneering this unfamiliar place from the ground up. Persilk shares his excitement and studies the documents beside him. Her review reveals the territory is actually a cursed land. The discovery hardly surprises Persilk, because Davy's gift inevitably carries a catch. Davy cannot argue with her grim but sensible conclusion. Their preparations for departure are completed not long afterward. Amy asks whether everyone accompanying Davy has already gathered. Davy says few people swore loyalty, leaving him with limited allies. Petrus then introduces himself formally to the departing prince. He says leaving the palace now is Davy's wisest decision. Though Davy is not yet crowned prince, Petrus believes that could change. Petrus observes how much Davy has grown since earlier days. His mother would surely feel proud if she still lived. Davy disagrees, condemning himself as an unworthy son. Petrus says that logic demands burying him alive for failing to protect Davy. Davy had learned Petrus's allegiance while invading his home. Inside, he discovered evidence Petrus collected about his mother's assassins. Petrus urges Davy to contact him whenever serious trouble arises. He promises to provide every bit of help within his power. Davy warns that rumors of Petrus's support would cause absolute chaos. Petrus replies that refusing assistance would make his vows meaningless. Davy accepts, declaring the small village his future home. He asks Petrus to continue fulfilling his responsibilities inside the palace. An ally there can relentlessly pressure Davy's enemies during his absence. Still, Davy intends to personally deliver the decisive final blow. Normally, reaching a territory through a mana portal takes one full day. This territory lies near the capital, making carriage travel easy instead. During the ride, Davy watches Persilk sleeping like a storybook princess. Their days together already seem to have disappeared astonishingly fast. Davy also notices that Persilk spends much of her time asleep. He wonders whether weak magical power explains her unusually small stature. The tiny sleeper uses Davy's leg as her comfortable bed. Davy gently drapes a warm jacket over Persilk's resting body. Outside, a knight calls out that their destination is close. Soon Davy catches his first glimpse of the territory ahead. His eastern territory stretches across miles of arid, sandy wasteland. Almost nothing survives there, aside from monsters that somehow flourish. Its sole advantage is the capital's main road crossing through it. Better roads could transform the territory into a crucial transportation hub. Yet this is no ordinary tract of land. Everyone despises this cursed, inhospitable desert where nothing can grow. A previous administrator managed the territory until that person's death. 5 years earlier, a devastating drought ravaged the entire region. Nobody has ever determined the exact cause behind that destruction. Remembering this history, Davy opens his status window for territorial analysis. One entry among the displayed information remains frustratingly incomplete. Persilk identifies the hidden problem as a curse. She explains its influence spreads addictively from modest beginnings. Once established, the curse rapidly grows impossible to control. Davy never expected traces of black magic to remain worldwide. Long ago, a local resident apparently provoked a dangerous sorcerer. Davy responds by attempting to purify the afflicted region with magic. Persilk warns that cleansing it will not be simple. Such an ancient curse is exceptionally difficult to break. Worse, its corruption has already engulfed the whole territory. Living species there are now almost as rare as black magic knowledge. Cursed mages themselves disappeared from the world ages ago. Upon their arrival, an armed group blocks Davy's caravan. The wary defenders demand that every newcomer identify themselves. Surveying these supposed defenses, Davy finds everything painfully weak. He wonders whether active guards should count as encouraging news. Through the confusion, Davy steps down from his carriage. Davy announces they are family now, making any fight unnecessary. The local guards recognize Davy and hurriedly apologize for their poor welcome. Their battered condition immediately fills Davy with concern. He asks when the message announcing his arrival reached them. One guard answers that it came 2 days earlier. Davy next asks whether monsters attacked during those 2 days. The guard's expression gives Davy every answer he needs. Davy declares the curse can wait until he resolves the goblin crisis. The guard captain introduces himself as Manhwa and explains the territory's plight. With no lord present, Manhwa had assumed leadership over the entire territory. Now that Davy has arrived, he can finally take that responsibility. Davy praises the guards' efforts and officially promotes them into proper guards. One of Davy's lieutenants will personally oversee their future training. He orders Manhwa to ensure the entire squad becomes properly organized. Davy explains that letting valuable talent go unused has never suited him. If Manhwa improves enough, Davy promises to award him a noble title. After all, Davy still possesses the authority to grant such honors. Later, Davy inspects the fortress and evaluates its overall defensive condition. Despite its age, the stronghold still possesses an impressively sturdy defensive line. That leaves Davy wondering how the goblins successfully breached the territory. Manhwa blames the invasion on the guards' relentless fatigue and exhaustion. Dozens of homes were burned, while numerous citizens were dragged away. Their winter provisions are also insufficient, leaving even local farmers starving. Persic notes that Davy cannot properly use his wealth in this place. Even restored castle walls would survive for 2 years at most. Davy jokes that Persilk might earn a promotion into his secretary. Persilk refuses immediately, since that position would steal her sleeping time. Despite everything, Davy currently has few other practical options available. He gives Manhwa money and requests every available material and provision. Amy, who followed Davy here, asks why he remains so wealthy. Davy offers a flimsy excuse while privately remembering the money's true origin. In reality, he stole the entire sum from the Intelligence Guild. Persilk reminds Davy that stealing hardly qualifies as justice. Rather than accept her lecture, Davy simply tells Persilk to sleep. Dwayne abandoned his palace butler position to accompany Davy into the territory. As a relative of Chamberlain Petrus, Dwayne volunteers to handle the purchases. Dwayne promises to obtain everything that Davy requires for his plans. Davy orders everyone involved to complete the procurement as quickly as possible. Only a minimal guard detail will remain while everyone else joins the knights. Outside, Davy constructs a platform and gathers the territory's residents around it. Standing above them, he formally introduces himself as their territory's new ruler. Davy announces that he already knows about the citizens abducted by goblins. Some residents want pursuit, while many others fearfully prefer hiding. Though everyone cannot become warriors, Davy insists they must still act. Otherwise, the goblins will eventually return and commit the same atrocities. Davy intends not merely to defend, but to eradicate the threat permanently. Several residents agree, admitting that Davy's argument carries undeniable truth. Still, they are the final defenders and remain powerless in their condition. Davy counters that one successful operation will end the repeated attacks. He knows some consider him another noble blinded by confidence in bloodline. To those doubters, Davy appears privileged, boastful, and incapable of meaningful action. Yet Davy declares himself both a prince and the lord governing them. From this day onward, every resident within the territory becomes his family. As their lord, Davy vows to protect and care for them. He refuses to stand aside while members of his family die. Davy understands that passionate promises alone cannot secure everybody's trust. He reveals a stigma bestowed by the gods, hoping it strengthens his credibility. Anyone still unconvinced may instead regard his declaration as an absolute order. Davy commands that nobody may die unless they first receive his permission. Later, Davy enters the demon forest with a sizable group behind him. Persil calls hunting goblins with exhausted, unprepared men a disastrous plan. Davy responds that their force contains 150 men. In his judgment, that number should provide more than enough strength. Persil warns that excessive confidence will not always work in Davy's favor. She adds that numerical advantages can easily change without warning. Davy insists the situation remains firmly under his control. Persil dryly praises his remarkable talent for always appearing correct. Manhwa says the goblins' gathering place lies beyond the approaching mountain. Upon reaching the location, Davy discovers an abandoned village awaiting them. He questions how orcs and goblins could inhabit such an unsettling place. Manhwa identifies it as a ghost village, now serving as their encampment. One young man trembles with fury because the goblins murdered his friend. Davy approaches the young man and acknowledges the pain consuming him. He urges everyone to channel that anger into courageous battle. By destroying their enemies, they can honor the fallen and avenge them. Davy admires their devotion to lost friends who were never blood relatives. Seeing that loyalty, Davy decides he has found the right territory. He launches the first attack by swiftly firing an arrow. An unsuspecting goblin notices the incoming arrow far too late. The arrow strikes the goblin instantly, its flaming shaft igniting the surroundings. Panic sweeps through the guards as fire erupts across the area. They expected a surprise strike, not such an unmistakable frontal assault. Davy steadies them, promising that nobody under his command will perish. Seeing the arrow land perfectly, Davy celebrates his successful opening move. A notoriously unfaithful bow god originally crafted that extraordinary arrow. That same deity had mastered every divine art associated with archery. Now the godly weapon finally serves Davy's purpose during this attack. Despite the surrounding chaos, Davy's technique is anything but ordinary. Its original purpose was creating wartime traps against unsuspecting enemy forces. Circumstances forced Davy to employ the specialized technique right now. After all, petty complications have never made Davy retreat from anything. Davy begins his first official act as Lord by empowering everyone. Sacred battle blessings surge through every companion gathered around him. Persil questions whether using magic on these ordinary men is appropriate. Davy replies that none of them even notice the magical influence. He only needs the guards to feel inspired enough for battle. With everyone blessed, Davy notes how exceptional their treatment truly is. Ordinary soldiers serving elsewhere would never receive support this powerful. Even paladins from the Sacred Kingdom cannot normally obtain such blessings. Only a saint or pope can wield level 7 sacred magic. Davy permits the guards to release every grudge against their enemies. He suspects part of him has always wanted this opportunity. With his preparations finished, Davy orders the entire force to advance. Davy never understood how deeply the guards had craved their revenge. Their ferocious response proves they have awaited this chance for years. The empowered guards charge forward in an almost ecstatic battle frenzy. Goblins accustomed to terrorizing humans suddenly experience that same fear themselves. Steel tears through their ranks, cutting down goblins with shocking ease. Those once timid guards discover they are genuinely capable of fighting. Within moments, Davy watches the battle become a one-sided goblin massacre. He lets the guards release their fury while supporting them nearby. Whenever someone suffers an injury, Davy swiftly restores the wounded fighter. Davy reminds everyone that he never authorized a single friendly death. They must remain cautious because his blessings do not make them invincible. Still, Davy promises to heal injuries, encouraging everyone to fight freely. The overwhelming imbalance almost makes Davy feel sorry for the goblins. Regardless, the guards soon exterminate every enemy remaining in the area. Afterward, they gratefully shower their newly appointed lord with heartfelt thanks. Unaccustomed to such praise, Davy responds with obvious discomfort and embarrassment. He warns them that celebrating now would be far too premature. People still need rescuing, and Davy must locate every missing captive. While walking onward, Davy considers the unexpected result of his actions. He merely intended to remove the fear paralyzing his guards. Instead, their admiration for Davy has grown almost alarmingly intense. The next day, everyone prepares for subjugation like devout holy warriors. Their actual mission, of course, involves nothing grander than eliminating goblins. Davy selects only 10 guards to accompany him on the expedition. Those left behind look disappointed because they desperately wanted to participate. The junior captain notes that Davy has only recently turned 16. He assumes Davy is simply exhilarated by achieving his first victory. In his view, local realities will soon temper Davy's youthful enthusiasm. Later, the junior captain receives a surprise that overturns those expectations. Davy returns unharmed, accompanied safely by every member of his small group. The junior captain and his companion can only stare in disbelief. With barely any manpower, Davy swiftly subdued all the remaining goblins. Davy suspects outsiders may believe his accompanying guards were somehow hypnotized, yet his only concern was ensuring that everyone returned home safely. Persilk warns that this devotion could eventually become a strange religion. Davy answers that several goblins still remain beyond their current reach. Consequently, he must continue organizing expeditions until every threat disappears. Some guards will accompany Davy, while others prepare the territory for winter. Davy expects normality to return after only a few more days. He also believes the guards' feverish excitement will naturally settle down. At least, that is what Davy confidently believes during those days. Instead, stories about his deeds soon spread across the surrounding lands. Among the people, Davy quickly acquires the reputation of a saint. Some guards even begin escorting him like priests serving their spiritual leader. For the first time since awakening from his coma, Davy feels regret. Despite that embarrassment, Davy earns the people's trust unlike many rulers. Securing that willing trust remains deeply important to Davy's approach toward leadership. Davy's spear teacher was also a king who conquered a continental empire. That warrior king taught Davy a fundamental lesson about governing others. Even within a tiny territory, rulers govern human beings rather than livestock. For that reason, people must choose willingly to follow their leader. Despite limited political lessons from his old teacher, Davy shares that conviction. While reviewing territorial records, Davy receives a visit from Persilk. She asks Davy how his investigation is progressing. Davy answers that several records contain frustratingly vague information. Persilk estimates breaking the curse could stabilize everything within 5 years. Truly developing the territory, though, would require another 20 years. Removing the land's curse cannot instantly restore its former condition. Persilk already has a firm assessment of their situation. No underground river network exists beneath the territory. That severe limitation leaves the region desperately short on resources. Repeatedly poor harvests have also eliminated every source of livestock. For the residents, eating meat is no longer possible. Davy's recently acquired one might provide temporary financial relief. Still, the territory's overall shortage of funds demands a lasting solution. Davy notes that nothing here currently generates meaningful profit. Without profitable work, the territory has no reliable income. Even so, Davy believes several alternative solutions remain available. A considerable population of young adults currently lives throughout the region. Davy proposes employing those young residents as professional monster hunters. Their hunted monsters could become a dependable source of revenue. Another possibility involves developing a unique and valuable crop. That plan first requires restoring the damaged soil. Bartering offers a third option, though its exchange rate seems disastrous. They would effectively surrender diamonds merely to obtain ordinary grain. Persalk points out that bartering requires willing neighboring territories. They currently have neither trading partners nor worthwhile products. Davy insists on personally examining the entire territory first. He remains confident that careful searching will uncover something useful. Whatever the territory offers, Davy intends to exploit it fully. During his search, Davy remembers dreaming about owning a building. Unfortunately, his current property resembles little more than a pigsty. Yet this ruined land had once possessed remarkably fertile soil. Its former owners eventually abandoned everything they had built. A lord later claimed possession of the deserted territory. Davy knows a hidden mage's refuge exists somewhere nearby. The mage inside that refuge originally created the territorial curse. Finding that mage could help Davy reverse the devastation. His divine power, unfortunately, has not fully recovered yet. Reversing such formidable magic would strain his incomplete abilities. Davy's lack of stored power makes the problem even worse. He considers borrowing the princess's weapon for another attempt. Some improvised excuse might persuade the princess to lend it. Persalk firmly advises Davy against attempting that approach. Davy concludes that only one remaining alternative can work. Something beneath them practically demands that Davy put it to use. He presses both hands against the barren ground. Davy then performs an unfamiliar technique that rearranges curses. Persalk admits she has never witnessed magic like this. Davy suspects its creator originally came from another continent. That foreign origin explains why Persalk cannot recognize the technique. Practitioners also call this system the magical programming language. Countless mana patterns and structures make its behavior highly programmable. This complexity forces dark mages to gather many specialized artifacts. Without those tools, their incantations require an exceptionally long time. Persalk understands that Davy can trace the curse through the system. Its structure may reveal the mage who originally constructed it. Davy confirms her conclusion and immediately starts decoding the patterns. Persalk grumbles that Davy never explains everything he already knows. She must repeatedly infer crucial details without receiving direct answers. During that deduction, Persalk notices something deeply unusual. Davy explains that they are not examining an ordinary curse. The structure actually functions as a mage's self-sustaining greenhouse. Curiosity then draws Davy toward the territory's eastern reaches. He wants to understand why its border appears unnaturally precise. His investigation reveals 7 locations where the mage might be hiding. Every possible location stands somewhere along the territory's outer boundary. A massive dome also encloses only Davy's territory. Its design seemingly regulates the enclosed climate and geological conditions. Persalk deduces that the curse deliberately drained moisture from the soil. The same mechanism also prevents sufficient rain from falling. Davy confirms that Persalk has correctly interpreted its purpose. His tracing method has identified only one effect so far. The original reason behind the structure remains unknown. Its creator clearly intended to transform Davy's domain into wasteland. That discovery makes Davy consider the results of removing it. A proper reconfiguration might transform this enormous desert into a resort. Following the gathered clues eventually leads Davy toward ancient ruins. Their presence among untouched rocks catches him by surprise. The architecture seemingly does not predate the era's Great War. Perhaps the Dark Mages never discovered this hidden place. Even so, the curse clearly did not activate without a cause. An unsettling silence hangs over every corner of the ruins. A golem suddenly emerges, breaking that unnatural quiet. Persalk dryly remarks that Davy judged the silence too quickly. She warns that this creature is no ordinary golem. A valuable magic stone appears to supply its energy. Golems built this way may also possess unusual specialized powers. Davy hears her warning but focuses on only one thought. The golem attacks, and Davy swiftly evades its strike. His evasive movement carries him directly onto the golem's body. Reaching for its embedded gem, Davy smells an unexpected payday. Davy celebrates while clutching the precious stone, declaring this his lucky day. Along the city walls, several guards savor the calm during Davy's expedition. Nobody had expected Davy to provide such meaningful help after arriving. No noble currently dares visit a territory this hostile and desolate. Residents who escape to other cities usually face contempt from everyone there. The kingdom merely suspends taxes because locals cannot even feed themselves. Paying royal tribute is unthinkable when survival already consumes everything they have. Into these miserable conditions, the kingdom sends the young Prince Davy. Whispers claim Davy's demotion during a power struggle caused this assignment. Those rumors make several residents wary, though they have no alternatives. After all, Davy is the sole outsider actually willing to assist. His arrival also coincides with their worst goblin assault in memory. Without Davy's intervention, the exhausted territory could not have endured much longer. Earlier, goblins breached the fortress defenses and carried several residents away. The overwhelmed guards barely held their posts and could rescue nobody. Amid that disaster, Davy arrives as both prince and newly appointed ruler. Davy's intended response immediately becomes a source of nervous speculation. Some expect Davy to punish the head guard for failing badly. Such punishment would have turned many residents against Davy's authority. Instead, Davy manages the crisis with judgment that surprises everyone. Davy also engineers a chance for retaliation against the goblins. Calling the residents' family gives them hope their captives may return. Davy's words and conduct kindle courage throughout the battered community. Though Davy dislikes saintly labels, locals elevate him into sacred importance. Soon, many glorify Davy with the reverence normally reserved for deities. A visible miracle feels more believable than an unreachable god who never helps. One young repairman praises Davy for defeating the attacking goblins. Yet the young repairman doubts this territory possesses any future at all. Drought had devastated these lands long before goblins became the immediate threat. Relentless dry weather then destroyed every attempt to plant new crops. Priests and mages arrived hoping to reverse the catastrophe, but failed. Everyone ultimately decides that ordinary human hands cannot solve this blight. Even Davy's blessings seem insufficient to restore soil this thoroughly ruined. Elsewhere, Davy recalls that mana crystals form from intensely condensed pure mana. Beside an ordinary equal-sized stone, one crystal holds hundredfold value and power. Seeing crystals embedded in goblin foreheads sends Davy's excitement soaring. Davy immediately pursues the valuable stones without the slightest hesitation. Davy calls harvesting them difficult, but Persilk firmly challenges that description. Persilk watched Davy dispatch the goblins with almost insulting ease. Davy knows mana crystals supposedly appear only inside ancient ruins. Even there, explorers discover these crystals in extremely limited amounts. That scarcity drives their market price to extraordinary heights. Still, Davy wonders how long their sale proceeds could sustain the territory. Persilk warns that revealing such items to random buyers would provoke suspicion. Continuing onward, Davy discovers a crystal dwarfing every previous specimen. Davy suspects the massive crystal may power the curse afflicting the land. The discovery confirms Persilk's caution about displaying such treasure openly. Crystals this immense and valuable have driven countless people into wars. The giant crystal also brims with exceptionally pure mana. Davy pictures freely unleashing ninth circle spells by harnessing its reserves. Davy attempts exactly that, then notices the crystal's deceptive outer simplicity. Beneath its appearance, the magical code seems absurdly elaborate for causing drought. Such needless complexity convinces Davy that something else lies concealed inside. Despite difficult manipulation, Davy probes the structure for its hidden purpose. Davy's search uncovers several energy cores buried within the source code. Observing the spell's altered behavior, Persilk asks what Davy changed. Davy says he began by scattering a little water across the area. Yet that simple adjustment carries a dangerous and enormous catch. The clouds already hold so much water that everything will descend together. One colossal downpour will strike the territory as a tremendous storm. Far away, several noble conspirators debate Marquis Patrice and his independent behavior. The conspirators predict continued defiance will soon fracture the entire aristocratic faction. Their discussion seeks a way to prevent evidence being used against them. To the conspirators, forgotten ghosts seem to rise and pursue them. New enemies now emerge from nowhere, multiplying their fear and uncertainty. The Queen has offered no comment regarding the unfolding crisis. The Queen also remains silent about the stigma borne by Prince Davy. Rumors insist Davy's stigma is too powerful for Davy to control. The conspirators decide such uncontrollable power should not become their problem. The Sacred Kingdom shares their predicament and cannot confirm the stigma's authenticity. Some argue that one unremarkable prince deserves far less attention. attention. They insist more pressing concerns should receive their focus instead. Barris redirects the discussion toward the aristocracy's enduring unity. He warns that noble solidarity cannot collapse within a single day. Barris believes they must fight despite every possible risk. Their best course involves recovering the secret information that was stolen. They must also prepare for war if everything goes wrong. A servant promises to arrange every necessary preparation. Barris orders absolute discretion until their plans are fully ready. Exposing the secret prematurely would jeopardize everything they are preparing. Privately, Barris believes his associates greatly underestimate Davy. His instincts warn against repeating their dangerous mistake. Something clearly changed within Davy during his long coma. Once Davy gains influence and supporters, his true nature will emerge. Still, Barris considers Davy harmless while confined to his territory. What could any prince accomplish upon barren, lifeless soil? Defying Barris's expectations, Davy summons the first rainfall in years. Even Davy admits controlling the rain requires considerable effort. Back home, Davy predicts planting can begin after several days. A glance at the magic crystal provides him that estimate. The crystal functions much like a central operating panel. It connects with every regional crystal, forming a remote control network. Through that network, Davy can govern the territory's weather. Since people naturally avoid effort, Davy finds the system extremely convenient. Other recovered crystals remain stored safely inside his magic bags. Davy plans no further action until the damaged land recovers. 1 week later, Davy encounters his eager admirers during a walk. Their sudden appearance prompts Davy to question their intentions. One supporter refuses to watch idly while their lord struggles. The volunteers have gathered specifically to handle strenuous physical labor. Davy doubts they can manage the enormous workload awaiting them. Still, he offers the group one relatively simple assignment. The knights have already prepared fields intended for planting. Davy wants every capable resident cultivating those prepared fields. They receive exactly 4 days to finish planting everything. Failure carries no punishment, and anyone overwhelmed may freely quit. Payment depends upon each worker's hours and demonstrated effort. Davy refuses to accept unpaid labor from anyone. Monmeter calls 4-day cultivation impossible, despite the altered climate. The sheer size of the farmland makes the deadline seem absurd. Davy cannot understand why Monmeter considers the task impossible. Previously cultivated fields should already have useful farming equipment available. Monmeter worries whether their limited population can handle the work. Several residents instead wonder what their future wages might purchase. Monmeter scolds them for exploiting their lord's extraordinary generosity. Yet Davy has no intention of being taken advantage of. Magic surges through the workers, sharply increasing their physical strength. As with the guards, Davy also supplies powerful motivation. The display astonishes Monmeter, who immediately recognizes its practical value. Davy promises pickaxe work will reveal an entirely different world. With stronger support magic, Davy could amplify the workers even further. Monmeter asks why Davy provides the residents with so much. Davy intends to transform this dead territory into profitable land. Quick profits demand both massive supply and severe market scarcity. For Davy, abundant production under scarce conditions satisfies both requirements. Even Persilk understands how his strategy combines quantity with scarcity. Monmeter remains confused and asks how Davy will accomplish it. Alongside essential provisions, Davy plans to cultivate valuable moonflowers. Eastern weather changes too unpredictably for lunar plants to grow. Importing lunar flowers from western regions also costs an enormous amount. Mage towers and alchemists require them for temple potion production. Their rarity and high price create fierce competition among buyers. Monmeter insists those delicate plants cannot possibly grow there. Davy possesses the answer within his climate-controlling crystal network. Now he only needs to visit the forest's dedicated plant eaters. His playful description naturally refers to the elves. Inside the elven forest, the forest chief begins speaking about the spirits. One spirit warns Ilyana that a visitor is approaching. Her master Medith arrives and apologizes for coming without notice. Ilyana warmly assures Medith that she is always welcome. She also mentions acquiring some exceptionally fine tea leaves recently. As Medith drinks Ilyana's tea, she mentions having a recent dream. Ilyana asks what dream could have brought Medith this far. Medith hesitates briefly, then finally gives Ilyana her answer. In that dream, a curse descends across the entire forest. Ilyana remembers Medith teaching that every spirit's work springs from nature. To Ilyana, such an event seems both expected and natural. Medith counters that the surrounding forest is steadily drying away. She insists this forest was never Ilyana's true home. Medith asks Ilyana to return with her to their hometown. There, the divine tree's embrace awaits them both. Ilyana refuses, declaring that this forest is her home now. She has no intention of returning to Medith's chosen homeland. Instead, Ilyana suggests taking every other elf away from the curse. Medith refuses to abandon Ilyana while rescuing everybody else. She warns that remaining behind will cost Ilyana her life. Ilyana accepts even death as nature's own will. Her bond with this new home has grown deeply wonderfully powerful. She even hopes someone may eventually arrive and rescue this place. A lively breeze brushes Ileana's face as she considers that hope. To her, the wind seems to promise a fortunate encounter. Changing topics, Ileana asks whether Medith enjoyed the tea. She casually reveals that cricket wings were among its ingredients. Medith responds with unsurprising disgust rather than culinary appreciation. For one brief instant, Medith forgot Ileana's problem with Eastern elves. Those elves consider Ileana the greatest nature fanatic among them. Not far away, Ileana's anticipated visitor advances through the forest. Davy reflects that elves are seldom encountered anywhere on the continent. Records say elves vanished from public sight 300 years ago after the Great Incident. Some people even doubt that elves exist at all. Davy still suspects fortune may lead him directly toward them. Several spirits watched him during his battle against the goblins. Their presence suggests nearby elves because both races share a symbolic bond. Davy would rather avoid meeting any elves during this trip. If an encounter happens, he still intends no hostility toward them. Purselk dislikes elves, describing them as inflexible and stubborn. Davy readily agrees with Purselk's harsh assessment. He suspects the Doom Elf caused every related problem. Even Davy's limited knowledge makes meeting that elf deeply undesirable. After more walking, Davy discovers an enchanted stretch of woodland. He suspects this hidden forest serves as the elves' home. Spiritual creatures dwelling among the trees soon gather around him. Davy notes such beings respond strongly to people possessing spiritual affinity. His purifying abilities may make them prefer him over actual elves. Those abilities came only after Davy endured brutally intensive training. He even entered fire repeatedly, conditioning himself against extreme heat. Ileana served as his spiritualist master at the temple then. Though born human, she contracted with 13 royal spirits. Purselk observes that Davy attracts spirits without holding any contracts. Even his dark mana leaves his bond with benevolent spirits unharmed. Purselk asks how Davy intends to locate the lunar flowers. Davy admits he does not know whether they can produce seedlings. Immediately afterward, a tiny creature deposits a miniature flower in his palm. Startled, Purselk asks whether the flower is what she suspects. Davy confirms that it is indeed a lunar plant. Inside a cave, they then uncover a garden packed with them. Davy thanks the helpful spirit that guided him into the cave. Purselk counts enough lunar plants for replanting near their territory. Plenty would remain even after they collect the necessary amount. Then Purselk notices Davy's strange behavior and questions his actions. Spiritual power draws upon mana, divine power, and dark mana. Anyone possessing that power can perceive spirits around them. Only each person's degree of affinity creates any meaningful difference. Davy can thus confidently claim every spirit lies within his summoning reach. At this point, Purselk asks whether Davy wants a spirit contract. Davy identifies this place as the Garden of the Moon Goddess. As that title implies, every part belongs to the spirits. Picking any flower without permission brings disease upon the offender. Knowing this danger, Davy refuses to harvest anything recklessly. Instead, Davy addresses the resident spirit using another language. A nature spirit manifests immediately, astonished by his fluent spirit language. The shared language quickly allows both sides to communicate successfully. Davy tells Purselk that the spirits approved harvesting these flowers. He wants everything gathered before the elves discover their presence. Purselk cannot quite understand what Davy just accomplished. Davy says avoiding unnecessary trouble remains the wiser choice. Their mission requires collecting plants, not wasting time in conversation. Ileana considers reaching the spirit garden and receiving its will astonishing. Another striking thought begins forming inside Ileana's mind. Ileana cannot believe Davy gained the spirit's consent through conversation alone. He made no preparations, and he is merely a human boy. Never had Ileana imagined a human discovering the lunar flower garden. Receiving the garden's authorization seems even more unbelievable to her. Now Ileana debates whether she should inform Medith about Davy. Noticing her distraction, Medith asks Ileana what is troubling her. Ileana instead asks why Medith has not touched the specially prepared tea. She found a dead cricket and dried the ingredients for 1 week. Afterward, Ileana boiled everything together to create the unusual drink. Despite that effort, Medith appears to have ignored Ileana's heartfelt sincerity. If the tea seems unpleasant, Ileana offers another recently developed menu item. Medith politely thanks her but refuses the ominous alternative as well. Privately, Medith considers Ileana's eating habits deeply concerning. Ileana finally reveals that a spirit-speaking human entered the flower garden. That human also awakened a great being from its profound slumber. Medith reacts with astonishment upon hearing this extraordinary information. Ileana's serious expression soon confirms that this is no joke. Dragons vanished long ago and now survive only within ancient legends. Yet Medith considers a surviving dragon likelier than a spirit-speaking human. Medith admits that certain humans possess peculiar traits and strange eccentricities. Still, no human has ever demonstrated an ability to communicate with spirits. Only elves possess the spiritual connection required for such direct communication. Ileana announces that she must leave the village for some time. She has awaited someone capable of rescuing the village from its curse. Davy questions why 4 days of work finished within half a day. His field aide explains that every worker has become devoted to Davy. They desperately want to repay the kindness their lord has shown them. Davy cannot complain because this dedication produced his desired result. Still, he knows such enthusiasm cannot remain sustainable over the long term. Production of lunar buds soon begins in earnest across the territory. With watchmen assisting, they establish the first plantations throughout the fields. Skeptical murmurs quickly start circulating among residents across Davy's territory. Their doubts leave Davy questioning whether these plants can truly grow there. After all, lunar buds require up to 5 months to mature. Spirit power is also essential if the flowers are ever to bloom. Fortunately, Davy intends to sell only leaves, not the entire plants. Monmeter warns Davy that they lack proper lunar plant cultivation skills. The harvested leaves are already beginning to dry out slowly. Davy confidently predicts that approaching rain will resolve their difficulties. Several days pass without rain while the temperature keeps rising instead. The worsening heat naturally makes the increasingly anxious workers fear failure. Even so, Davy keeps the entire situation firmly under control. Across 4 months, he manipulates both temperature and climate however he desires. His careful climate control removes every concern surrounding the lunar crops. News soon spreads that Davy's territory is successfully cultivating lunar plants. Nobles also learn that Davy personally leads this unusual agricultural experiment. Sage Harris, master of the Red Mage Tower, joins their discussion. Harris asks whether they mean the territory cursed 5 years earlier. A young observer reports that rain has apparently returned to that region. He believes the returning rain proves that the curse has been broken. A skeptical noblewoman argues that the land remains hopelessly barren regardless. She estimates prosperity would require at least another 10 years of recovery. The noblewoman notes that its current lord is the kingdom's eldest prince. She claims Davy must have lost his mind after being exiled there. Harris's tower aide confirms that the prince under discussion is Davy. Harris promptly orders the tower aide to remain silent about Davy. Their tower gained access to this valuable information ahead of everyone else. Anything interesting developing in the east could become extremely useful to them. With that decided, Harris orders the tower aide to begin preparations. Davy surveys a beautiful spiritual flower garden covering once cursed barren ground. Limited seed supplies mean they barely manage to recover their production expenses. Fortunately, the number of lunar leaves being sold continues to rise. Amy reports that their present stock contains almost 20,000 leaves. Another 10,000 leaves remain in the fields, already prepared for harvesting. Davy knows 4 lunar leaves currently sell for 100 won. Thus, 10,000 leaves equal 250,000 won. That total also corresponds to 5,000 platinum denomination won units. For perspective, 1 won coin supports an ordinary family for 2 weeks. 5 such coins cover an entire month with money still remaining. Unlike the spiritual stones, Davy publicly offers these leaves as merchandise. He deliberately spreads rumors portraying himself as nothing more than an idiot. Believing those rumors, outsiders show little interest in disrupting his operations. Persilk warns Davy that this deceptive tactic will never succeed twice. In response, Davy calmly tells Persilk that they must exploit this opening now, since every other preparation is complete. Davy also believes those preparations can captivate the entire continent. Lunar leaves reach the market no more than twice each month. Even those rare shipments cannot satisfy demand across 2 continents. These leaves are the main ingredient in magical and alchemical catalysts. Churches also depend upon them when producing their vital potions. Nearby availability should consequently sound like wonderful news to every buyer. Alongside the enormous shipment, Davy releases one more calculated rumor. Word spreads that Davy, who is developing this trade, lies bedridden. Davy accepts this deception as an unavoidable evil. Scarcity keeps expensive goods costly, while increased supply can slash prices. Selling without restraint would inevitably send lunar leaf prices crashing. To preserve their value, Davy decides to manufacture an artificial shortage. Once sales resume, that scarcity lets him demand any price he chooses. Amid this scheme, an angry crowd packs the space outside Davy's gate. After only several days of rumors, the whole region plunges into chaos. Merchant groups, organizations, and priests all arrive demanding clear answers. Amy says she reported Davy bedridden, yet everyone insists upon seeing merchandise. Davy concludes that ignoring this pressure is no longer possible. During a staff meeting, Davy questions Monmeter about territorial security. Monmeter and the staff say every security post needs additional workers. Handling this flood of visitors simultaneously has become extremely difficult. Davy orders the immediate expulsion of anyone who behaves suspiciously. His leverage means he need not indulge every demanding visitor. Still, Davy must preserve workable relationships with all these groups. Next, Davy asks whether any rooms remain at the inns. Monmatter reports every inn full, despite opening vacant houses to guests. Even those extra rooms fail to accommodate the overwhelming numbers. Davy proposes turning their purchased tents into a temporary camp. He tells the butler to charge campers fairly, without excessive rates. Before Monmatter departs, Davy requests a conversation in private. Davy displays a potion vial and says they must discuss it. Later, Monmatter visits an inn where his men are gathered. His men invite Monmatter to remain and share their drinks. Claiming he needs rest, Monmatter instead retires to his room. He stretches across the bed and admits feeling utterly exhausted. His packed schedule runs through Monmatter's aching mind. Morning treatment with Barris comes first, followed by afternoon troop training. Now Davy's governess also subjects Monmatter to etiquette lessons. The burden feels unmanageable after a lifetime without comparable work. Monmatter has never faced so many duties during his entire life. Just as sleep seems possible, a visitor requests an audience with Monmatter. The visitor apologizes for intruding and introduces himself as Harris. Harris identifies himself as a 4th grade specialist from the Green Tower. He says certain matters require a direct discussion with Monmatter. Harris praises Monmatter's flawless administration despite the cramped area's massive crowds. Davy is fortunate to have someone so capable beside him, Harris adds. Monmatter brushes off the praise, calling himself an insignificant knight. Harris then directly asks for help securing a meeting with Davy. Visitors cannot enter Davy's close quarters, leaving Harris without access. Monmatter explains that relentless work has left Davy seriously ill. Until Davy recovers, no visitors can receive an audience. Business must remain secondary because Davy's health matters more. Harris says he understands Monmatter's reasons for refusing his request. Yet the Green Tower, Harris insists, cannot afford any delay. He sets a bag packed with money and precious stones on the table. Monmatter immediately refuses, stating that he never accepts bribes. Harris reframes the payment as a gift, requiring nothing in exchange. He says Monmatter's friendship is the only thing he desires. Monmatter admits that lavish gifts like this are unfamiliar to him. Harris urges acceptance as proper compensation for Monmatter's relentless labor. Such wealth means little to Harris and will never be missed. He trusts Monmatter to put the money toward worthwhile purposes. Yet Monmatter entered this encounter already prepared for exactly such tactics. Everything is unfolding precisely as Davy predicted, Monmatter thinks. During their private talk, Davy calls Mumdare his right-hand man. Davy warns that people will soon attempt to corrupt Monmatter's loyalty. Some will offer bribes while others will apply pressure. Davy instructs Monmatter to select those schemers carefully and discreetly. Monmatter must accept every bribe and pretend to cooperate with them. Afterward, he must expose each person trying to turn him against Davy. Davy also asks Monmatter to fake assistance and display one special item. Davy identifies it as a magically treated potion costing 101 per vial. He forbids Monmatter from selling it and only wants the subordinates gossiping. Their conversation should spread knowledge of the potion throughout the region. Davy's true goal is maximizing the product's value before its serious release. Restricting the supply locally should keep regional stock available much longer. Back in the captain's quarters, Monmatter presents that same vial to Harris. Monmatter calls it a manufactured raw material nearing commercial release. Harris immediately judges the potion as unquestionably top tier. He has never encountered such extraordinary quality before. Harris believes nothing comparable exists anywhere else in Korea. Privately, Harris decides securing priority matters, regardless of cost. Monmatter notices that one glance already leaves Harris deeply impressed. He says Davy worked relentlessly to achieve this quality. Every batch missing the standard gets discarded and turned into fertilizer. Another 10,000 acceptable units are already prepared for sale. Harris calculates that 20,000 grams produced merely 10,000 usable units. That means exactly half of the original output was discarded. For a 17-year-old lord, Davy's decision seems startlingly bold. Harris decides he cannot allow this opportunity to escape. Monmatter adds that Davy will auction current stock, then continue production. Expecting buyer priority, Harris asks whether favorable arrangements will follow. Monmatter claims he knows nothing further about Davy's sales arrangements. Harris says that information suffices and promises a Green Tower reward. Harris then leaves Monmatter behind and exits the captain's quarters. Alone, Monmatter marvels at how perfectly Davy's scheme worked. The next day, Monmatter reports every detail directly to Davy. Davy explains that certain responses are remarkably easy to predict. Greed still keeps everyone there firmly within its grasp. Davy merely displayed desirable goods to lure wealthy customers. Monmatter reveals receiving bribes from representatives of several other regions. Davy tells Monmatter to keep all that money for himself. Davy neither cares nor questions how Monmatter spends it. Monmatter earned those payments by successfully carrying out Davy's strategy. Davy already takes most profits generated by leaf production. Letting Monmatter retain the bribe money costs Davy little. More importantly, Davy wants Monmatter remaining close beside him. Persilk asks whether Davy can withstand those much larger factions. Davy answers yes, since spreading rumors will attract long-term agreements. Tower branches and alchemist groups will seek bases within the region. The once empty territory will become crowded, active, and prosperous. Both revenue and population should rise alongside that transformation. Davy privately credits the ancient curse with preserving this territory for him. Now Davy only needs to handle the territory's new administration. Linus later tells Red Tower Master Harris about rival towers' investment plans. Those towers intend to send both money and relocated personnel into Seoul. Unsure whether his faction should follow, Linus asks Harris for guidance. Harris replies that elder status has not cured Linus's excessive caution. Harris says mistakes are natural and trusts Linus to choose correctly. Linus argues that auctioning goods makes little sense for a regional lord. Even while seeking investment, direct sales would generate greater profits. An auction seemingly allows Davy to undervalue his own merchandise deliberately. Linus cannot understand the purpose behind such a strategy. Unknown to Linus, Davy secretly sells directly into Western markets. Harris, unlike Linus, suspects Davy is far cleverer than appearances suggest. Harris notes that the small Seoul region likely contains few residents. Those residents can only purchase goods actually sold inside their region. Davy is accelerating growth while conserving as much money as possible. The area's position between major trade routes offers powerful geographic advantages. Incoming towers and regional branches could turn Seoul into a commercial hub. Harris says limiting production prevents factions from purchasing huge quantities. Otherwise, those groups could resell everything to consumers at inflated prices. Davy's strategy gathers maximum funds quickly while preparing for the future. Davy behaves as though existing risks leave him nothing to lose. That attitude suggests leaf production is merely Davy's opening move. Harris believes Davy has many more offerings waiting beyond it. Harris doubts he is the only observer noticing this potential. Even if Davy bluffs, the arrangement still leaves him ahead. Linus then decides what sort of relationship he wants with Davy. Linus concludes that meeting Davy as soon as possible is essential. Harris says he shares that desire as well. Harris asks Linus to arrange a meeting with Davy. Once their conversation ends, Harris recalls Ileana's troubling question. Could a young man with barely detectable mana kill an elite vampire? Could he truly accomplish that with only one attack? Ileana has carried this doubt since her last encounter with Davy. She sought Harris's wisdom, hoping he could explain the mystery. Davy also wielded a borrowed sword without contracting its guardian. That impossible feat only deepens Ileana's suspicions surrounding him. Harris concludes such a victory remains possible under rare conditions. The young man would need to be the sword god's disciple. Otherwise, he might actually be the sword god himself. Combined with everything known about Davy, the clues finally align. Later, housing applications start piling up throughout Davy's territory. Land purchases near the village also surge, with buyers fighting over plots. Desperate for a solution, Amy asks Davy how to settle everything. He instructs her to auction the disputed properties publicly. Whoever offers the most won will receive the property. Dwayne then asks how high the opening price should be. Davy orders him to begin at the highest plausible value. He has always heard that truly wealthy people own enormous estates. To Davy, managing land is business, so profits must be maximized. As Amy leaves, she reports a letter from the royal palace. Amy later opens the public auction with a 91 bid. One competitor outbids it, but a green-robed mage immediately counters. A delegate from the alchemy school then pushes the price higher. Those factions have fought over this same plot from the beginning. Turning it into an auction only makes their rivalry burn hotter. Every new bid leaves both sides looking ready to brawl. Amy announces the current offer has reached 131. Without another raise, she will award the land at that price. Harris's final offer appears to have secured the contested property. During the auction's final second, another bidder steps forward and tops it. Davy then learns a trading group accepted 151 per flask. He credits the deal to the strategy developed with Manhwa. Every auctioned home sells as quickly as property in Seoul's developing districts. Davy is pleased that both ventures have produced handsome profits. At this rate, yearly revenue will approach 1,500,000 won. That income would make Davy's territory Korea's wealthiest region. He wants leaf production maintained without increasing the current quantity. Davy also plans to clear land for cultivating other products. In his view, excess ruins anything, regardless of its value. He must preserve the proper balance between supply and demand. Davy orders his workers to tear down every unusable structure. Buildings still functioning should be repaired instead of discarded. A sweeping renovation of the territory will begin soon. In private, Davy considers the royal letter he received. It praises accomplishments that his own country and continent ignored. The palace also promises him a reward matching those achievements. Claiming it requires Davy Davy to make a formal return visit. Once finished, Davy promptly feeds the palace letter to Flames. He cannot believe their audacity after they banished him. Davy suspects the Marquis has been causing trouble during his absence. This message likely serves as a request for a temporary truce. Yet the royal seal does not carry the king's stamp. Despite that discrepancy, Davy decides to make the visit anyway. The moment has arrived to advance his plan. Soul also lies along the route toward his next destination. An old memory returns Davy to lessons from his Forge Master. The Forge Master built a secret dungeon beneath his final residence. Death approached before he could finish constructing the hidden complex. He asked Davy to complete it in his name if discovered. With that dungeon, Davy could pursue anything he wished. Davy could reveal it publicly or sell it to the highest bidder. At the time, Davy feared the assignment exceeded his abilities. The Forge Master called Davy even more stubborn than himself. Even so, he trusted Davy to carry the burden. Once completed, the creation would belong to Davy for any purpose. Back home, Dwayne insists on sending an escort for the journey. Davy refuses because he intends to travel entirely alone. Before departing, he asks Dwayne to watch over Amy. Dwayne must prevent her from overworking and ensure she rests properly. Dwayne says teaching Amy has become surprisingly enjoyable. She is not merely a baron's daughter, but also exceptionally intelligent. Dwayne has come to regard her like his own granddaughter. Reassured that his friend is safe, Davy can leave peacefully. With everything settled, Davy finally departs on his journey. Partway down the road, Persilk notices something. Persilk notices Davy leaving the planned route and questions the detour. She asks whether Davy intends to take some hidden shortcut. Davy explains that another destination must precede the Royal Road. The Royal Road itself is renowned as a popular tourist attraction. His chosen destination is among the Round Kingdom's few magnificent historic sites. The entire alliance cooperates to preserve and research this remarkable place. After all, the Velashad region was once Blacksmith Searcher's hometown. Davy knows Persil grew up as Harris's daughter. He suspects she must have encountered Searcher sometime during her upbringing. Persil confirms it, recalling something Searcher often said about Velashad. Supposedly, its structures share materials with the Holy Sword calderas. Hearing that, Persilk assumes Velashad must be an extraordinary destination. Davy disagrees because Searcher's ownership ended several thousand years ago. Today, the entire region belongs to Queen Lannis instead. Worse still, Velashad teams with Variadas, all hostile toward Davy. He must enter disguised, since recognition could create a dangerous confrontation. Davy joins the entrance line and presents carefully forged identification. According to those documents, he is merely a mercenary named Davy. Considerable effort went into constructing this convincing new identity. As long as nobody recognizes his face, Davy expects no trouble. Unfortunately, a guard stops him directly at the entrance. The guard mentions Davy's intention to investigate the newly discovered labyrinth. He then warns Davy against meddling and throws him off the site. Caught off guard, Davy wonders what exactly is happening here. Frustration leaves him staring silently toward the entrance, deep in thought. Even by noble territory standards, Davy finds this place appallingly managed. A gray-haired elder approaches and guesses Davy comes from far away. Otherwise, Davy would already understand the region's present circumstances. The gray-haired elder points toward another person waiting to enter. That visitor quietly passes a bribe to the guards overseeing the queue. According to the gray-haired elder, bribery is the only entrance method. Davy recalls that several years have passed since the laws changed. Under those reforms, bribes should no longer exist anywhere in the kingdom. The gray-haired elder remarks that Davy's gaze has become frighteningly cold. He hands Davy something and instructs him to offer it outside. Though modest, the item should provide enough leverage for Davy's admission. The gray-haired elder also advises him against inviting pointless trouble. Davy resembles his grandson, which explains the gray-haired elder's kindness. Grateful for that generosity, Davy gives the gray-haired elder several coins. Davy understands the guards are not truly seeking ordinary money. Armed with that knowledge, he approaches the entrance guards once more. Davy declares that collecting money from citizens is plainly illegal. Only processing fees attached to large-scale purchases receive legal exemption. The guards scoff, dismissing Davy as nothing more than a naive child. Mockingly, they ask what Davy intends to do about their conduct. Davy offers them one final opportunity to redeem themselves. Taking it would also spare them punishment beneath the kingdom's laws. He orders them to return every payment and confess their crimes. The guards erupt in laughter after hearing Davy's solemn demand. Even Davy feels slightly embarrassed, though this remains standard procedure. Their chief suddenly levels his sword directly at Davy. He claims nobody would care if Davy died on the spot. The chief warns Davy to stop interfering with their business. Unshaken, Davy asks whether becoming an outlaw genuinely bothers him. The chief replies that his group represents the law here. Besides, their actions supposedly follow Duke Varietta's direct orders. As the chief prepares to strike, the gray-haired elder interrupts. He argues that Davy is only a boy undeserving of punishment. Irritated, the chief redirects his weapon toward the interfering gray-haired elder. Davy immediately intervenes and strips the sword from the chief's grasp. Attacking a defenseless elder, he says, is even baser than bribery. Threatening a kingdom citizen also amounts to robbing the nation itself. Davy claims the chief's sword and announces an appropriate punishment awaits. After handling the chief, Davy extends that sentence to every accomplice. He warns the remaining guards against making matters needlessly harder. Davy orders them to report everything that happened to their superior. Rather than obey, the remaining guards close ranks around Davy. Davy observes that they have selected the most difficult possible resolution. Their offenses could bring penalties upon 3 generations of their families. Still refusing to retreat, the guards force Davy into attacking them. Despite retaliating, Davy offers them one final opportunity. He commands them to summon their chief before something far worse occurs. A newly arrived official demands an explanation for the surrounding commotion. Davy tosses an identification pendant toward him and issues a warning. The official must consider his next action with extreme care. Viscount Garetta recognizes the pendant as proof of Davy's princely identity. He instantly drops to his knees before Davy and begins pleading. Still kneeling, the Viscount begs forgiveness and blames the region's inactivity. Davy counters that the 1000-day and night market makes this region an alliance treasure. Such importance makes the Viscount's excuse impossible for Davy to believe. The Viscount protests, saying Davy never announced any investigation beforehand. He argues that acting without notice amounts to abusing royal authority. Davy asks whether the area's overseer demands to see official authorization. Irritated, the Viscount answers yes and invokes the powerful local duke. He insists the duke would never overlook such improper treatment. Davy sees that the Viscount intends to obstruct him deliberately. This state dominates the region, frightening even inspectors into avoiding their duties. Retaliation from its rulers evidently keeps honest scrutiny safely away. Sensing an opening, the Viscount tries flattering Davy with polished words. Davy instead asks whether he has heard the latest rumors. The Viscount admits he has no idea what Davy means. With chilling bluntness, Davy declares that he is currently bloodthirsty. Davy kills the Viscount, then calls his final speech utterly wasted. Later, the old driver guides a cart while speaking with Davy. 10 years earlier, he says the entire area lived peacefully. That peace ended when a royal baron died. Refugees began flooding into the region after the baron's death. Exploitation soon spread, while anyone supporting the outsiders faced punishment. The old driver reveals that this persecution cost his son's life. Davy understands why the old driver chose to help him. He had reminded the grieving father of his son, not grandson. Davy says that son sounds kind-hearted, judging from everything described. Their cart eventually reaches the marked location they were seeking. Davy announces finding the ruins marking the historic 1000-day and night market. The old driver worries whether everything remains safe after the earlier violence. Davy replies that the local duke barely watches this area. Gratefully, the old driver thanks Davy for rescuing him from the guards. He also thanks Davy for finally avenging his murdered son. The old driver now considers himself deeply indebted to Davy. Davy requests nothing except that he continue living an upright life. They exchange farewells, and Purcell calls the old driver's story sorrowful. Davy agrees, yet promises that circumstances will improve from this point. He feels his actions have created meaningful change throughout the region. Inside the ancient ruins, their preserved beauty immediately enchants Davy. He climbs higher and surveys the entire surrounding landscape from above. Davy never expected this much of the site to remain intact. Intrigued by its condition, he decides to record several observations. Purcell considers searching pointless because excavators already combed these ruins. Davy admits it appears wasteful, but insists something remains undiscovered. A hidden cryptogram soon catches Davy's attention across the sprawling site. Purcell cannot understand what such a cryptogram actually means. Davy explains that the site's design encodes a concealed secret. Only someone deciphering that code can locate what its maker hid. Viewing everything from overhead allows Davy to distinguish deliberate patterns. The ancient blacksmith created this code long ago to guard his secret. Skilled people once could decipher it, but none remain today. Davy believes he alone now possesses the knowledge required. Nobody else can uncover the site's authentic treasure, in his estimation. Every clue indicates the encoded location contains something genuinely intriguing. Davy identifies an entrance concealed beneath a central anvil. Opening it requires someone to provide a special password. He suspects the ancient blacksmith prepared a will for his people. That will promises his whole fortune to whoever discovers his legacy. The thought makes Davy feel like some legendary pirate ruler. Davy opens the secret dungeon passage and studies its elaborate construction. Its creator clearly invested tremendous labor into every underground detail. Magic reinforces the structure against crushing pressure from the surrounding earth. A separate oxygen source also lets visitors breathe safely inside. Davy imagines accomplishing all this must have been extraordinarily difficult. Without knowing the ancient blacksmith, Davy might never have uncovered it. The hidden complex otherwise could have remained buried forever. Deeper inside, Davy finally discovers something awaiting them. Purcell observes that this place resembles a residence, not a dungeon. Davy remembers the ancient blacksmith proudly calling himself obsessed with forging. He built this refuge immediately following Harris's death. Thereafter, he devoted his remaining lifetime to one solitary project. He continued working on it until drawing his final breath. Although his mortal body perished, every possession remains exactly where placed. Among these untouched rooms, Persilk discovers a chamber resembling an altar. Davy suspects the ancient blacksmith revered some unidentified deity of forging. Approaching the altar, Davy accidentally triggers a dormant mechanism. Powerful magic erupts from the chest preserved within the chamber. Persilk has never witnessed someone's consciousness manifest with such overwhelming force. Davy's system instantly issues an alert warning of imminent danger. Davy knows he earned the 1000-day blacksmith title through relentless labor. He forged without resting for 1000 consecutive days. Yet his fellow dwarves know him by an entirely different name. That other name is the Devil Blacksmith, feared far beyond ordinary forges. Ordinary smiths merely boast about hammering metal with overwhelming physical force. Raltus instead channels mana, surpassing every boundary imposed by conventional forging. He breaks through every personal limit until others recognize him as a hero. Despite leaving his final work unfinished, Raltus entrusts its completion to Davy. Davy opens Raltus's waiting chest and discovers two extraordinary weapons inside. One is a nameless crimson sword made to exterminate every living being. The other is a blue sword holding dominion over the dead. Although they are twins, Raltus never finished either blade. Reading their statuses, Davy sees their true powers have not fully manifested. Persilk suspects the earlier cries probably came from these two weapons. Davy agrees, explaining both are living swords like the Holy Sword. Such unusual craftsmanship feels exactly like something Raltus would create. Raltus's greatest creation is the Holy Sword, forged using Harris's physical essence. Yet these twins were made differently, without any intended master. Raltus never selected one particular person to wield either weapon. That leaves both swords responsible for finding suitable masters themselves. Persilk remarks that neither weapon appears unfinished to her. Davy knows appearances are misleading because their final refinements remain undone. Completing those refinements requires fire burning far hotter than ordinary flames. Only the Dwarven Forge possesses flames powerful enough for that task. Davy leaves the area and sets off in another direction. A roadside guide directs him toward the plaza along the main road. Following that route should bring the desired plaza into view very soon. Davy thanks the roadside guide and resumes his journey. Along the way, Davy asks Persilk about his royal summons. Persilk explains that Davy's new business has become extremely profitable. As the letter states, the kingdom intends to reward his success. Within several months, Davy earned more than the kingdom makes yearly. His enormous tax payments have caught every powerful official's attention. Those leaders will likely pressure Davy into nationalizing his profitable business. That decision would make the entire kingdom considerably wealthier. Persilk knows Davy already understands every motive behind the summons. He only asked because the long journey was becoming boring. Davy remained surprised that his venture attracted attention across the continent. Still, its massive economic impact makes that attention perfectly understandable. Davy eventually reaches his homeland, where Chief Chamberlain Patrice welcomes him. He remarks that far too much time has passed since their meeting. Patrice replies that Davy has grown in both height and stature. His successful ventures have elevated him far beyond mere physical growth. Davy credits Heaven's blessing and says he simply uses it wisely. Changing subjects, Patrice reports that important books were stolen from the palace. The theft enraged the king and triggered brutal consequences for everyone involved. Every connected noble has lost their title and now faces imminent execution. Patrice adds that the king has already retired for the night. Davy should wait until tomorrow if he wishes to meet him. Even with Marquis Raltus at the center of the gathered evidence, doubts remain. Davy concludes such sweeping progress still required the king's direct involvement. The king had evidently restrained himself until deciding to strike all at once. Lost in those thoughts, Davy accidentally bumps into someone. Barris has deliberately appeared there to see him. The reunion displeases Davy, yet Barris clearly wants a private conversation. Davy asks Patrice to leave them alone despite Patrice's visible concern. Patrice reluctantly follows Davy's order and withdraws from the area. Barris accuses Davy of growing arrogant after one successful business venture. He warns Davy against pride, insisting success came through sheer luck. Barris claims any commoner in Davy's position would have performed better. Davy retorts that only deep envy could inspire such face-to-face spite. Davy calls Barris an idiot who accomplishes nothing without consulting his mother. Enraged, Barris calls Davy insane for insulting him, then launches an attack. Davy shoves him away and declares Barris the truly crazed one. He says Barris is delusional because courtiers flatter only his position. Without that rank, Barris would never possess such a swollen ego. Davy contrasts this with achievements earned entirely through his own efforts. Barris received everything on a silver platter and never strove for anything. Furious, Barris lunges at Davy for a second time. Davy thinks a smarter Barris would never have fired that arrow 6 years ago. The memory irritates Davy just enough to change his response. Rather than evade again, Davy meets the attack with a counterblow. His counter sends Barris crashing hard onto the ground. Davy does not stop there and continues speaking over the fallen Barris. Davy warns that Barris's insults also disgrace the king. He notes Barris constantly calls Davy a con, yet half of Barris's blood comes from the kingdom's most important man. Davy uses that point to subdue Barris even further. Still dissatisfied, Barris rises and tries standing his ground. Davy casually flicks Barris directly across the forehead. The tiny strike makes Barris cry aloud in pain. Blood streaking his face, Barris furiously threatens Davy. Davy asks whether Barris still has not suffered enough. Barris flees while swearing he will eventually take revenge. Persilk asks whether Davy has punished the Brazen Prince enough. Smiling ominously, Davy says he was only playing with Barris. Startled, Persilk understands that Davy actually enjoyed hurting him. She warns Davy never to laugh that way around others again. Such a frightening expression could easily scare anyone nearby. Davy considers it nothing more than an unnoticed bad habit. He then reveals that Barris now carries an incurable curse. Not even magic can remove what Davy placed. Persilk immediately asks what Davy has done to him. Davy calls it a simple gift for his beloved brother. Everyone will see that gift during tomorrow's meeting. The next day, the kingdom's nobles assemble inside the royal hall. They debate how best to profit from Davy's business earnings. Throughout their discussion, the king has yet to speak. Persilk notices they discuss Davy without involving him whatsoever. Their behavior makes his presence in the hall seem meaningless. Petrus is absent, though he alone has shown Davy genuine empathy. Unlike Petrus, the other nobles appear interested solely in money. His absence leaves Persilk worried about the kingdom's future direction. Davy casually considers opening a restaurant as his next venture. He has heard food and water businesses produce the greatest profits. Still, Davy admits he possesses no experience running such businesses. The king finally interrupts the nobles and addresses Davy's reward. He insists Davy deserves compensation before they make any decisions. After all, Davy brought these blessings upon the entire kingdom. The king formally thanks Davy on behalf of every citizen. Davy responds that he has merely fulfilled his duty. Even so, the king praises his greatest achievement in 10 years. He promises to grant Davy anything the prince requests. Davy knows nobody present truly intends to provide a meaningful reward. Claiming no request comes to mind, Davy asks for time. The king praises that wise choice and grants him unlimited time. Once again, the nobles resume discussing the lunar plant venture. They argue over whether investing in it is truly worthwhile. Watching them, Persilk says matters look worse than she imagined. Among the assembled nobles, the leading duke finally speaks up. He insists they must first verify one crucial matter. Everyone's excitement has made them overlook the venture's basic details. Although revolutionary, the business cannot become national property without Davy's consent. The royalist duke argues that nobody stands above the royal family. The leading duke asks whether he would surrender everything for the kingdom. The royalist duke's silence makes his obvious answer perfectly clear. Thus, the leading duke declares that Davy alone must decide everything. Nobody else possesses any right to interfere with his business. Persilk happily tells Davy that someone is finally supporting him. Davy understands the leading duke's intentions are not that simple. The leading duke warns that forced nationalization would provoke serious resistance. Under such conditions, nobody would ever choose to become an entrepreneur. Davy remarks that the leading duke clearly has more to say. Confirming Davy's suspicion, the leading duke proposes using a mediator. Such assistance would greatly help resolve their current complicated situation. He then produces a letter sent by the Holy Kingdom's high priest. The letter requests Davy's presence so they can examine his manifested stigma. After verification, the Holy Kingdom intends to grant Davy sainthood. The skeptical duke calls the request absurd and rejects sending Davy. Another noble argues they cannot overrule the Holy Kingdom's decisions. After all, its people directly serve their revered deity. The skeptical duke counters that their kingdom answers to nobody else. Sending Davy there would resemble presenting him as tribute. Davy says everyone is thinking far too deeply about this. Recognition of his stigma should not cause anything especially significant. The leading duke argues that Davy fails to see everything involved. As royalty, Davy also carries obligations he cannot simply ignore. Their kingdom gains nothing by provoking the powerful Holy Kingdom. For that reason, the leading duke recommends accepting their request. The nobles then ask what would happen to Davy's current business. The leading duke begins explaining the unfortunate consequences of Davy becoming a saint. By law, sainthood would bar Davy from governing his own territory. A new lord would consequently need appointment over Davy's lands. Hearing this, the nobles grasp the leading duke's scheme and voice agreement. Davy also sees their greedy intentions, making this turn far more interesting. The leading duke calls Davy's territory the kingdom's most strategically important region. Such a crucial domain, he insists, cannot be entrusted to anybody. Only one suitable candidate comes to the leading duke's mind. The leading duke nominates Barris, the second prince, to govern during Davy's absence. Davy finds the proposal sensible because Barris is the leading duke's grandson. With Barris installed, the leading duke could privatize Davy's business and claim its profits. Davy knows the other nobles likewise want pieces of his business. Barris then enters the royal hall before the assembled court. Barris kneels before the king, ensuring everyone, including his older brother Davy, watches. For reasons Barris cannot understand, he behaves bizarrely before the royal gathering. Whenever Barris tries speaking, only animal noises escape his mouth. Instead of earning praise, Barris suffers humiliation at the worst possible moment. Persilk finally understands Davy's trick from the previous night. Davy remarks that Persilk is laughing far too much. The leading duke finds nothing funny and rebukes Barris during this vital meeting. Barris attempts to explain, but each sentence becomes another animal imitation. Unable to control himself, Barris can no longer conceal his shame. The furious king refuses another word and orders guards to remove Barris. The king also places Barris on indefinite probation, allowing no appeal. Barris continues protesting, only deepening his humiliation before everyone. Barris's disgrace also tarnishes every member of his family. During the forced removal, Barris's hat suddenly tumbles from his head. Everyone gasps at the shocking sight hidden underneath. Famous for his long hair, Barris has somehow become bald overnight. Barris wore the hat to conceal it, but everyone now knows. Davy immediately argues Barris lacks the maturity to govern Davy's territory. The leading duke grows intensely irritated by this devastating interruption. Davy then asks whether the leading duke's rank surpasses the king's. Seeing the leading duke's astonishment, Davy asks whether this kingdom belongs to him. The leading duke denies it, claiming Davy has misunderstood his intentions. He insists every action he takes serves the kingdom's welfare. Davy asks why the leading duke possesses a holy kingdom letter unseen by the king. Davy also questions why the leading duke secretly supports the nobles while feigning neutrality. Such deception, Davy declares, makes the leading duke's words impossible to trust. Cornered, the leading duke asks what Davy is suggesting. Davy accuses the leading duke of selling their country at the Holy Kingdom's request. Davy says the leading duke also planned to exploit this opening and seize his business. Davy calls him no different from the other nobles and offers a solution. The king asks Davy what course of action he proposes. Davy replies that every inhabitant of the Holy Kingdom remains human. Davy adds that even the high priest does not stand above the king. Davy next activates a crystal ball and establishes a remote connection. An administrative priest from the Holy Kingdom appears through the crystal. Davy apologizes for the sudden contact and asks whether the Pope decided their earlier matter. Even before hearing the response, Davy knows Holy Lands still depend upon human business. Although the high priest holds influence, Davy contacted the Pope, their highest authority. The administrative priest testifies the high priest schemed alone, without papal blessing. The administrative priest promises such unauthorized conduct will never happen again. The high priest's letter becomes worthless as the royal meeting concludes. Alone afterward, Davy thanks the administrative priest for his assistance. The administrative priest says bringing Davy there would not necessarily harm them. Still, they never seriously considered requesting Davy's relocation to the Holy Kingdom. Over time, moving Davy offers little benefit because he remains more useful here. Davy warned the Pope that his absence would halt the plant's cultivation. The Pope has no desire to let that happen. Davy also promised the Holy Kingdom a special shipment. The administrative priest thanks Davy for offering such generous cooperation. He says the Pope hopes to continue purchasing large quantities. Davy knows there is nothing remotely sacred about this arrangement. The deal is purely materialistic, yet Davy remains entirely unconcerned. After all, Davy created this business from the beginning to earn profits. As long as buyers pay, Davy is perfectly willing to sell. Davy simply wants to make some good, easy money. Ultimately, Davy only cares about producing favorable results. Spotting an opening, Davy contacts Amy through his crystal ball. Amy tearfully begs for help until Dwayne interrupts their conversation. Dwayne warns Amy that she must never display such weakness. Dwayne apologizes for the interruption and says home remains under control. Davy reports the meeting ended well and promises to return to Hines soon. Dwayne says the guests now reside inside temporary tents. He has also secured construction permits, allowing work to begin soon. Yet the planned infrastructure upgrades present a serious obstacle. Dwayne doubts every requested project can be completed created within the available time. Although Davy revived the territory, Heinz itself remains trapped in the past. Its local technology has fallen woefully behind modern standards. Dwayne estimates the entire plan would require 10 to 20 years. This particular problem cannot be solved by money alone. Davy has plenty of wealth but nowhere useful to spend it. He decides the moment has arrived for his second venture. Davy plans to harness the continent's greatest engineers and their technology. He has already prepared an offer they cannot possibly reject. In essence, Davy intends to exchange corn for diamonds. Nothing makes better merchandise than huge returns paired with minimal risk. The valuable trade goods Davy has in mind are rocks. Later, Davy travels directly into the Yellow Rock tribe's territory. This dwarven village stands within the kingdom's distant northern region. Dwarves are commonly called little engineers because of their exceptional abilities. Their strength exceeds humanity's, while their bodies endure tremendous heat. Such qualities make dwarves nearly perfect for demanding engineering work. Elves remain legendary beings, but dwarves maintain limited contact with humans. Their interest in other races seldom reaches beyond commercial dealings. Only nobles and royal representatives usually interact directly with dwarven communities. The king rewards Davy with rank sufficient to enter a dwarven tribe. Rather than asking to become king, Davy chooses this different path. Without that specific privilege, the dwarves would never receive him so readily. After all, dwarves are notoriously difficult people to handle. The king and nobles react warily when Davy requests this privilege. Offending the dwarves could permanently close their doors to human visitors. Davy insists he understands, which is precisely why he wants this reward. Despite everyone's skepticism, he confidently promises to pass through their gates. Persilk recalls every noble sharing one thought during that request. They all wonder what Davy could possibly attempt next. Several soldiers accompany Davy to monitor his expedition among the dwarves. Their suspicions are correct about one particularly important detail. Davy indeed plans something enormous behind this carefully watched expedition. His scheme could place the nobles in a painfully difficult position. Reaching the Yellow Rock tribe, Davy's herald formally announces his arrival. The herald then requests permission for the prince's party to enter. A gate sentinel admits he has never seen Davy previously. Davy formally introduces himself and promises an utterly irresistible proposal. One glance at Davy's carriage reveals exactly what cargo it carries. The gate sentinel immediately understands that Davy is not bluffing. Still, the tribe currently faces a serious internal problem. Because of that crisis, they cannot participate in any agreement. The gate sentinel nevertheless permits Davy to enter the village. He orders everyone to continue on foot and leave their horses outside. Inside the village, the gate sentinel says an elder will receive Davy. He soon guides Davy toward the elder's private quarters. Davy finds the small interior surprisingly warm and comfortable. The tribe's 8th elder waits alone for Davy inside. One glance tells Davy that the 8th elder dislikes conversation today. Davy finds the presence of only one leader rather strange. He knows several dwarves normally share responsibility for governing the tribe. Davy decides introductions should come before any potentially awkward questions. He delivers an exceptionally formal introduction to the 8th elder. Davy even uses the traditional greeting dwarves exchange among themselves. The 8th elder responds with clear surprise at Davy's gesture. He believed humans knew nothing about proper dwarven greetings. The 8th elder concludes that Davy must be an honorable human. Such respectful visitors are rare, so he invites Davy to sit. He explains that every other elder is currently occupied elsewhere. That leaves the 8th elder alone inside the meeting room. Speaking directly, he notes that dwarven agreements usually happen outside the village. The 8th elder then asks what has motivated Davy's unusual visit. Davy explains that official trading remains several months away. He has not come for standard commerce, but for personal requests. Davy also brings gifts, including meat, beer, and other provisions. The 8th elder appreciates humans who demonstrate proper respect toward dwarves. Above everything else, he admits that he particularly loves beer. Sadly, the tribe's difficult situation prevents handling any outside demands. The 8th elder also refuses to reveal further details about their problem. Since Davy traveled so far, the 8th elder permits several days of rest. Still, any trouble will earn Davy immediate expulsion from the village. The 8th elder then leaves Davy alone in his quarters. Seizing the chance, Davy examines the 8th elder's status. He learns the other dwarves force this elder to greet him alone. Privately, the 8th elder appreciates Davy's respectful manner and generous offerings. Yet his deepest frustration concerns the dwarves' sacred beginning flame sword. Long ago, the fire giant speaks of forging an item alongside dwarves. His skills remain crude then, leaving the finished item's quality unimpressive. Even so, both creators feel triumphant and celebrate together for several days. That shared achievement carries profound meaning for the fire giant. Back in the village, Davy dwells upon this unexpected revelation. He never expects to hear about the beginning flame sword here. Davy once hears that this legendary weapon possesses no sharpened edge. The fire giant and dwarves create it together as equal partners. It represents the first cooperative creation between their two peoples. Symbolizing their unity, the finished sword sword cannot cut anything. The weapon also preserves the fire giant's memories within itself. Most intriguingly, it serves as the prototype for his later signature sword. Its design differs, but the underlying production principles remain identical. That crafting process shapes physical items through the use of mana. In doing so, it joins the material and immaterial worlds together. Even its materials are exceptional, including the hammer and treated iron. This method demands knowledge extending far beyond a blacksmith's existing understanding. Given dwarven stubbornness, they would never willingly attempt such strange craftsmanship. They must be exhausting themselves while deciphering the mysterious production method. Davy suspects this puzzle is precisely the problem the 8th Elder mentioned. For now, Davy decides to step outside for a while. Developing his territory with dwarven craftsmanship is only one objective. His other reason involves gaining entry into the Great Forge. The dwarves themselves built that forge using exceptionally intense techniques. Expecting fierce resistance from them, Davy prepares a plan beforehand. After leaving his quarters, Davy makes his way toward a tavern. The 8th Elder finds him there and questions his intentions. Davy responds by asking whether the 8th Elder has spare time. The dwarf insists proper rest is necessary for performing his duties. His elder brother expelled every elder, giving him another reason to drink. Hearing that, Davy asks to share a drink with him. Davy also requests a sample of the famously strong dwarven liquor. Nearby dwarves mutter that Davy has no idea what awaits him. Others consider him reckless for challenging their powerful liquors so casually. Davy merely thinks the surrounding dwarves are unbearably noisy. A waiter serves him while warning that humans cannot handle this drink. Unbothered, Davy drains the entire glass with a single gulp. He then declares that every liquor should possess such strength. The dwarves stare in admiration, having expected Davy to collapse instantly. Persilk asks whether that single glass truly amounts to everything. Davy admits the liquor is powerful, but criticizes its unpleasant taste. Despite this display, Davy normally does not drink very often. Still, he knows dwarves cherish two things above all: drinking and wagers. Davy proposes a contest testing who can swallow more liquor. The 8th Elder says dwarves always respect anyone who handles alcohol well. Accepting the challenge, he promises to cover every drink they consume. He orders the waiter to keep serving them without hesitation. Though victory remains uncertain, Davy considers wagering perfect for building trust. It may also secure what Davy wants from the stubborn elder. The 8th Elder sets Davy's lost condition as immediate departure from their village. Should the elder lose, he promises to fulfill any wish Davy makes. He insists the condition bears no personal hostility toward Davy. Although appreciating the visit, he wishes it happened under different circumstances. For Davy, everything proceeds perfectly because the elder takes his bait. The following day, the 8th Elder broods bitterly over his defeat. Never expecting a human victory, he now owes Davy a request. Davy secretly credits sacred mana for keeping alcohol from affecting him. Naturally, the defeated dwarf has no need to learn that secret. Davy acquires this trick from one of his swordsmanship teachers. That martial master is the hero unifying the Central Plains martial world. His reputation includes fearsome combat ability and legendary alcohol consumption. Even Daphne, an immortal saint who loves drinking, avoids challenging him. While teaching Davy swordsmanship, the martial master makes drinking a daily routine. He forces alcohol into training because it belongs to his sword technique. That requirement only makes Davy's already brutal lessons even harder. Besides such a monstrous drinker, even dwarves seem hopelessly outmatched. The wagering elder honors his promise and asks what Davy desires. First, Davy asks whether the blaze of beginnings caused the tribal unrest. The wagering elder confirms that the dwarves once guarded the sword. Unfortunately, the sacred weapon eventually breaks while under dwarven protection. Several tribes safeguard it in succession before it reaches their tribe. Their father becomes the final guardian responsible for protecting the blade. His unexpectedly early death transfers that duty to both brothers. The wagering elder invites Davy to ask about anything else. As Davy predicted, respectful treatment earns the dwarf's courtesy. Drinking together proves worthwhile because it captures the wagering elder's interest. Davy admits he has forging experience, despite lacking true mastery. He requests permission to assist with restoring the broken sword. Later, the wagering elder guides Davy into the central forge. Persilk marvels that dwarves created everything without mana or alchemy. Several craftsmen resent seeing a human inside their sacred workplace. They suspect the wagering elder has lost his senses by agreeing. Davy feels guilty for causing the dwarven leader such trouble. The smithing brother arrives and questions why Davy entered the forge. The wagering elder explains that he lost a bet to Davy. He claims Davy merely wants to observe their legendary workshop. The craftsmen protest because this is their tribe's main forge. They insist their elder must still be drunk from earlier. The wagering elder denies it and swears upon his elder's title. He asks everyone to trust Davy as willingly as he does. The smithing brother orders the disgruntled dwarves back to work. Since his brother is also an elder, they must respect his decision. The smithing brother permits Davy to remain inside the forge. Still, he threatens to hammer Davy's skull for any foolish behavior. Davy calmly promises that he will remember the harsh warning. Later, Davy finally examines the enormous broken sword itself. It measures 2 meters tall and 30 centimeters across. Its massive proportions make it resemble decoration more than weaponry. The dwarves attempt repairs using heated iron and relentless hammering. Persilk notices Davy's attention resting somewhere beyond their repair work. She asks what has captured his unusually intense focus. Davy bluntly declares that the sword cannot be repaired. Its creation resembles the process used for forging a holy sword, yet it was never finished as completely as a true holy sword. Because of that flaw, the weapon could not endure indefinitely. Though the result pains him, Davy accepts the unavoidable reality. The smithing brother continues pounding the damaged relic with fierce concentration. The wagering elder urges him to rest before exhausting himself. Davy also sees that continuing this method will accomplish nothing. Another band of dwarves suddenly enters the crowded central forge. They belong to the rival Blackstone tribe. Their rival chief claims the Yellowstone tribe will destroy the sword. He mocks the smithing brother for ruining their sacred relic. According to him, the culprit is working surprisingly well today. The rival chief never approved of entrusting him with the sword. He says the Yellowstone tribe can still surrender it. His own smith supposedly would provide the relic far better care. The Yellowstone elders reject the rival chief's confident claim. Even the opposing tribe's finest smiths could not restore it easily. The rival chief counters by highlighting their long, fruitless efforts. After so much failure, they might finally destroy the relic. He says every other tribe's elders already support removing it. They refuse to leave such an artifact with unworthy caretakers. Things would differ if the brother's father remained alive. Those cruel words leave the smithing brother visibly hollow and defeated. The rival chief declares there is nothing else worth seeing. He intends to take the sword regardless of Yellowstone resistance. Davy interrupts by questioning the smithing brother's supposed mastery. The rival chief scoffs upon hearing a human defend him. He mocks the smithing brother for befriending a human outsider. Worse, that human has entered the tribe's central forge. The wagering elder urges Davy to stay out of this dispute. Davy instead describes what defines a genuine master smith. Such artisans sense the spirit residing within every creation. They also honor each work without treating anyone carelessly. Davy claims the smithing brother abandoned that principle from the beginning. He then seizes the smithing brother's hammer without hesitation. Davy swings the borrowed tool directly against the broken sword. The horrified dwarves believe he has finally ruined their relic. Several rush forward and attempt to drag Davy away. They fear he will worsen their tribe's already desperate circumstances. Davy asks whether the smithing brother sincerely wants a solution. Without hesitation, the smithing brother answers that he does. Davy warns that an oversized ego cannot solve this crisis. The sword has protected their small village for 3,000 years. After fulfilling that duty, the exhausted blade deserves to be released. Instead, the smithing brother forces his personal wishes upon it. Davy condemns their attempt to forcibly repair the exhausted village sword. An item serving as the village's pillar deserves far greater respect. Anyone missing that truth has no right claiming master smith status. Davy knows these dwarves rank among the continent's finest artisans, yet they still cannot accept that this blade lies beyond repair. Davy lifts the sword lying directly in front of everyone. Without hesitation, Davy hurls the blade into the roaring furnace. Every great artisan's creation carries a soul, as Davy understands. Respecting that soul separates genuine masters from merely talented craftsmen. Davy's master once ordered Davy to crush anyone dishonoring such souls. Instead, Davy lets the flames devour the blade while everyone watches. Several enraged dwarves immediately threaten to kill Davy for this outrage. Davy insists the sword's ruined condition makes this treatment appropriate. The dwarves must stop insulting an item they consider sacred. Since Davy's master forged it, the blade deeply connects with Davy. Davy also declares nobody present understands a sacred item's true function. That sword died long ago, while the dwarves lack confidence to replace it. Davy questions whether they can proudly call themselves master artisans. Furious dwarves demand what gives Davy the right to lecture them. The elder interrupts, warning that their anger only makes them look worse. Davy sees the elder already understands that the sword's life ended. Trying to restore a dead blade would only squander their time. Still, the dwarves cannot recreate it and refuse admitting that weakness. They eventually decided the sword needed inheritance across countless generations. Otherwise, they feared the treasured blade would lose its meaning. Now the dwarves begin recognizing the flaws within that conclusion. The smithing brother argues Davy speaks boldly because humans share no connection. Even the greatest dwarven artisan cannot reproduce a legendary creation. human. The smithing brother warns Davy against displaying such outrageous arrogance. No human, including Davy, could supposedly accomplish that impossible feat. Persilk notes that these stubborn dwarfs have never appeared so shaken. Davy answers that the smithing brother is wrong about Davy's abilities. Davy openly claims the power to forge a legendary item. Every dwarf present freezes in shock after hearing that declaration. Even Persilk becomes speechless at Davy's astonishing claim. Several dwarves mutter that nobody among their race possesses such skill. Believing a human could achieve it seems even more absurd. They insist only Davy's master could ever forge something legendary. Davy invites them either to keep babbling or watch and learn. With that challenge delivered, Davy begins working directly before them. One technique stands above every skill Davy learned from Davy's master. Through that technique, Davy successfully mastered several additional abilities. Davy's master taught brilliantly, allowing Davy to absorb tremendous knowledge. Even so, Davy's craftsmanship never reached Davy's master's incredible level. What matters is that Davy has already produced numerous remarkable items. Some of those creations even surpass the dwarves' cherished sacred sword. After all, that revered blade was nothing more than a prototype. Watching closely, the smithing brother spots cadmium steel mixing with mithril alloys. The smithing brother immediately orders Davy to stop the reckless process. Davy replies that ordinary creative assumptions place no limits on Davy. Rules established by dwarven tradition hold no authority over Davy's craftsmanship. Davy argues that common sense never truly exists within creation. Innovation offers endless possibilities whenever an artisan changes the approach. Different processes can merge together and produce entirely new creations. This remains true even if dwarves call the approach apostle. The gathered dwarves stare in disbelief as Davy's strange work continues. After some time passes, Davy's labor finally produces a sword. Davy presents the finished result and casually calls its creation easy. The dwarves discover Davy melted their old blade and reforged it. Its dazzling appearance immediately leaves the gathered craftsmen utterly captivated. Davy judges the new sword considerably stronger than its predecessor. Persilk praises Davy's craftsmanship after examining the stunning result. Davy answers that abandoning common sense makes almost anything possible. The sword's texture matters most because it naturally absorbs surrounding mana. Its internal structure keeps mana circulating throughout the entire blade. That design closely resembles the mana circle engraved across Davy's body. Davy asks whether the Elder recognizes the technique just demonstrated. Only a handful of items can heal themselves without outside mana. That separates them from artifacts becoming useless after exhausting their mana. Persilk observes that Davy has won the dwarves despite the chaotic beginning. Davy finally announces that starting the sword does not mean finishing it. Even the 1000-day blacksmith forged only the base, entrusting completion to dwarves. Davy intends to follow that exact division of labor. The Forge Elder admits the dwarves lack the skills required. Davy bluntly answers that they will simply have to learn. The Forge Elder immediately asks whether Davy can teach them. Davy agrees, though his lessons will never come without payment. He proposes starting their training once his present task is finished. Several dwarves openly marvel at the swords Davy has brought. Persilk warns that his actions might invite accusations of blasphemy. Davy says his stigma leaves him unconcerned about such accusations. He asks the Forge Elder what he thinks about everything. The Forge Elder cannot quite decide how he should respond. Davy clarifies that he was not the one who forged these swords. Even so, Davy will personally give both blades their finishing touches. The dwarves explain that their original smith died ages ago. Davy already knows that fact very well. Long storage has aged the swords and multiplied their power over tenfold. This mana processing method requires deliberate storage, allowing strength to accumulate gradually. Accordingly, the new sacred sword must remain untouched for several months. The exact aging period can vary depending on the circumstances. That uncertainty troubles Davy as he considers finishing such demanding items. Worse, he currently lacks every material needed for the work. Being inside the central dwarven forge gives him an obvious solution. Requesting their materials was the main purpose behind Davy's visit. The Forge Elder willingly offers Davy any assistance he requires. He grants Davy unrestricted use of the forge and its materials. The Forge Elder admits his own craftsmanship falls short of Davy's. Still, he recognizes Davy's talent and confidently entrusts everything to him. Dwarven forges are deeply personal and normally barred to fellow smiths. Receiving access to one is therefore an extraordinary privilege. Their generosity proves how desperately the dwarves want Davy's techniques. Any remaining doubt vanishes when the Forge Elder brings out an object. Persilk studies it and asks whether she is seeing a bone. Davy identifies it as an ancient bone from an unknown dragon. The Forge Elder declares that nothing in his possession is more precious. The bone is a family heirloom passed down through many generations. Nobody in that family ever possessed enough skill to use it. Davy grows thrilled, never expecting to find dragon bone here. One dwarf then raises a troubling issue with the arrangement. Taking the dragon bone and the Elder's forge together might invite trouble. The dwarf offers Davy his own forge as a replacement. He also permits Davy to take anything else he desires. Other dwarves begin arguing over who should assist Davy's project. They eagerly offer materials, including heirlooms inherited from their families. Later, Davy stands before an enormous heap of assorted treasures. Persilk asks whether the pile contains everything he needs. Davy confirms it does and sincerely thanks the assembled dwarves. The Forge Elder wishes he could provide even more assistance. Yet strict rules limit what every blacksmith is permitted to do. He leaves Davy alone to work without any interference. During that time, he will study the techniques Davy already demonstrated. With every requirement gathered, Davy prepares to begin his work. An old memory shows the mage goddess seething with fury. She wants Davy to bear the full force of her anger. The fire hero asks why Davy has irritated her so badly. The hero's hall resembles paradise and serves as their afterlife refuge. Its peaceful appearance is shaped by the hero's collective subconscious. The Dragon Maker's creation ability once lets Davy handle unknown dragon bone. The fire hero has caused serious trouble for the mage goddess. He used a dragon as material while creating the sacred sword. That choice greatly displeased the already furious mage goddess. Instead of blaming him, she directs her anger toward Davy. Davy had overseen the process while serving in his master's place. That ordeal makes Davy resent learning how sacred relics are handled. He assumes such objects do not even exist in the real world. Back inside the forge, Davy discovers that assumption was wrong. Davy prepares to enchant his creation with fire resistance magic. A single tiny mistake will ruin everything and melt the sword. Persilk watches the delicate process closely and finds it beautiful. Formerly blood red, the red blade becomes transparent and ruby colored. The blue blade resembles a supernova blazing across the night sky. Its radiance makes the weapon appear deeply connected with Davy. Persilk notices both their transformation and Davy's fierce concentration. His focus is justified because one slip would destroy the entire process. Still, Davy's steady movements show he knows exactly what he is doing. After grueling work on both blades, Davy finally manages to complete both swords without damaging either painstakingly forged blade. With the work finished, Davy decides these twin masterpieces deserve names. Persilk asks whether he already has suitable names in mind. Davy says the names came instantly upon seeing them both. He declares the blades will henceforth be called Azure and Karmazum. Davy then examines the upgraded attributes displayed for each sword. Persilk calls the names dreadful and mocks Davy's poor imagination. Such petty criticism matters less to Davy than the weapon's abilities. Eager to test Karmazum, Davy raises the newly completed sword. Persilk asks what he intends to do with it. Davy answers that he only wants to test its cutting power. A whetstone before him immediately starts melting beneath the blade. Persilk sees Davy use no strength, yet split the stone cleanly. Davy next tests Azure without swinging at any visible target. Persilk notices the motion still accomplishes something extraordinary. Azure has sliced through the mana, drifting within the air. Davy confirms the result matches his exact intentions for Azure. This sword is built to sever things outside the physical realm. Its exceptional final quality leaves even Davy amazed. Everything is finally prepared, allowing Davy to leave the forge. Several dwarves wait outside and immediately draw Davy's attention. Davy asks what they need from him. They explain the workshop area was guarded against every possible disturbance. Davy has remained inside for 4 straight days, worrying everyone. He never emerged to eat or answer their repeated knocks. Persilk says Davy grew obsessed with completing the 2 swords. Still, she found watching him work unusually fascinating. Davy asks why his concentration interested her so deeply. Persilk chooses to keep her reasons private. The dwarves eagerly request a look at the finished weapons. Several begin crying as soon as the swords appear. They resemble worshippers standing awestruck before a holy relic. Such emotion is natural among blacksmiths devoted entirely to craftsmanship. Witnessing a true masterpiece's creation deeply moves every smith present. Over the following few weeks, Davy offers to teach the dwarves. He shares everything his forging master taught him about weaponcraft. Davy also demonstrates combining metal with mana for superior results. Teaching demands patience because the dwarves handle materials rather roughly. His advanced method requires a delicate touch they initially lack. Once their pride disappears, their passion grows even fiercer. Some grip their hammers like thrilled novices discovering forging anew. Their overflowing enthusiasm makes every lesson feel like their first. Seeking relief from the forges, Davy steps outside for fresh air. The dwarf elder joins him and offers Davy a drink. He says this beverage suits humans better than ordinary dwarven liquor. Yet the drink is merely an opening for another discussion. Davy anticipates the subject and apologizes for damaging the whetstone. The dwarf elder has no interest in discussing that incident. He knows Davy also came seeking dwarven strength for his territory. The elder insists dwarves never forget those who help them. Though less skilled than Davy, he promises help with any request. He considers considers his people indebted to Davy for everything received. Every member of the Yellow Rock tribe will now support Davy. Swearing by the Iron God, the Elder pledges unwavering aid to Davy. Davy now considers his entire mission there successfully accomplished. Soon, a dwarf arrives urgently searching for the Elder. He reports an intruder is hiding somewhere inside their village. The hidden trespasser must be found and dealt with immediately. This alarming news catches the dwarf Elder by surprise. During their exchange, an object suddenly hurtles toward the Elder. Davy intervenes in time and stops it from striking him. Examining it, Davy finds a red knife and senses something strange. Inside the Queen's chambers, Barris seethes with fury toward Davy. Davy's actions have left him bald and mimicking animals involuntarily. Every attempt to speak produces another harsh, humiliating noise. Unable to control himself, Barris lashes out at people and objects. Barris cannot explain it, but he remains certain Davy caused everything. These afflictions began directly after their most recent encounter. Barris's maids become the helpless targets of his anger. Believing they secretly ridicule him, Barris attacks the women mercilessly. He accuses even his own attendants of looking down upon him. His unchecked rage escalates until innocent bystanders are also injured. An unseen observer watches Barris's cruelty and seems thoroughly entertained. Barris angrily demands the identity of whoever is watching him. The mysterious man replies that he has not introduced himself yet. As he approaches, his presence startles every maid in the room. He introduces himself as Paz and tells Barris to remember it. Paz knows Barris has suffered considerable disappointment recently. Still, Paz possesses something likely to capture Barris's interest. With that, Paz exposes his true nature as a vampire. Paz reveals he captured Shirley and has imprisoned her ever since. Startled by this confession, Barris asks what Paz wants. Paz explains that someone apparently played a cruel trick on Barris. Paz promises to correct the problem for Barris immediately. The strange sounds suddenly leave Barris, who falls silent again. Paz casually tells Barris to treat the cure as a favor. Barris admits he still does not know whom he faces. Paz assures Barris that his identity should not cause concern. Paz only requires Barris to enter a contract with him. Through that contract, Barris can confront the human he deeply hates. Though tempted, Barris says his half-brother bears a stigma and someone protects him. Despite those concerns, Paz dismisses Davy as merely human. Barris then asks whether Paz is something other than human. Paz replies that Barris will discover the answer eventually. Paz has already dispatched one of his vassals after Davy. Paz believes the vassal has probably eliminated Davy already. Davy dodges the incoming attacks and studies the knives hurtling past. Those thrown blades are no ordinary weapons, and Persilk agrees. Davy identifies them as blood knives, an ability belonging to one race. In the distance, Davy spots a lurking blood beast. Davy suspects the blood beast can wield several blood-based techniques. Such power belongs to vampires, who absorb blood energy for their benefit. While the dwarves cower, Davy grows thrilled by the blood beast's arrival. Such a high-level creature traveled this far specifically to find Davy. Now Davy eagerly wants to uncover everything about the blood beast. Power surges from the blood beast, terrifying the dwarves even further. After charging an ability, the blood beast releases a devastating energy blast. The explosion tears apart the ground and hurls the dwarves away. Davy protects them by forming a magical shield around their bodies. The blood beast advances instantly, stopping directly face to face with Davy. Davy cannot understand the blood beast's peculiar behavior. Curiosity overwhelms Davy, who decides combat may reveal the answers. The battered dwarves withdraw, leaving Davy alone against the blood beast. The blood beast simply returns Davy's unwavering stare. Davy remarks that the blood beast seems unusually animated. With biting sarcasm, Davy asks whether the blood beast considers itself a true predator. Then Davy detects a dense aura formed from blood. Only elite vampires can wield such an aura, even among their kind. That places the blood beast at expert level, at minimum. Persilk urges caution, judging the blood beast far stronger than ordinary magical beasts. Davy remains unconcerned, calling the blood beast an instinct-driven animal despite that strength. The blood beast roars upon seeing Davy advance. Davy strikes first, launching the blood beast high into the air. Strangely, the blood beast never even attempts to respond. Davy recognizes the airborne opening as an ideal opportunity. While the blood beast hangs aloft, Davy begins preparing magic. From a magical portal, Davy draws the crimson sword. Davy says a horse's speed becomes clear only after someone rides it. Likewise, a weapon reveals its quality only when tested in battle. Davy unleashes consecutive slashes, denying the blood beast any chance to react. A flashback returns to the Central Plains at the martial world's zenith. The sect's highest officials are corrupt during this celebrated era. They suppress martial artists, leaving ordinary people to starve. Davy faces the swordsman who unified the martial world through one blade. Yet Davy sees nothing beyond an entirely ordinary drunkard. Despite that appearance, the man leaves behind 88 sword forms. The swordsman later joins forces with sword god Harris. Together, they evolve all 88 forms to suit the swordsman's combat style. Back in battle, Davy declares that every man needs proper tools. The blood beast reacts to its wounds, proving the Crimson Sword's excellence. Persilk warns Davy that the blood beast remains alive. Davy recognizes the blood beast's abilities as resembling a lich's. The blood beast has hidden an immortality core somewhere nearby. While that core remains intact, the blood beast can regenerate endlessly. Shattering its body beyond revival would also destroy the blood beast. Overwhelming the blood beast with sacred power offers another method. Neither alternative is remotely easy to accomplish. Davy asks whether Persilk knows how a magical beast gains such immortality. Its immortality matches a high-tier vampire's, making the mystery even stranger. Persilk says the blood beast's blood energy proves this transformation is unnatural. Davy understands that answers will not come easily. The blood beast survives, confirming its capacity for revival. That revival means a vampire lord likely supplied the hidden core. Davy wonders why any vampire lord would select a demonic beast. Since uncovering the truth seems difficult, Davy chooses a swift finish. Davy attacks the blood beast's core using the Azure Sword. Persilk immediately warns Davy that the attempt will not work. Persilk explains the blood beast can apparently disrupt the system's very balance. Davy cannot understand why even the Azure Sword fails. After all, these swords possess enough power to slay a deity. Long years have only strengthened them, making unbeatable enemies seem impossible. Davy postpones that mystery since the immediate crisis demands action. A faint movement reveals that the hidden enemy has begun advancing. Davy attacks first, coolly advising his foe to hide better next time. A pale vampire suddenly materializes and charges Davy, catching him off guard. Regret follows instantly when the pale vampire recognizes Davy's overwhelming superiority. Davy gives chase, forcing the pale vampire to flee while fearing capture. Escape is never an option Davy intends to grant. Drawing the Crimson Sword, Davy hurls rocks toward the pale vampire. The barrage seals every escape route, leaving the pale vampire trapped. Davy toys with the pale vampire instead of ending matters immediately. He suspects witnesses might mistake him for the villain here. The pale vampire cannot understand Davy and focuses solely on escaping. When the pale vampire bolts, Davy instantly cuts off the attempt. Davy's speed shocks the pale vampire, who never sees him approach. Blocking escape, Davy says nobody simply leaves after causing this disaster. His next strike nearly lands, but the pale vampire barely dodges. A shallow cut still proves Davy is far from ordinary. As high vampire nobility, the pale vampire considers humans an inferior race. Yet Davy never feared the blood beast and defeated it casually. Now this same human turns their pursuit into an effortless hunting game. The pale vampire concludes his master badly underestimated the prince. Reduced to easy prey, the pale vampire has no master nearby. Davy seems inhumanly powerful, leaving the pale vampire unable to counterattack. Later, Davy subdues the pale vampire and orders him to behave without resisting. Calling Davy an inferior human, the pale vampire demands an explanation. Davy says several questions need answers. The pale vampire insists his species never shares secrets with humans. Davy replies that forcing spoken answers was never his plan. His ideal spell can inspect another person's mind directly. Vampire resilience is formidable, yet Davy believes nothing can remain hidden. Davy invokes interrogation flame magic to extract everything he needs. Agonizing flames spread across the pale vampire's body during the process. The pale vampire immediately begs Davy to extinguish them. Persilk finds such torment excessive despite the pale vampire being their enemy. Davy assures her that the pale vampire will survive. Persilk clarifies that his survival is not what concerns her. Davy rarely grants mercy to anyone who attempts to kill him. Persilk knows that, but this cruelty still leaves her uneasy. Davy gently calls her far too kind-hearted. He only needs limited information, so Davy wants this finished quickly. Sobbing hopelessly, the pale vampire barely speaks but continues resisting. Davy asks whether the pale vampire wants another taste of those flames. The pale vampire gives his name and identifies himself as a Viscount. Davy already knows the dwarves were never the intended targets. He asks whether attacking him avenges Davy's treatment of the vampire maid. The pale vampire confirms that motive without hesitation. Davy mocks his cooperation after swearing his lips were a sealed vault. Then Davy asks why both the pale vampire and blood beast are immortal. The pale vampire hesitates, refusing to answer this crucial question. Davy decides another burst of provocation may loosen his resistance. Instead, the irritated pale vampire chooses something Davy never expects. The pale vampire declares death preferable to revealing that secret. Davy instantly senses danger behind this sudden resolve. A curse prevents the pale vampire from disclosing his knowledge. His body begins swelling, warning Davy of an imminent explosion. Within moments, the pale vampire launches upward and explodes like a living bomb. The blast destroys him, carrying every remaining secret beyond Davy's Davy's reach. Afterward, Davy explains that the curse forced the pale vampire's actions. He admits he never expected to extract much information anyway. Persilk apologizes, burdened by guilt over what happened. Davy reassures Persilk that none of this is her fault. He explains that breaking a curse alerts whoever originally cast it. Thus, the dead subordinate's master now knows the pale vampire perished. Davy also notices that his curse upon Barris has been removed. He intentionally made that curse extremely difficult for anyone to dispel. Yet someone succeeded, leading Davy toward a deeply troubling conclusion. Davy concludes every recent incident links together behind the scenes. Whoever orchestrates them must possess frightening power. Back in the dwarf village, workers rebuild sections ruined during the attack. Persilk explains the beast crossed here while pursuing Davy, causing widespread devastation. Davy sees the disaster has left every dwarf far busier. Their mobilized forces now labor tirelessly to restore the damaged village. Hoping for answers, Davy seeks an audience with the dwarf elder. The dwarf elder greets him by apologizing for everything that happened. Davy immediately asks whether the elder suffered any injuries during the assault. The elder escaped unharmed, though dozens of buildings were demolished. A few villagers also sustained minor wounds during the destruction. Yet Davy senses the elder is withholding something important. The hesitant elder clearly wants to speak but cannot begin outside. He invites Davy and Persilk into his private chambers. Inside, Davy mentions the numerous sentinels currently patrolling the city. He asks whether another serious incident has occurred. The elder downplays it as an orphanage child going missing. Sentinels are searching everywhere, but still have found no trace. More troublingly, the elder believes the village no longer protects Davy safely. Davy answers that he also has something important to reveal. He presents the dwarf brothers with a carefully prepared notebook. Its pages contain every instruction needed to restore their sacred item. Since restoration will take considerable time, Davy has documented the entire process. He also announces his imminent departure, explaining why he prepared those notes. The elder protests that the dwarves could never repay such generosity. Davy refuses payment, insisting that he actually owes them instead. Their craftsmanship gave Davy exactly what he sought, his completed swords. He then admits the magical beast targeted him, not the dwarves. Once Davy leaves, the village's current troubles should disappear with him. He apologizes sincerely for bringing such chaos upon their home. Davy reflects that hostile dwarves could have exploited this opportunity. They might have blamed him entirely for the destruction. Instead, the dwarves supported Davy despite everything that happened. Their loyalty convinces him to disclose that he bears a stigma. One concern remains. Vampires might assault the village after his departure. For now, Davy has little power to prevent that possibility. To repay his hosts, Davy searches personally for the missing child. He eventually discovers the child concealed high inside a tree. Davy considers this small rescue part of his debt to them. With that worry settled, he can finally depart without lingering concerns. Sometime later, Davy begins the journey back toward his territory. The territory gate remains quiet until a caravan disturbs the calm. Alert guards halt the arrivals and demand their identities. Davy explains that these travelers are companions of the local lord. The guards quickly recognize Davy as their territory's celebrated saint. Davy denies being any saint, though their enthusiasm remains unchanged. Regardless, returning home fills him with genuine relief. Once home, Davy becomes overwhelmed by developments during his absence. The territory's population has increased dramatically since he departed. Such growth would normally create problems, but Davy can manage them. After all, he did not return without powerful reinforcements. Davy had already explained the territory's entire predicament to the dwarf elder. The elder judges everything precarious, including the lord's neglected mansion. Still, he embraces this chance to repay Davy's earlier kindness. He vows to turn this place into a home fit for the finest blacksmith alive. The elder says followers reject leaders who cannot maintain their own households. Thus, renovations will begin at Davy's residence, then spread across the territory. Davy has several special requests he wants incorporated into those plans. He suspects the other dwarves will enjoy those ideas as well. Watching Davy arrive with dwarves leaves Monmetter deeply puzzled. Their people famously never venture beyond their own lands. Monmetter wonders what Davy did to persuade such stubborn craftsmen. Despite many unanswered questions, Davy finds reconstruction progressing remarkably well. Later, Davy retreats into his newly renovated chambers for rest. He grumbles that battling a magical beast sounds easier than administration. Now he understands why Korea's old kings so often died young. Persilk agrees leadership is difficult and points out his unchanged clothes. She asks whether he truly plans to collapse without changing first. Davy barely listens, captivated by the ergonomic bed's incredible softness. He notes that the alchemy department only recently created it. Then Davy notices something unusual about the enormous mattress. Another person already occupies it and clearly resents being disturbed. A sudden chill tells Davy he has provoked someone dangerous. Frightened, he briefly wonders whether he entered the wrong room. Davy knows that is impossible, leaving an intruder as the only explanation. Rapid regional growth has produced increasing trespasses into his private quarters. Some intruders even attempted bribing guards for access to his bedroom. Davy recalls one master repeatedly warning him about precisely this danger. She forbade him from becoming involved with just any woman. Otherwise, she promised that she would personally come after him. Davy finds any promise from that depraved saint genuinely terrifying. He has received countless bribes but never met the women responsible. By now, those bribery attempts have escalated disturbingly far. In response, Davy starts threatening anyone who tries entering his room. After an exhausting workday, he only wants uninterrupted sleep. He especially refuses to tolerate women disturbing his rest. Yet someone has somehow slipped inside despite all his precautions. Davy is even more baffled to discover the intruder is a child. He wonders what is happening and who this little girl is. The girl quietly introduces herself as Kaya. Davy freezes, while Persilk also senses serious trouble. Anger surges as Davy imagines an enemy exploiting an innocent child. Furious at this manipulation, he immediately calls for Amy. His housekeeper Amy arrives and asks what her master needs. Davy demands an explanation for the child inside his room. Amy hesitates, unable to offer him any answer. Davy reminds her that nobody may enter his quarters, even during absences. Amy asks whether Davy brought the child home from his trip. His firm denial leaves only the possibility of a secret placement. Davy hates the situation and calls the whole thing a cruel joke. Amy apologizes, admitting she should have protected his quarters more carefully. She promptly leads Kaya away to address the problem. Amy promises to identify whoever is responsible for Kaya immediately. Kaya looks directly at Davy and suddenly calls him daddy. Both adults fall silent, utterly stunned by that single word. The shock makes Amy accidentally release Kaya. Kaya races toward Davy and wraps him in a tight hug. Despite being called daddy, Davy cannot understand anything happening. His troubles deepen when another girl suddenly appears within the room. Unlike Kaya, this second child seems visibly frightened. Later, Kaya races around the quarters while Amy watches her closely. Examining Kaya's status reveals her as the Crimson Sword's human form. The frightened child similarly proves to be the Azure Sword. Davy cannot explain why both weapons assumed childlike human bodies. Persilk jokes that his conscience should ache over those dreadful names. Davy counters that regretting those names now accomplishes nothing. He never expected the swords to awaken with minds of their own. Because Davy created them, both children naturally regard him as father. Davy insists their sudden awakening occurred entirely against his wishes. Amy offers Kaya a biscuit amid the confusion. Watching Kaya accept it, Davy wonders whether swords require food. One adorable daughter was already overwhelming, yet the second approaches Davy. She has chosen no personal nickname, so Davy keeps calling her Azures. Azure responds by sweetly calling Davy daddy. That concentrated cuteness feels almost too powerful for Davy's heart. Once calmer, Davy gathers Kaya and Azure together. He asks whether they can resume their original shapes. Both daughters understand and immediately obey his instruction. Combining their power, Kaya and Azure transform into swords again. Persilk observes that neither child hesitated for even an instant. Davy concludes that this transformation functions through instinct. Their internal power density also appears noticeably greater than previously. Gaining consciousness has evidently made both swords stronger. Davy then permits them to take human form again. Their secret leaves him wondering whether the public should learn anything. Persilk reminds Davy that these two girls are his daughters. Davy clarifies that they are technically his adopted daughters. He worries their existence could complicate marriage or similar future plans. While Davy deliberates, Amy arrives with news for the prince. She announces that a visitor has just reached his residence. Davy asks whether this guest arrived without providing advance notice. Amy confirms it, then identifies the visitor as his sister, Princess Winley. Winley enters and is instantly enchanted by the two children. Curious, she asks Davy who both little girls are. Davy answers that Kaya and Azure are his adopted daughters. This revelation genuinely surprises Winley. She remarks that Davy presents something new whenever they meet. Winley had worried after hearing he departed for an inhospitable territory. Learning he built a business and lives comfortably brought her great relief. Upon arrival, she also noticed dwarves moving throughout the town. Their presence delighted Winley because she believed dwarves never left their villages. Davy explains that everyone here benefits by helping one another. He wishes he could welcome Winley with greater ceremony. As she can plainly see, his home remains extremely hectic. Winley assures him that this causes no trouble. Simply seeing Davy happy is enough for her. Besides, she already understands that her brother stays busy. Davy privately agrees with his sister's assessment. After all, he is genuinely enjoying his current life. Davy invites Winley inside while continuing to manage his unusual family. Amy guides the remaining travelers who accompanied Winley. Davy notices something odd about that group. For now, he leaves the other arrivals under Amy's care. Inside, Davy asks how Winley found time to visit. Her responsibilities within her territory usually keep her relentlessly occupied. Winley explains that nighttime assaults have lately become less frequent. This decline has left Barris's territory remarkably peaceful recently. Compared with Davy's lively domain, Barris's territory feels thoroughly uneventful. Still, Winley begins adding an important qualification to that statement. Yet her true reason for coming has nothing to do with peace. Winley asks whether Davy understands how to wield a stigma's power. Despite Davy's workload, Winley says he is her only remaining hope. She asks whether he can help her somehow. Seeing Winley's tears, Davy understands that serious trouble has found her. He immediately offers to do anything necessary. A little later, Winley finally falls asleep. Barris's lands lie far from Davy's territory, explaining her deep exhaustion. She traveled for days without proper rest, solely to reach him. Winley says her close friend now hovers at death's edge. Both doctors and priests have already abandoned every attempt at treatment. That friend, Winley's bodyguard knight, takes a poisoned arrow while defending her. Bandits pursue Winley after she stumbles into their trap. Without the bodyguard knight, that arrow could have struck Winley instead. A priest extracts the poison from the bodyguard knight's system. Afterward, strange marks begin spreading across her entire body. Other unnatural symptoms soon ravage the bodyguard knight as well. She suffers terribly, her condition slowly carrying her toward death. Desperation convinces Winley that another priest cannot save her friend. Instead, she seeks someone whose authority surpasses theirs. Davy's stigma makes Winley believe only he can provide help. Davy promises to exhaust every possible option for her. After crying for ages, Winley finally drifts into sleep. Davy remains beside his sister from then onward. Two children approach and the bold child asks whether Winley is ill. Davy assures them she only needs peaceful rest. For now, he wants everyone to let Winley sleep. The bold child refuses to leave after quickly growing attached to Winley. Persilk finds both children's affection for a near stranger remarkably sweet. Davy secretly finds their tender concern just as touching. Without noticing, he is gradually settling into fatherhood. Normally, Davy would stop the children from bothering a resting patient. Keeping them nearby might let their abundant energy hasten Winley's recovery. Later, Davy reviews every symptom Winley described. Permal notices his concentration and asks what troubles him. Davy recognizes the symptoms and senses something dangerous approaching. Still, he cannot determine exactly what may happen. He asks Dwayne to locate his territory's finest, most reliable guilds. Complications are coming, so Davy intends to prepare early. Persilk doubts the matter will become particularly difficult. She often watches Davy transform looming danger into profitable opportunity. Davy readily acknowledges that familiar pattern. His real concern is the possibility of many more patients. Those symptoms point toward only one illness in Davy's memory. Persilk asks whether any disease causes bloody coughing and blue markings. Davy confirms one does, though it belongs nowhere on this continent. That impossibility leaves him worried and baffled about its origin. The next day, Winley cheerfully plays with both children. Watching from afar, Davy reflects that every action creates a reaction. The bodyguard knight receives healing magic immediately after the poisoned arrow strikes. Only afterward do symptoms emerge from an illness unknown to doctors. Persilk observes Davy's haggard appearance and mentions his poor condition. Davy explains that too many thoughts have occupied him lately. Persilk wonders how border-raiding savages obtain such an overwhelming poison. Davy has suspicions, but conclusions would still be premature. He needs further investigation before trusting any particular theory. Persilk asks whether this explains his summons to the Intelligence Guild. Davy confirms that an illness's remedy always begins with its cause. That principle is the first lesson from his medical studies. Davy suddenly detects a presence and praises the visitor's perfect timing. He invites the hidden figure to stop hesitating and emerge. Confused, Persilk asks whom Davy could possibly be addressing. Davy indicates a disguised figure ahead and warns against wasting time. The veiled broker says they heard the prince required assistance. Davy confirms it and politely thanks the veiled broker for coming. Sensing their caution, Davy immediately abandons pleasantries. He wants to purchase information and promises generous payment. Davy understands perfectly that nothing valuable ever comes freely. The veiled broker promises neighboring kingdoms secrets for suitable compensation. Even deeply private information remains available at the right price. Davy asks about the princess belonging to a foreign empire. Persilk interrupts, saying Davy need not entertain the broker's bargaining game. Regardless, the veiled broker vows to risk death gathering anything requested. Their answer to Davy's question is an unequivocal yes. Davy announces that he will speak without further preamble. He places the promised payment squarely squarely upon the table. Davy mentions the bodyguard knight assigned to protect his younger sister Winley. Davy requests every detail about Winley and her recent whereabouts. His status display identifies the veiled broker as Ileana, a dark elf. Ileana asks whether investigating Winley's history is the entire assignment. Davy wonders if his request sounds too difficult for Ileana. Ileana refuses the money currently sitting on the table. Puzzled, Davy asks why she will not accept it. She explains payment should come only after the service is finished. Davy counters by asking what happens if he refuses afterward. Ileana recognizes his sarcasm and trusts his habit of honoring agreements. That certainty tells Ileana Davy will eventually pay what he owes. Beneath Ileana's reserve, Davy senses her desire to establish a connection. He considers that quiet attempt at building ties quite favorable. Davy asks whether her guild suggested this unusual payment arrangement. Ileana answers that the choice was entirely her own. Satisfied, Davy accepts Ileana's terms without raising another objection. Ileana instantly disappears behind a sudden burst of concealing smoke. Davy remarks that walking away normally would have worked perfectly well. Her departure confirms Ileana had been concealing that she was female. Davy quietly identifies Ileana's secret moniker aloud, saying, Echo. That legendary operative is famous continent-wide for completing every assignment. Perselk asks what Davy knows about Ileana's attention-grabbing family name. Davy dismisses it as probably meaningless and tells Perselk to forget it. 2 days later, Davy prepares to depart, but Winley demands inclusion. Davy says Winley's gravely ill friend makes her presence here essential. She must remain behind until Davy finishes resolving the situation. He firmly warns Winley to stop being so stubborn. The route is lengthy, and extra travelers would slow everyone down. With no time available, Davy insists Winley remain and recover. Such an exhausting journey on horseback would only wear her down. Privately, Davy suspects disaster will follow if Winley accompanies him. Perselk dryly says his objection has nothing to do with intuition. Even after every argument, Winley keeps insisting she will accompany Davy. Their dispute draws the arrival of one of Winley's traveling companions. The newcomer asks what has caused the noisy disagreement. Winley complains that Davy refuses to let her travel beside him. Perselk identifies this companion as Davy's very problem. The newcomer introduces himself as Valentian, a 5th-rank mage. Valentian claims ties to the red-aligned tower, unusual for someone of his standing. Davy gives his own name and says Valentian's reputation precedes him. Though Valentian acts friendly, Davy dislikes meeting him under these circumstances. Davy sees no worthwhile reason to keep their conversation going. Fame aside, Valentian still belongs to the central magic tower. That connection leaves Davy uninterested in forming any association with Valentian. Valentian observes that this region is certainly anything but humble. He calls it the Eastern Continent's brightest and most splendid territory. Princess Winley's glowing descriptions inspired Valentian to visit the region himself. Flustered, Winley warns Valentian not to say that around Davy. Perselk notices Davy's jealousy swelling further after Valentian's praise. She advises Davy to avoid treating Valentian with open hostility. Davy intends to do precisely the opposite of Perselk's advice. He knows Valentian is celebrated as the Red Tower's young prodigy. Despite his age, nobody can reasonably deny Valentian's remarkable magical skill. Valentian also has wealth, competence, and striking looks behind him. To Davy, he resembles an ideal suitor without any visible weakness. His real offense is standing far too close to Winley. Davy immediately demands to know how Valentian and Winley first met. Valentian says they crossed paths while he traveled toward this region. From there, Valentian accompanied Winley throughout the remaining journey. Davy thanks Valentian for his kindness while inwardly imagining his murder. Valentian clarifies that Winley was actually the one who helped him. Mountain bandits chased Valentian until Winley defended him using her magic. Owing her for that rescue, Valentian hopes to repay the favor. He says spatial magic is one of his strongest specialties. A small mana portal lets him send objects wherever he chooses. Winley reacts with amazement, although Davy remains notably unimpressed. She explains these portable portals are smaller than permanently installed versions. Only an exceptionally capable mage could possess an artifact like this. Valentian modestly claims carrying the object is merely a coincidence. He was tasked with protecting it carefully from any possible damage. Winley marvels that Valentian can command 2 distinct schools of magic. She remains unaware that Davy can perform the same feat. Perselk notes Valentian's artifact could prove extremely useful to Davy. Sending objects across immense distances remains difficult even for Davy. Disliking the proposal, Davy nevertheless concedes that Perselk is right. With obvious reluctance, he finally accepts Valentian's offered assistance. Later, Valentian activates the artifact's teleportation magic for their journey. Davy, Winley, and Valentian emerge together at their final destination. They have reached the distant kingdom of Barris. Their arrival reveals surroundings carrying a deeply unsettling atmosphere. Perselk detects the sharp odor of burned protein drifting nearby. Davy finds that sickening scent disturbingly similar to burning human bodies. Winley suspects another invasion, yet the recently expelled bandits make that unlikely. A nearby man recognizes Princess Winley amid the grim confusion. Introducing himself, the Count represents the Disease Treatment Corporation and came for Daphne. He praises Winley's beauty, claiming every rumor greatly understated her true appearance. Winley interrupts, insisting Daphne's condition must be addressed without further delay. The Count says treatment must wait and orders everyone to follow him. He explains Winley's castle was isolated using a Sacred Kingdom artifact. The Count promises to take the entire group there immediately. Inside the castle, he apologizes for moving the knights without permission. Current circumstances, the Count argues, left him with no alternative. Winley notes that her brother Barris normally governs this territory. Since Barris is absent, his authority now passes directly to Winley. The Count concedes that intervening without approval is indeed terrible. Still, his corporation position legally grants him that extraordinary power. Someone in Winley's position should already understand those exceptional powers. 3 emperors endorsed the corporation, granting it supreme public health authority. Representing that organization, the Count announces a terrible disease gripping the territory. Within the corporation, this dreaded illness is known as demon's blood. Infected people develop blue marks and begin coughing blood with alarming ease. Their bloody coughing then carries the contagion toward everyone standing nearby. Winley dismisses further discussion because Daphne urgently needs immediate help. She asks Davy to accompany her straight to Daphne's location. Only then does the Count recognize Davy and promptly apologize. He claims that meeting Davy has always interested him greatly. The Count knows about Davy's stigma and successful moon plant leaf business. He rejects coincidence, declaring Davy blessed to possess such remarkable advantages. Winley finally loses patience with the Count's endless conversation. She firmly repeats that Daphne needs her right now. Winley tries summoning her butler, but every staff member remains quarantined. The Count refuses any risk of this highly contagious illness spreading. Everyone who contacted the patient is currently confined under close surveillance. Despite Winley's doubts, the Queen directly authorized his work throughout this territory. During such crises, his authority even surpasses that of the local lord. The Count adds that this is not their first similar emergency. Worse still, he declares the disease entirely incurable by known methods. Not even divine power can resolve the deadly condition, he claims. That impossibility, the Count explains, is precisely why his team came. He requests Winley's trust and promises to return with good news soon. A treatment chamber has already been established directly on the premises. Davy enters to inspect the situation and finds numerous suffering patients. He judges the quarantine focused more on containment than actually curing anyone. Even so, Davy considers their approach a plausible emergency response. Persalk says she has never witnessed anything so horrifying before. The unbearable stench inside the treatment area nearly overwhelms her. Davy searches through the patients for his sister's afflicted friend. He soon locates Daphne, officially designated as patient number 1. Her condition is already horrifyingly severe when Davy examines her. Davy immediately concludes that a flower caused everything afflicting Daphne. From memory, he identifies the responsible plant as a tostas flower. This rare plant thrives in extreme environments and carries lethal poison. Checking Daphne's temperature, Davy warns her brain cells may soon fry. Every part of Daphne's body remains dangerously unstable and unbalanced. Her skin feels corpse cold while her internal organs burn intensely hot. Davy had suspected this possibility after learning about her symptoms. Seeing Daphne firsthand proves the problem far more complicated than expected. The strangest question is how this disease ever reached this continent. Davy identifies the lethal cause as the melting acceleration virus. It once devastated another world after being created for a deliberate purpose. Its creators specifically designed it unlike any other known illness. Beyond spreading rapidly, one carrier could eventually cause millions of deaths. During the previous outbreak, developing a cure required 10 full years. Although that cure saved many, countless victims had already died beforehand. Davy decides he must produce antibiotics before precious time runs out. He takes a scalpel from a nearby table and readies himself. Davy prepares to perform the necessary removal, but someone stops him. The Baron, a disease corporation official, confronts Davy inside the restricted area. He demands to know exactly what Davy thinks he is doing. Davy introduces himself as Prince Davy, whose arrival should be reported. The Baron confirms receiving word about the prince's presence. Even royalty cannot enter this forbidden area, according to the Baron. He firmly orders Davy to leave the treatment chamber immediately. The Baron adds that Davy must surely already understand the situation. The Baron explains that a pandemic is spreading throughout the territory. Investigators have discovered that the infection travels through the air. The Baron urges Davy to cover his face before breathing it in. Although Davy bears a stigma, the Baron insists it offers no protection. A visiting high priest recently contracted the disease despite his status. Suddenly, Suddenly, the Baron hears a nearby patient screaming in agony. He demands to know when the patient's condition deteriorated so badly. The Baron orders the nurses to restrain him and administer painkillers. An attending nurse prepares a syringe, but Davy immediately stops him. Davy warns that injecting the medicine will kill the suffering patient. He requests the vial, then identifies its contents as the problem. Davy tears open the patient's shirt and examines his heaving chest. The virus has caused blood to clog the patient's lungs. Without immediate intervention, the blockage will trigger a cardiac arrest. Davy readies a scalpel and makes one careful, precise incision. The procedure quickly eases the patient's overwhelming pain. Davy continues treating him with techniques that astonish the watching nurses. His intense concentration remains unbroken until the Baron angrily interrupts. The Baron accuses Davy of recklessly taking an innocent person's life. He declares that human lives are not toys for Davy's experiments. Then the Baron notices an unexpected change beside the treatment bed. The attending nurse reports that the patient's pulse has returned to normal. Stunned, the Baron understands that Davy saved the man instead. After being released, Davy asks to borrow one item. He collects a vial from the surrounding medical supplies. Davy instructs the nurses to stop the bleeding and stitch the incision. He forbids painkillers for patients displaying these particular symptoms. Using those drugs under such conditions would prove fatal. With his instructions delivered, Davy announces that his work is finished. Before departing, he turns and directly addresses the shaken Baron. Those truly blessed with the stigma are immune to disease. For that reason, Davy cannot be compared with the infected High Priest. Later, Davy returns to Winley and finds her alone with the Tower Elder. Davy dislikes seeing Winley alone with the Tower Elder. Still, Davy first asks whether Winley has received news about Barris. Winley admits that her twin's situation is not looking promising. Conditions inside the treatment center are hardly any better, Davy answers. Even so, he believes everyone there is doing their best. The Tower Elder mentions that he has gathered some useful information. 2 center officials have been dispatched toward Barris. Those officials are Count Linus and the Baron from the treatment chamber. Their noble titles no longer matter because both now serve as officials. The Tower Elder then explains the treatment center's strict hierarchy. Its leadership includes 1 president, 3 directors, and 15 officials. Knights and doctors occupy the positions beneath those senior authorities. Davy spots the truth. The 3 directors are the 3 emperors themselves. The president is none other than the Holy Kingdom's Pope. Physical injuries are manageable, but this world remains dangerously vulnerable to disease. The identities of all 15 officials are therefore kept secret. Each official possesses extraordinary medical skill and irreplaceable knowledge. The organization fears enemies might target and eliminate such invaluable people. Their authority comes directly from the 3 emperors and the Pope. Given that backing, Davy understands why Linus spoke with such confidence. At present, those officials wield authority surpassing even ordinary royalty. Opposing them means defying 3 empires and the Pope simultaneously. Anyone attempting such resistance would immediately be branded a traitor. People may resent the arrangement, but they remain powerless against it. The officials also travel under protection from the Destruction Knights. Their captain is a retired count from the kingdom's eastern territory. That retired count once served among the kingdom's royal knights. The Tower Elder heard that the captain retired several years ago. His sudden return proves the outbreak has become extremely serious. For that reason, the Tower Elder refuses to interfere recklessly. Winley regrets involving both men without understanding the danger. Davy reassures his sister and promises that everything will be fine. He then asks whether helping them causes the Tower Elder any trouble. The Tower Elder denies that their involvement presents any problem. Winley is affiliated with the Red Magical Tower as a mage. As one of that tower's elders, he also wants to help her. Davy finds the Tower Elder diligent, responsible, and outwardly trustworthy. Nevertheless, Davy senses hidden motives behind the elder's presence. Davy decides remaining inside the treatment center serves little purpose. After all, he has already obtained everything he currently needs. The center can concentrate on preventing the disease from spreading farther. Davy's responsibility is creating a cure while enough time remains. Persilk asks how Davy could possibly accomplish that. Davy believes the center already attempted a similar medical procedure. Their reliance on traditional methods prevented them from achieving success. Persilk understands that Davy intends to use the patient's blood. She still cannot grasp how that blood could produce a cure. Davy assures Persilk that he has a workable method. He then asks whether the hidden elf has arrived. Ileana reveals herself and remarks that Davy discovered her again. She complains that her stealth never seems effective against him. Despite her frustration, Ileana begins extending one hand toward Davy. Ileana hands over the requested information, then notes Davy still owes payment. She also offers another item, believing it may prove useful. Davy jokes that such generosity could destroy Ileana's hard-earned reputation. Ileana dismisses his concern, insisting insisting she knows exactly what she is doing. Davy unrolls the scroll Ileana supplied and carefully studies its contents. He asks whether every detail recorded there can truly be trusted. An informant's very survival depends upon keeping their intelligence reliable. Since Ileana personally verifies this report, Davy knows she speaks truthfully. Davy then says he needs Ileana to handle one final request. He passes her a list requesting every obtainable item written there. Davy trusts Ileana to perform this task better than any mercenary. He instructs her to charge everything to the disease treatment center. Ileana hesitates, clearly reluctant to place the expenses under that account. Davy counters that these supplies are needed to save human lives. He says Ileana is not heartless enough to ignore their suffering. Davy asks her to complete the mission for humanity's sake.